The aristocratic crowd gossips, predicting Teresa's swift downfall now that her long-lost half-sister Libby has returned. A guest sneeringly predicts the Duke will soon discard Therese, only to panically freeze as she suddenly appears behind him. The guest mockingly asks if she is thrilled her long-lost sister returned, and Therese coolly replies she is. Therese threateningly asks the sweating Viscount if he is displeased by Libby's return, suggesting she might report his attitude to her father. Apologizing frantically, the terrified Viscount begs Therese for mercy for speaking out of turn as she walks away. Clink! A golden coin clinks loudly as a system window shows a supportive Constellation cheering on the drama. Gold coins rain down as Constellations shower her with applause, prompting Therese to reflect on her unique nickname. Renowned as the Queen of Trends, she stands bathed in golden coins under her streaming moniker, Villainess BJ. Divine Play presents itself as a reverse harem game destined to steal players' hearts with multiple romantic interests. The game's heroine expresses utter shock upon realizing she is secretly the Duke's long-lost daughter. The doting Duke embraces his daughter, promising that everything in the duchy belongs to her. Damian West, the commoner-born vice president, gently drapes his jacket over the sleeping blonde heroine. The red-haired genius professor Ilya Bernstein looks down at the heroine with an intense, quiet gaze. Clyde Willow, the white-haired heir of a rival noble family, stares forward with cold, striking blue eyes. Emperor Yuzis Rodrigo, the elegant ruler of the empire, holds the blonde heroine's chin with a soft smile. Overcome by madness, a desperate Therese raises a dagger high, screaming her intent to kill the heroine. A furious Duke commands his guards to drag Therese away, completely disowning his daughter for her crimes. Therese desperately screams for her father as she is discarded, watching her family fade into distant memories. The tired developer drinks her soda while complaining that her villainess dies far too early in her game. Tap! A soft tap sounds as she grabs another can of energy drink to fuel her long night. The developer sighs in deep frustration, questioning why all her villainesses end up dropping dead so quickly. Opening her settings folder, the developer wonders if she designed her characters to be too one-dimensional. Therese Squire's official character profile reveals a highly elitist, jealous, and authoritarian personality filled with major flaws. Reviewing the traits, the developer dryly notes that her villainess is just a walking collection of toxic red flags. She contemplates adding more scenes of the Duke's hatred, reasoning that a villainess should never share familial love. The harsh rules of her game dictate that for one daughter to be loved, the other must remain unloved. The developer pauses her typing, staring quietly at her glowing screen in a moment of sudden hesitation. Looking at cracked family photos, she admits her personal lack of familial love makes her sympathize slightly with Therese. Dismissing her sudden moodiness as mere exhaustion, she stretches her arms high to shake off the gloomy thoughts. Click. A loud click echoes as she decides to perform just one final test run before finally heading home. She mutters her growing annoyance with the game's repetitive opening sequence displaying the 5 silhouetted male leads. A heavy wave of exhaustion suddenly washes over her as her eyelids grow incredibly heavy in the darkness. Dizzy and confused, she notices extra silhouettes appearing in the opening sequence before her vision suddenly begins to fade. A glowing system window appears as the surroundings transition into a grand imperial palace under a loading screen. The unconscious girl lies on the polished floor while 2 men stand nearby, looking down in quiet alarm. The stern man in the elegant suit stands silently, staring down at the falling girl with intense focus. Cough! Gasping for air, Therese suddenly sits up and coughs violently as she regains her senses on the floor. Therese looks around in utter bewilderment, coughingly questioning her sudden relocation to a luxurious, unfamiliar bedroom. The stern, dark-haired Duke calmly notes that she has finally regained consciousness as he stands beside her. A bright blue system screen floats in the air, announcing that the loading process is officially complete. Tears stream down Therese's face as the overwhelming reality of her bizarre situation begins to sink in. She finds herself staring at a strangely familiar foreign interior that matches the designs of her game. Walking up to a large mirror, she gasps upon seeing the gorgeous face of Therese staring back. Therese nervously laughs to herself, desperately trying to convince her racing mind that this must be a dream. Stepping onto the cold floor, she realizes that if this isn't a dream, she is in deep trouble. Collapsing to her knees, she is shocked when a streaming system window suddenly materializes directly in front of her. The bright blue hologram instructs her to select a channel name to begin streaming as Villainess BJ. Staring blankly at the glowing floating screen, Therese utterly panics over the bizarre streaming prompt before her. A new notification confirms Constellations are joining the stream of the very game she was busy developing. Confused, she recalls that Divine Play never had any streaming functions or YouTube settings built into it. Therese gasps in utter shock as she stares blankly at the unexpected visitor before her. Multiple system notifications flood her vision as a constellation showers her with praise for her stunning appearance. As she stands before the glowing blue light, she feels overwhelmed by her bizarre situation. A prominent system message highlights the supportive constellation's enthusiastic standing ovation for her looks. Therese's eyes widen in sudden alarm as a harsh voice loudly echoes her name. Her father furiously berates her for ruining her engagement and bringing deep humiliation to their family. Her father scolds her about how her former fiancé begged to call off the engagement due to her cruel treatment. Glowing words confirm this is not a dream as the mysterious man in red looms before her. The mysterious pink-haired stranger notes her realization and calmly suggests they have a proper conversation about her situation. The pink-haired man formally introduces himself as Oswald, the administrator of her streaming channel. Teresa is stunned to see Oswald sitting grandly on a majestic throne holding a skull-top staff. Confused and overwhelmed, Therese desperately tries to figure out the true identity of this self-proclaimed administrator. Therese anxiously wonders if Oswald is the mastermind behind her sudden translocation into this fantasy game world. Oswald offers her a deal, presenting a high-stakes quest to unlock the game's true ending in hard mode. Oswald warns her that while the rewards are immense, the penalty for failing the quest is extraordinarily severe. Flashback memories reveal her childhood of neglect, where her parents prioritized her siblings and dismissed her feelings. Oswald explains that failing means falling into a personal hell where she must endlessly repeat her painful childhood memories. Horrified by the threat, Therese trembles in fear, desperately gripping her dress to steady herself. Oswald's ornate silver cane features a menacing skull adorned with glowing red ruby eyes. A system window reveals the terrifying stakes of the quest, indicating she will die if she fails. Oswald bluntly confirms that physical death in the game means permanent real-world death for her. Overwhelmed by the life-and-death stakes, Therese collapses to her knees on the floor in sheer terror. Shifting back to reality, the Duke stands by the window and quietly asks about his daughter's condition. The butler explains that Therese passed out again the very moment her alcohol wore off. The Duke frowns, deeply questioning if the cancellation of her engagement was truly that devastating to her. A flashback shows Therese screaming in despair because her father called off her engagement without even asking her. She wept bitterly, realizing her father never cared for her and constantly dismissed her happiness. After expressing her heartbreak over his betrayal, past Therese collapsed unconscious right in front of him. Regretting his harsh actions, the Duke admits his own immaturity and orders the butler to lift her travel restrictions. The Duke looks out the window, quietly anticipating what will happen once his daughter finally awakens. Attempting a rare gesture of kindness, the Duke instructs the servants to prepare her favorite snacks. Therese resolutely refuses, completely uninterested in receiving any favors or pity from her father. Oswald displays an incredibly expensive wish coupon, but Therese firmly repeats that she does not want it. As Oswald enthusiastically lists the absolute power of the wish coupon, Therese dryly tells him to stop using cheap ad slogans. Rubbing her temples in exhaustion, Therese pleads with Oswald to simply return her to her original world. Oswald leans in close, slyly informing her that returning home also requires the 1 billion coin wish coupon. Surprised by her hesitation, Oswald notes that he expected her to accept his deal right away. Oswald smugly questions why she is hesitant, considering his proposition is an incredibly good deal for her. Oswald reminds her that she was the one who designed all the male leads of this game. He explains that to return home, she must unlock the true ending with one of those men. Therese glares in anger, inwardly cursing his ridiculous rules as the exact opposite of what she wants. She knows that in her own game design, Therese is destined to be a hated villain who only exists to make the heroine shine. The world of the game is fundamentally rigged to celebrate and worship only the perfect heroine, Livy. In this world, all attention and affection are completely monopolized by the doted-upon heroine. Therese realizes that a romance ending for a villainess makes absolutely no sense in this universe. Oswald gazes at her with a gentle yet knowing smile, waiting for her final decision. He tells her not to overthink the situation as he prepares to initiate his magic. Oswald outlines her choices: accept her place in this world or earn 1 billion coins to buy her way home. The system panel confirms that obtaining the wish coupon is her only alternate ticket back to her reality. Oswald gently tilts her chin up with his staff, forcing her to look him in the eye. Oswald questions her capabilities while displaying screens of disasters, wars, betrayal, and a spilled wine glass. Oswald tells Therese he chose her as his first romance protagonist after pleasing constellations with bloody genres. Oswald holds a lock of Therese's hair while wishing her success from the bottom of his heart. Oswald begins to fade away, urging Therese to become a top-tier channel broadcaster. Therese sits up abruptly in her luxurious bed, gasping as she awakens from her vision. The maid informs Therese that she has changed her into comfortable indoor clothes after she woke up. Therese is struck with sudden alarm and confusion as she processes her immediate surroundings. As the maid begs for forgiveness, a system screen assigns Therese the quest to reach the true ending. Therese pauses silently, her mind racing as she realizes the heavy gravity of her situation. Dressed only in her nightgown, Therese walks past her protesting maids to find her father. Before a large door, a constellation donates coins and eagerly asks when the male lead will appear. Therese scoffs internally, completely dismissing the constellation's anticipation of a male lead. Therese realistically concludes that pursuing a male lead as the villainess is entirely hopeless. The Duke turns around in surprise as the door to his study is opened. Standing boldly in her nightgown, Therese announces she has an urgent matter to discuss with her father. The Duke expresses shock at Therese's nightgown before dismissing his butler Donovan to speak privately. The Duke sighs in deep frustration, accusing Therese of constantly causing trouble and drama. Therese shocks her father by claiming she recently spotted her missing younger sister, Libby. Therese remembers her younger sister, Libby, the beloved and perfect heroine of the game. Therese maintains a serious expression as she speaks of her sister's return. The scene shifts to a carriage arriving outside the magnificent estate gates. Libby steps out of the carriage and gasps upon arriving back at the estate. A grand crowd of noble guests gathers in the ballroom to witness Libby's return. Libby weeps tears of relief as her father stands close by to comfort her. Libby stands elegantly in her fine dress, looking like a beloved heroine. Therese recalls the highly dramatic moment when the family was reunited with Libby. Guests gossip happily about Libby's safe return, while Therese watches silently from a distance. Therese stands alone under the golden light, feeling completely detached from the family's joy. The narrative recalls how Therese's younger sister had gone missing a few days ago. A sudden realization confirms that Libby is indeed alive and returning. Back in the study, Therese stands firm before her father, waiting for his response. A constellation warns her of losing favor upon Libby's return, but Therese remains completely unconcerned. Therese makes a formal request to stay at the Valhalla Academy's dormitory instead. The scene showcases the prestigious Valhalla Academy, the central setting of her game. The silhouettes of the game's male leads appear, representing potential romantic paths. Constellations actively comment on her plan, speculating on death flags and a school uniform. The Duke notes that her request is a highly characteristic and calculated deal. The Duke criticizes her for using his grief as leverage to secure her dormitory request. The Duke reluctantly agrees to her terms and promises to arrange her dormitory stay. The Duke adds a condition that final approval depends on confirming Libby's return. Her father commands her to remain quietly grounded until the truth is verified. The Duke decides to host a grand banquet once Libby's return is confirmed. The scene shifts to the banquet where guests admire Libby's resemblance to the Duchess. Guests continue to sentimentalize the reunion while Therese stands silently with her back turned. Observing the dramatic reunion in person, Therese dryly reflects that her game's opening scene was underwhelming. Therese internally critiques the reunion as overly melodramatic, prompting amused laughter from a constellation. A constellation donates coins, praising Therese for her sharp intolerance of disrespectful nobles. Therese is amused when a donating constellation correctly identifies her personality type as an INFJ. Therese fields rapid questions from constellations about the world, Oswald's fame, and potential male leads. Therese decides to answer their questions, but resolves secretly never to pursue any romantic interest. An elegant hand raising a champagne glass demands the attention of the gathered banquet guests. The Duke proudly announces the safe and long-awaited return of his beloved daughter Libby. The banquet guests gather in the grand ballroom, whispering among themselves during the celebration. The noble guests warmly congratulate Libby on her return and shower her with flattering compliments. Therese stands alone on the balcony, quietly observing the distant celebration from the shadows. A cold evening breeze blows past Therese as she stands detached from her family's joy. A system notification from a constellation mockingly asks if she is feeling jealous of Libby's spotlight. Therese dryly retorts to the mocking constellation while another donor sends a massive coin donation in support. Therese calmly dismisses the system's remarks, asserting that she has absolutely no reason to feel jealous. A vision of the perfect beloved heroine, Libby serves as a reminder of her doted-upon status. The sound of approaching footsteps breaks her solitude, prompting a boy to question what she is muttering. Young, dark-haired boy with striking green eyes glares fiercely at Therese with open hostility. The young boy stands his ground firmly, radiating intense anger and defiance toward her. The system identifies the hostile boy as Giuseppe Squire, the youngest son of Duchess Roseanne. Giuseppe visually bristles with animalistic fury, practically growling with rage at the sight of her. A finger is pointed aggressively at Therese, accusingly calling her out. Giuseppe fiercely accuses Therese of faking her kindness, claiming he knows she truly despises his sister Libby. Therese calmly corrects his manners, completely catching the young boy off guard and leaving him flustered. A painful memory resurfaces of a brother harshly accusing Therese of acting out to get attention. The cruel memory ends with the harsh rejection that she will never truly belong to their family. Soft chuckle escapes her lips as Therese internally notes that Giuseppe is actually quite cute compared to her past siblings. Therese teasingly compares him to her real-world brother, delivering a comical shock to his pride. Blushing furiously, Giuseppe screams that he is nothing like her and refuses to consider her his sister. A sudden clicking of heels draws their attention, while a system message laughs at her teasing. Duchess Rosen approaches them with a strict, dignified elegance, her expression showing slight disapproval. Therese greets Duchess Rosen, who promptly orders her startled son Giuseppe to return to his seat. Looking after her son, Duchess Rosen sighs and remarks on how immature he still is. Therese politely assures Duchess Rosen that there is absolutely no need for any apology. Duchess Rosen expresses slight hesitation, admitting she only spoke up because Therese appeared upset. Duchess Roseanne gently probes if Libby's sudden return has made things uncomfortable or difficult for Therese. The narrative warns of the dark reality behind the Duchess's motherly facade, hinting at bloody deeds. Enshrouded in ominous thorns, Duchess Rosen demands to know Therese's true feelings regarding Libby. With a soft chuckle, Therese simply smiles as she prepares to deliver her response. Therese eases her stepmother's worries by calmly announcing her plans to leave the ducal manor. Stunned by the unexpected declaration, Duchess Rosen bewilderedly asks her what she means. Therese bluntly declares that her stepmother has ultimately won the struggle for power and place. Duchess Rosen visibly flinches as Therese points out that she did not secure the succession. Her heels click sharply as Therese walks away, stating she will move to the academy dormitory. A heavy silence descends over the dark balcony as the confrontation draws to a close. Duchess Roseanne is left standing entirely frozen, completely speechless at Therese's final parting words. The scene fades to black as the night of the banquet finally comes to an end. A few days pass in quiet transition, shifting the setting forward to a new day. The grand sunlit facade of the ducal estate stands majestic and busy in the morning light. Preparations are underway throughout the luxurious mansion rooms overlooking the lush estate gardens. Therese steps into the room, sharply demanding to know what the busy servants are doing. Therese scolds the startled maids, demanding if they honestly expect to finish the room today. The anxious maids scramble quickly to pick up the pace under her harsh, commanding gaze. A maid hurries into the room to announce the arrival of the newly ordered carpet. Therese inspects the rug, confirming with the maid that it is of the absolute finest quality. After ordering the carpet to be laid properly, Therese notes that decorating Libby's room is making her hungry. A new system message from a donating constellation urges her to eat something soon. Therese resolves to collect as many coins as possible while pursuing her hidden ending goal. Therese stops an orange-haired maid who flinches in terror as a sudden gasp escapes her. Struggling to remember her name, Therese asks the startled maid Penny to bring her a snack. A heavy silence falls as the maids tremble in nervous shock over her sudden request. Therese wonders why the atmosphere shifted and if they expect her to torment them again. Pointing toward her study, Therese commands the maid to deliver her food once it is ready. Therese dryly reflects on her terrifying villain reputation as she passes the trembling, fearful servants. The scene shifts to the quiet, dusty library of the Grand Ducal Estate. Standing alone among massive piles of books, Therese prepares to begin her magical research. Activating the game system, Therese summons her character status window to check her attributes. Her purple status screen reveals high mana reserves despite having only average magic rank and intelligence. Therese is pleased to confirm her prediction that her status window functions perfectly in this world. Therese notes the settings match her layout, while a system notification alerts her to the audience's curiosity. Seated on the floor among books, Therese explains she is analyzing her character's unique settings. A brilliant glow illuminates the room as Therese conjures a spark of raw magical energy. Chanting a basic spell, Therese uses her immense brute force mana to cast magic without technique. Her purple eyes widen in absolute wonder as she witnesses the magical spark manifest before her. The constellations express amusement at her pure reaction to seeing magic for the first time. Blushing and clearing her throat, Therese defensively asserts that she can easily cast magic without practice. A constellation agrees she possesses incredible mana, prompting Therese to focus solely on increasing her intelligence. Therese explains to her viewers that magic in this world is operated strictly through formulaic calculations. Flipping through an ancient spell book, she notes that advanced spells require solving complex mathematical equations. Sparkles fill her eyes as Therese feels determined to achieve incredible magical feats through diligent study. A constellation donates coins while playfully teasing her for acting like a total math nerd. Therese clarifies to her audience that possessing high mana does not automatically guarantee magical talent. The narrative reveals that Therese never excelled because her original persona absolutely detested reading books. Therese dismisses an excited constellation's theory that raising her intelligence is key to saving the world. A sudden sound at the library door causes Therese to pause her reading and turn around. The orange-haired maid Penny cautiously enters the study room carrying a tray of tea and snacks. When the hesitant maid asks where to place the tray, Therese calmly points to a spot. Terrified of making a mistake, Penny begins to tremble and frantically apologizes for her clumsiness. Therese calmly reassures the petrified maid, telling her there's absolutely no need to worry. Penny looks incredibly touched, tears welling in her eyes at this unexpected display of warm kindness. The quiet rustle of a heavy gown sounds as someone approaches, calling out to Therese. The elegant gray-haired head maid Miranda enters the study, standing before Therese with strict dignity. Startled by the sudden arrival of the head maid, Therese pauses her reading in mild surprise. Miranda continues her formal report, addressing her lady with a serious and highly professional demeanor. Penny is completely stunned, stammering that she never expected her noble lady to remember her name. Therese is utterly perplexed, wondering what on earth the servants are gossiping about. A sudden spark of realization dawns on Therese as she begins to understand her sister's situation. Behind closed doors, the housemaids gossip that serving Libby would be far more beneficial. The narrative reveals that the original Therese never remembered any servants except for Miranda and Donovan. Therese blushes in deep embarrassment, realizing her original character was simply an absolute idiot. An excited Constellation donates coins, speculatively praising Therese for executing a brilliant, calculated master plan. Clutching her head in exhaustion, Therese facepalms while flatly denying any such convoluted scheme. Standing by the study door, Miranda speaks up once more to deliver an important message. Therese turns her attention back to the head maid as she hears mention of her father. She is highly suspicious when Miranda delivers the Duke's unexpected invitation to join him for dinner. A sudden, sharp realization hits Therese as she connects the pieces behind her father's invitation. Viewing her game attributes, Therese realizes her father actually remembered her birthday. The scene transitions to the dining hall on February 20th, the day of her birthday. Therese stands elegantly before her status screen, ready to face the family dinner. The afternoon sun brightly illuminates the Grand Ducal estate during this pivotal day. Therese quietly enters the dining room as her father acknowledges her arrival. Her father warmly invites her to join them and take a seat at the table. Therese remains completely silent as she warily observes her family's behavior. Her father notes that she seems to be in a remarkably good mood today. A sudden scraping sound echoes as Therese pulls out a chair to sit down. Therese softly replies that today is indeed a very joyful day for her. Seated alone at the table, she allows herself a fleeting moment of hope. Her father excitedly announces that Libby's paternity test results have finally been confirmed. Therese is completely stunned, her eyes widening in sudden shock at the revelation. A bitter, quiet sigh escapes Therese's lips as the painful truth sinks in. Therese bitterly realizes her family never remembered her birthday, only caring about Libby. Therese watches her stepmother celebrate, feeling excluded from their happy family dynamic. Giuseppe whines to his sister, while Therese silently notes her usual exclusion. Her father offers Libby an entrance gift, cementing Therese's entirely forgotten birthday. Blue system notifications show the viewing constellations expressing their boredom and disappointment. Therese prepares herself for the most frustrating part of this family dinner. Therese speaks up, calmly announcing that there is something she wishes to purchase. A soft clinking sounds as she cuts her steak, requesting a small allowance. Her father cuts her off, dismissively telling her to discuss it later on such a joyful day. Her father warns her that he does not want to get angry right now. Putting her fork down with a quiet clack, Therese asks when a better time would be. Therese bluntly asks her father if he ever has any time to listen to her. A loud, echoing slam reverberates through the dining hall as her father strikes the table in rage. Her father's furious shout of her name echoes sharply through the tense, silent room. The Duke stands up in a fury, scolding Therese while Libby flinches in fear. Her father loudly points out that Libby has only just returned to their home. Her father angrily accuses her of throwing a childish fit over a trivial allowance. Watching constellations urge Therese to reveal her birthday or physically retaliate against her father. Another constellation optimistically predicts that the male lead will arrive to rescue her. Therese internally rejects the idea of pathetically begging for attention on her birthday. A painful memory resurfaces of being told her birthday is completely unimportant. Therese sadly reflects that speaking up would only prove her birthday is completely meaningless. A system notification dryly remarks on the classic unloved eldest daughter trope she is experiencing. Therese composedly wipes her mouth with a napkin, keeping her emotions entirely hidden. Breaking her silence, Therese calmly announces to the table that today is her birthday. Therese internally notes that as a writer, she would never have used such a cruel trope. Her father is left entirely speechless as Therese adds she did not want to trouble him. Her father defensively asks how old she is to be blaming him over a birthday. Her father internally worries that he was too harsh and fears she might make a scene. Therese softly apologizes, stating she spoke out of turn and said something she should not have. Standing up with a sudden clatter, Therese politely requests to be excused from dinner. Therese notes that being allowed to leave early is gift enough for her birthday. Therese turns away with quiet elegance, completely turning her back on her stunned family. A close-up reveals her father's eyes wide with a sudden, painful realization of his cruelty. Therese accepts blame as the story's creator, while others wonder if her father is furious. Her father declares that he has absolutely no intention of giving her such a pitiful gift. An overhead view shows the family seated at the long, elegant dining table. Therese looks up with wide, shocked eyes, completely startled by the sudden announcement. Her father dismissively tells her to go upstairs if she is too tired. Therese is utterly stunned as the system reveals her father gave her a blank check. She finds the massive gift excessive, reminding herself she is just a squire's daughter. Reflecting on her modern identity, she humorously questions why a blank check feels so overwhelming. She marvels internally at the sheer wealth, realizing the family's check could buy a mine. Libby watches silently from her seat, wondering why such a valuable gift went to Therese. Therese maintains a silent, unreadable expression as she processes the unexpected gift. Turning to leave the dining room, Therese loudly and formally accepts the Duke's generous gift. Walking out, she wonders if her father is only acting careful because Libby is present. Stepping forward, she decides there is absolutely no practical reason to refuse the money. She pauses and turns back, softly welcoming Libby back to the household. Therese laments ruining the mood on what should have been a meaningful day for Libby. With a quiet rustle, she announces her departure and heads upstairs to her room. Therese walks away alone, her back turned to the dining hall as petals fall. She internally bids her family to enjoy their relaxing, uninterrupted time together. Standing alone in the hallway, she closes the heavy wooden doors of the dining room. Blue system windows cascade down, showing several constellations donating coins in appreciation. Another constellation donates coins, wishing for the channel rank to rise to bronze tier. A bright flashing light announces she has reached 10,000 coins in total donations. Waves of brilliant energy signal the arrival of several new excited constellations to her stream. Leaning against the door, Therese views notifications questioning her family's changing feelings. A close-up shows her trembling hand resting flatly against the cold wooden door.
In deep emotional distress, she detests the lingering craving for parental affection.
The surrounding scenery suddenly twists and glitches violently in a distorted flash of light. Therese's vision glitters as she notes the predictable, distorted shift in her reality. A glitched pink-haired man appears, expressing his incredibly high expectations for her. The pink-haired man catches her, warmly congratulating Miss Shinji-woo on her channel ranking up. An elegant teacup reflects her face as she learns there are 5 total channel ranks. Glowing crests outline the levels, from bronze and silver up to gold and platinum. The final, most powerful tier is revealed to be the prestigious diamond rank. In a frozen dining hall, he explains sponsorship maximums increase tenfold with each rank. Therese confirms that her promotion to silver allows a maximum sponsorship of 1,000 coins. She doubts anyone has bought a wish ticket, questioning how to gather 1 billion coins. Therese watches silently as the pink-haired man's arm dissolves into digital particles. A massive glowing white gateway swings open with a loud resounding creak. A dark starry background displays a chilling warning that she will suffer the same fate. The pink-haired man smirks slyly as he looks back over his shoulder. Large magical books float gracefully through the air in a wash of bright energy. A floating book opens as a voice curiously asks if studying magic is fun. He boasts about bringing advanced magical knowledge from a highly advanced dimension to her. With a sudden thud, a massive stack of magical spellbooks slams onto the table. Therese demands he undo the magic while he playfully laughs off his forgetfulness. With a swift whoosh, he waves his hand to dissipate the swirling magical energy. Therese admits she merely overdid her efforts a little bit during her magical practice. She reflects bitterly on her realization that magic did not work for her at all. Therese sighs, realizing there is absolutely no way to resist a powerful channel manager. The pink-haired man asks if she is finally becoming accustomed to her body's possession. She resolutely states her need for 1 billion coins, which he considers a positive development. The pink-haired man in the red coat coolly questions why she has sought him out, wondering if she has business with him. Looking at the pause screen, Therese points out he must have a reason for stopping time mid-advertisement to see her. Smiling calmly, the pink-haired man bluntly denies having any business with her. Unconvinced, Therese demands to know why he appeared, but he excuses it as his duty to monitor her. Leaning in closely, the pink-haired man adds that most people usually appreciate his sudden presence. The pink-haired man is momentarily stunned into silence as he looks into her eyes. Standing resolute, Therese is addressed by her original modern name, Jiwoo, as she glares back at him. The pink-haired man smiles knowingly and begins to ask if she is perhaps uninterested. Amidst ominous dark crests, the channel manager questions if she truly wishes to avoid getting closer to him. A heavy silence hangs between them as she remains quiet under his intense scrutiny. Therese grows increasingly anxious, realizing her existence depends entirely on his whimsical moods. Glitching warning windows appear as she fears she could be deleted instantly with a single snap of his fingers. The pink-haired man keeps a serene, unreadable expression as he gazes back at her. Beneath her long sleeves, Therese tightly clenches her fist as her anxiety mounts. Stepping back slightly, the pink-haired man notes that she clearly dislikes pretending to be close to him. Therese speaks with blunt honesty, admitting that she is deeply terrified of his immense power. Pink-haired man stares back at her with a blank, slightly surprised expression. Therese stands with quiet elegance, confidently concluding her honest declaration. He commends her honesty, noting there is no reason to hide her feelings from him anyway. A glitched blue screen reflects her sharp gaze as she prepares her next words. Surrounded by floating system panels, Therese notes that he can easily see right through her. A sudden lighthearted laugh echoes through the silent library as the tension momentarily breaks. Grabbing her jaw firmly, the pink-haired man coldly warns her that she does not understand her actual place here. He smiles chillingly, reminding her that they are not partners who trust or rely on one another. Holding her close, the pink-haired man whispers her modern name, mockingly calling her a mere plaything. Declaring he will only call her Therese from now on to remind her of her role, he leaves her silently cursing his cruelty. Turning away, Therese coldly announces her departure, refusing to let him see her visible anger. Snapping his fingers with a bright flash, the pink-haired man casually remarks that the paused advertisement lasted far too long. A sudden powerful distortion warp ripples through the room, causing a teacup to slide. Shards of glass shatter loudly across the floor as the magical time stop suddenly deactivates. Surprised voices cry out in sudden alarm as the expensive teacup shatters into pieces. The pink-haired man gives a parting warning, telling her to play her role well if she wishes to receive love. He lightly touches her collar with a gloved hand, whispering a final cryptic word. Leaning in intimately, he kisses her cheek as sparkling white flower petals drift around them. Therese recoils in shock as he steps away, mockingly announcing he is letting the constellations view her stream again. Frustrated, Therese takes a quick step forward, desperately calling out for him to wait. The pink-haired man bids her farewell as she runs past two startled maids into the bright hallway. Looking around the empty, sunlit corridor, Therese realizes with frustration that he has completely vanished. The panicked maid quickly kneels on the floor, frantically apologizing to her for the mess. Reaching down to the shattered shards, the maid promises to clean up the broken teacup immediately. Worn out by the ordeal, Therese feels her vision spin, knowing her body has reached its absolute limit. In the distance, her father enters the hallway with his aide, noticing her standing near the doorway. Her father gasps in sudden shock as he watches her stumble forward. Therese collapses onto the floor as her father desperately screams her name and rushes to her side. Sometime later, her father waits anxiously in the corridor, urgently asking the doctor about her current state. Closing his medical bag, the butler politely reassures the worried father that she has just fallen asleep. Therese rests peacefully in her bed, having received medicine to help her quickly recover. Looking around the plain room, her father questions Donovan why his daughter is being kept in such a secluded space. Donovan lowers his head respectfully, offering a quiet apology to the Duke. Donovan explains that Therese herself was the one who stubbornly insisted on staying in this specific room. Her father wonders if the vain Therese would truly choose such a humble room. He deeply questions whether he has truly been too indifferent toward his own daughter. His companion gently reassures him that he has always done his absolute best. The Duke reflects on his past conviction, admitting he always believed he was right. Looking at his sleeping daughter, he recalls the painful pang he felt meeting her eyes. He admits he once suspected her behavior was merely another attempt to provoke him. Yet, he cannot ignore how completely different and unrecognizable her behavior is now. He falls into a heavy silence, overwhelmed by regret over his past assumptions. A memory of a bright, smiling young Therese highlights the warmth they once shared. He softly accepts the truth as he gazes at his daughter resting peacefully. He realizes with a heavy heart that his little daughter is already 22. Waking up, Therese is startled to find several glowing system notification screens floating around her. The system notifications reveal massive new coin donations celebrating her perfectly timed illness. Stunned by the sudden wave of messages, she wonders what is happening. She reasons that these active donation alerts must have appeared very recently. She questions whether the constellations have just been playfully donating this entire time. Her maids enter the room, warmly asking if she is feeling any better. Reassuring them she is fine, Therese asks if they need help preparing. Hearing a sudden commotion outside, she wonders who could possibly visit at this hour. She calls out for the visitors to enter as she stands ready. Several servants begin carrying massive rolled-up carpets and heavy furnishings into her bedroom. A magical presentation displays a collection of luxurious new furniture slated for her room. She's completely baffled by the sudden, unsolicited delivery of grand new furniture. She demands to know why they are suddenly replacing perfectly good furniture. The servant explains the Duke ordered everything replaced to match her noble status. Therese internally scoffs, highly skeptical about ever having any real status here. She shrugs it off since she isn't paying, but finds his sudden attention odd. She accepts the explanation, assuming this sudden kindness will likely be a one-time occurrence. The maid invites her to the garden, mentioning the Lord has a gift. The sun shines brilliantly over a beautiful flower-filled garden featuring an elegant white gazebo. In the garden, the butler presents a magnificent green carriage as her birthday gift. Therese stares in disbelief, questioning if this luxurious carriage is truly meant for her. Realizing she received both a blank check and a carriage, she feels overwhelmed. The butler reassures her that the Duke personally ordered this specific birthday gift. He gently notes that her father does not consider the gift excessive at all. Therese looks down anxiously, still believing that the grand gesture is far too much. Her viewers flood her screen with donations, thoroughly enjoying the sudden, wealthy lifestyle upgrade. She walks gracefully through the sunny garden path, her long hair flowing behind her. A sudden, firm footstep echoes nearby as someone approaches her in the garden. Her father approaches alongside his family, gently asking how she's feeling today. Therese quietly replies that she is fine, bringing visible relief to her father. Though she doubts he remembered her birthday, her father asks if she likes the carriage. Clenching her skirt tightly, she hesitantly admits she is not entirely sure how to feel. Offering a polite, gentle smile, she formally thanks her father for the generous gift. Her father gazes at her with a soft, silent expression filled with unspoken complex emotions. He quietly accepts her response as she glances away, maintaining a respectful distance. She notices her young brother staring at the carriage with wide, excited, sparkly eyes. She amusedly reflects that boys his age are naturally obsessed with fancy vehicles. Therese warmly invites her startled little brother to come closer and examine the carriage. A sharp click sounds as she reaches out to open the door for him. The young boy gasps in awe as he steps inside the luxurious green carriage. Therese explains that simpler-looking designs often require much more advanced engineering to construct. Therese smiles to herself, proud of her modern engineering knowledge regarding the carriage's design. Therese continues to detail the technical safety benefits of the lightweight carriage to her family. Therese suddenly blushes in deep embarrassment as she realizes she has been rambling. A system notification announces a donation from a viewer amused by her scientific explanation. The young boy curiously asks how she knows so much, leaving Therese stuttering for an explanation. The little boy remains completely speechless, staring at his sister with wide, glittering eyes. Therese looks back at him, puzzled by his intense and silent gaze of admiration. Libby, her blonde stepsister, suddenly rushes toward Therese through the beautiful sunlit garden path. Therese internally reflects that she knows the carriage perfectly because her design team created it. Libby stands before Therese, nervously holding her hands together as flowers bloom around them. Libby softly compliments the beauty of the carriage, catching Therese off guard. Therese awkwardly acknowledges the compliment, unsure of how to respond to her sister. Libby offers a warm, genuine smile, showing no trace of her past hostility. Libby continues to look at Therese with a mix of anxiety and affection. Libby eagerly calls out to Therese, extending her hand to get her attention. Libby pleads for Therese to wait, stopping her before she can walk away. Libby presents a beautifully wrapped small gift box, offering it to her sister. Therese stares in absolute shock, completely stunned by this unexpected gesture from Libby. Therese suddenly realizes the significance of the date, remembering what day it is. Therese recalls the original novel's plot where she cruelly rejected Libby's birthday gift. Therese realizes that repeating her original cruel behavior would lead her straight to her doom. Therese gently asks Libby if she may open the gift, which makes Libby nod. Opening the box, Therese finds a simple hand-braided blue string bracelet resting inside. Therese admires the highly detailed handiwork, wondering if Libby crafted the beautiful bracelet herself. Therese genuinely thanks Libby, calling the bracelet pretty and making Libby's eyes sparkle with joy. Therese asks if she should try it on, prompting Libby to nod in excited approval. Therese wears the bracelet on her wrist and softly repeats her gratitude to Libby. Libby's eyes fill with sheer happiness and warmth at seeing Therese wear her gift. Libby expresses her immense relief, explaining she worried the bracelet wouldn't fit Therese's wrist. The stepmother comments that while Libby's sincerity is admirable, the gift is rather humble. Therese reacts with sudden disbelief at her stepmother's cold, critical remark about Libby's gift. The stepmother unclasps her own bracelet, explaining it was part of her personal dowry. The stepmother offers her aquamarine pendant, presenting it as a more appropriate birthday gift. The stepmother fastens the expensive jewel onto Therese's wrist right beside Libby's string bracelet. The stepmother delivers a formal birthday greeting, leaving Therese feeling deeply uncomfortable and conflicted. Therese struggles internally to find the right words to say in this tense moment. Therese reflects that this is the first time she has ever received a sincere gift. Raoul sternly demands that she show proper gratitude for her stepmother's generous gesture. A narrative caption explains that Raoul cannot tolerate Therese showing any disrespect to his wife. A tense silence falls over the family as they wait for Therese's response. Frustrated by the sudden pressure, Therese clenches her dress, her anxiety rising. Therese abruptly accepts the gift and politely requests to excuse herself from the gathering. Raoul calls out for her to wait as she begins to walk away from them. Ignoring his call, Therese walks away down the garden path, leaving her family behind. The sun shines brightly through the lush green trees as she makes her escape. Therese begins to run desperately through the mansion's vast sunlit gardens to be alone. Panting heavily, she continues to run as new system notifications begin to appear. Therese realizes Libby simply wanted to give her a sincere gift using her own hands. Therese reflects that Rosen acted wisely to protect Libby's innocent gift from being used against her. Gazing into the water, she looks at her reflection with a deeply somber expression. Crouching by the fountain, she quietly laments that she does not even know her own place. A new day arrives, shifting the scene to the grand mansion bathed in a warm sunset glow. An attendant off-screen announces that all preparations are finally complete for her. The orange-haired maid compliments Therese's beautiful appearance as she finishes her preparations in the mirror. System notifications appear as constellations donate coins, highly praising her incredible beauty. Looking in the mirror, she wonders why they are making such a fuss over her usual everyday face. The maid curiously asks why she is dressing up so extravagantly before the first day of school. Therese casually explains that she simply needs to purchase an item at the upcoming auction event. She recalls that the key to the dimensions is essential to unlock the hidden paradise ending. Glowing blue butterflies flutter inside a cage, symbolizing the ultimate discovery of paradise. Maid anxiously warns her that her ex-fiancé, Count Fabio, will likely attend the auction. Therese looks deeply unsettled as she vividly recalls her eccentric and tearful ex-fiancé. She calmly admits to her maid that she was responsible for breaking off the engagement. While the maid apologizes for bringing it up, Therese assures her she is fine and bids farewell. A narrative caption reveals the first location where the vital key to the dimensions will appear. Standing elegantly in her stunning starry gown, she prepares for the auction at the St. Rio Hotel. Therese is surprised to spot her young brother walking through the lobby at this late hour. The young boy glares at her with a highly annoyed and upset expression. Her brother demands to know why she is dressed that way, prompting her to ask if she looks strange. Therese looks down in slight disappointment, softly noting that she thought the gown suited her well. Mumbling about her dress hem, the young boy suddenly begins casting a bright magical spell from his hand. He blesses her gown, wishing for her dress hem to sparkle like starlight with every single step. Therese looks back at him in sheer surprise, completely touched by his sudden magical gesture. The young boy looks away proudly, declaring that her appearance is now slightly more acceptable. A system notification announces a coin donation from an amused constellation following the heartwarming interaction. The scene shifts to the Grand St. Rio Hotel, glowing brilliantly under the night sky. Several noblemen stroll outside the venue, chatting amongst themselves before entering the grand event. Onlookers gasp in awe at the extravagant green carriage, recognizing the seal of Duke Squire's house. The crowd eagerly whispers, wondering if the person arriving is indeed the infamous lady. Therese steps gracefully out of the carriage as the onlookers recognize her as Lady Therese Squire. A polite hotel attendant bows respectfully, welcoming Lady Therese Squire to the venue. The attendant gestures warmly, guiding her inside toward the main hall of the hotel. Nearby noblewomen begin whispering in disbelief, shocked to see her actually attending the event. They marvel at her magnificent sparkly gown, comparing her magical afterimage to that of a fairy. A haughty nobleman holding a cigar sneers, muttering that she is simply desperate for attention. The gossiping nobles mock her extravagance, whispering that it explains her broken engagement. Therese stops in her tracks, casting a freezing, sharp glare back at the gossiping nobles. The insulting noblemen instantly flinch in terror, completely intimidated by her intense and icy gaze. Therese internally notes that these obnoxious critics are merely minor characters she does not even remember. She scoffs that mere extras are foolishly trying to mock a villainess with dangerous death routes. A constellation donates coins while urging her not to let these annoying pests off the hook. Her attendant looks at her attentively, waiting for any command she might give. Therese decides that while she will refrain from physical violence, she will not let them slide. She quietly orders her maid to identify the nobles and threaten them with registry erasure if crossed. After her maid complies, Therese smiles confidently and eagerly prepares to begin her shopping spree. A constellation donates coins, thoroughly enjoying her satisfyingly firm and decisive reaction. The scene opens to the bustling hotel lobby filled with wealthy guests preparing for the auction. Her loyal maid gasps in absolute awe as she takes in the spectacular sight before her. A narrative caption notes that only highly distinguished families can afford this luxurious venue. The narrative caption explains the clear hierarchy and exclusive VIP requirements of the elite venue. Therese hopes to blend in, but she is shocked by how much attention she draws. Soft chiming whispers sound as the crowd gossips about her stunning appearance. Therese realizes the crowd consists of high-ranking, prestigious nobles who outrank her in status. She notes many opportunistic nobles would eagerly use this chance to cozy up to her. A quick bump sounds as her starry gown is suddenly nudged from behind. A brown-haired man holding a plate of food grumbles about just wanting to browse. A sharp gasp sounds as the young man freezes in absolute terror upon seeing her. A loud crash sounds as plates clatter to the floor, drawing everyone's attention. The terrified young man falls to his knees amidst spilled food, desperately begging Lady Therese to spare his life for merely looking at her, while she internally questions what she did to deserve such an extreme reaction. Recognizing the bald spot on his head, Therese realizes he is her former fiancé, Fabio. She recalls how the original Therese bullied Fabio until he went bald and begged for release. Therese awkwardly dismisses her ex-fiancé to end the uncomfortable encounter, prompting Fabio to tearfully express his eternal gratitude for her mercy. The surrounding guests begin whispering and buzzing with curiosity after witnessing the bizarre scene. Therese quickly slips away from the crowd, trying to put the awkward incident behind her. Guests hurriedly steer clear of Therese as she walks past, treating her with intense fear. Therese notes that she is now treated like the plague rather than a ticking time bomb. Despite the isolation, Therese quietly reflects that she actually finds the quiet peacefulness rather nice. Her quiet moment is suddenly interrupted as an unfamiliar voice calls out her name in surprise. A noblewoman holding a green fan approaches Therese, expressing pleasant surprise at seeing her there. Therese stares blankly, completely unable to remember who the noblewoman standing before her is. A constellation named Mika I Love You donates coins to mock Therese for forgetting her own game's characters, causing multiple constellations to frown. Another constellation, Otto Blockangle, donates coins while pointing out that a Mika supporter tracked them to a silver channel. Therese, sighing internally, realizes that an annoying stream troll has entered her chat. Therese rationalizes that as a developer, she cannot be expected to remember minor background characters sketched by the art team. A system alert reveals that the channel moderator has taken disciplinary action against the troll. Therese feels relieved and satisfied seeing her moderator efficiently manage and protect her channel. The woman nervously assumed Therese's silent stare means they should just let the matter slide. A steady click-clack sounds as a dignified woman walks closer to their table. Therese turns her attention to the new arrival, noting the familiar faces in the room. A dignified elderly noblewoman in a green dress politely asks if she may join them. Therese's eyes widen as she immediately recognizes this highly prominent and unforgettable character. The system identifies her as Lady Shanti, a highly prestigious noblewoman of royal blood renowned for her dignity. A narrative card reveals that Lady Shanti will eventually become Libby's personal etiquette teacher. Lady Shanti formally greets Therese, noting it has been quite a while since they met. A light rustle sounds as Lady Shanti cordially expresses her pleasure at seeing Therese. A sudden system notification prompts Therese with a quest to initiate a proper formal greeting. The quest details outline rewards for success and warn of a severe reputation penalty upon failure. The system warns that low reputation will prevent her from requesting an audience with the Empress. Therese looks startled, internally questioning why her life has suddenly turned into a puzzle game. Therese realizes she must greet Lady Shanti first due to her high rank, but panics because she does not know anyone else's name. A timely system alert announces that helpful new items have just arrived in the shop. Therese stares intently at the system screen, trying to read the newly available shop items. Quietly hiding her growing panic, Therese prepares to access the system's coin shop immediately. A quiet whisper sounds as the system interface opens the virtual shop window for her. A dazzling whoosh sounds as the wish ticket screen floats before her, displaying incredibly expensive items. Therese reviews the shop's affordable options, spotting character information and intermediate etiquette skills, realizing these are exactly what she needs. A joyful cha-ching sounds as she spends 5,000 coins to purchase the character information pack. Another quick cha-ching sounds as she purchases the intermediate etiquette skill, preparing to greet the nobles. With a soft chime, Therese gracefully bows, apologizing for her late greeting as she successfully acquires her new etiquette skill. Lady Shanti looks surprised, politely admitting she did not expect to see Therese at the event today. Therese maintains her serene, polite smile while standing elegantly before the esteemed elder noblewoman. Madame Hamil looks astounded, warmly expressing that Therese has grown into a truly beautiful young lady. Placing a hand on her chest, Therese politely thanks Madame Hamil for her very kind words. Lady Shanti observes Therese thoughtfully, noting that the atmosphere around her feels completely different now. Therese remains quietly attentive, waiting patiently for the respected noblewoman to continue her thoughts. A speedier version of a bright chime sounds as a system notification confirms she has successfully completed the greeting quest. Lady Shanti offers a rare, gentle smile, clearly pleased by Therese's refined and respectful manners. Therese internally notes that Lady Shanti is highly prestigious and rarely smiles without a significant reason. System notifications announce coin donations, praising Therese for her efficiency in utilizing her sponsored coins. Therese recalls harsh negative game reviews that heavily criticized boring grinding and sluggish story progression. More chat system messages express deep admiration for her quick and decisive actions at the venue. Another constellation sponsors coins, thoroughly impressed by Therese's impeccable and high-level social performance. Seeking conversation, Madame Hamil cordially brings up Therese's recent birthday. Madame Hamil warmly praises her growth, while Chibi Therese sweatingly senses a hidden jab about her past. Therese smiles politely, smoothly responding that the noblewoman flatters her too much. Lady Shanti looks pensive, suggesting that perhaps the social season will be different this time. An elegant title card introduces the highly coveted title of the flower of the social season. Therese sits quietly, visualizing the idealized path of becoming the prestigious flower of the season. A blue system window reveals a constellation showing keen interest in the upcoming social season. The narrative explains that the social season title is a key requirement for the Empress route. Achieving this title requires a noble lady to stand out most at the August summer ball. The prestigious path culminates in receiving a beautiful floral crown directly from the reigning emperor. Therese remains indifferent, privately noting that the Empress route has absolutely nothing to do with her. The gray-haired noblewoman suddenly compliments her, marveling at the lovely glowing bracelet on Teresa's wrist. A soft rustle sounds as Therese gently touches the magical bracelet, looking down at her wrist. Therese explains that her young brother specially crafted the magical bracelet for her to wear. The surrounding noblewomen clasp their cheeks in adoration, deeply touched by her brother's heartwarming gesture. The yellow-haired noblewoman inquires about their sibling relationship, noting how remarkably close they seem. Therese hesitates slightly, carefully considering the true, complicated nature of their sibling dynamic. She warmly recalls a flashback of young Libby happily presenting her with a beautifully wrapped gift. Back in the present, Therese gently touches her bracelet, quietly lost in her bittersweet memories. A calm, comfortable silence settles over the elegant lounge as the noblewomen enjoy their tea. Therese suddenly wonders if she sounded far too sentimental, looking slightly embarrassed as she pauses. Lady Shati smiles warmly, clearly pleased to see Therese expressing such genuine affection for her family. The gray-haired noblewoman agrees, admitting she completely understands that nostalgic and sentimental feeling. She fondly reminisces about bickering constantly with her own siblings, yet deeply missing those childhood days. Lady Shanti suggests that Therese might experience that close sibling bond herself as a princess someday. While Lady Shanti hopes the princesses will get along, Therese internally doubts she will ever befriend Libby. Therese politely promises to take those words to heart, masking her private skepticism with a smile. With a gentle touch, Madame Hamiel reaches out and suddenly clasps Therese's hands in her own. Madame Hamiel tearfully thanks Therese, her eyes shining with absolute joy and overwhelming gratitude. Therese is left completely bewildered, sweating as she wonders what she did to deserve such gratitude. The comical chibi scene depicts Therese frozen in confusion while Madame Hamiel holds her hands tightly. The scene shifts back to the Grand Hall as the announcer introduces the 15th auction item. Sitting in her VIP balcony seat, Therese peers through her opera glasses to inspect the upcoming item. A bright spotlight illuminates a red velvet pedestal holding a mysterious glowing gold key. The announcer explains that the magic of the mysterious key remains entirely unknown and unlocked. As the bidding officially begins, Therese stands ready and determined to claim the crucial dimension key. The brown-haired noblewoman in green and the blonde noblewoman dismiss the magic key as a mere antique. The auctioneer continues to call out rising bids for the mysterious magic key. From her VIP balcony seat, Therese confidently raises her gloved hand to place a bid. A staggering bid of 1,000,000 gellings suddenly flashes across the dark screen. A soft buzz of whispers fills the room as guests gasp at the astronomical bid. The auctioneer officially declares the magical key sold to the astonished Lady Therese Square. Back at the manor under the starry night sky, Therese prepares to begin her plan. A soft sliding sound echoes as Therese opens a hidden wooden drawer in her row. Therese proudly reveals the golden key, explaining it is a highly coveted game Easter egg. Holding the magical key aloft, she playfully asks if anyone is curious about its true purpose. Therese ponders her purchase while standing alone in her secluded, tucked-away chamber. A sudden, powerful crackle of magic sounds as a brilliant beam of light shoots upward. With a bright whoosh, a secret portal swings open, bathing the dark room in light. The radiant light expands, promising to brightly illuminate the secret area ahead. A ground clash of light reveals Therese standing before mounds of glittering gold and treasures. A system message confirms a generous coin donation from a highly pleased Constellation. Therese explains that the key unlocks the hidden slush fund of the former Duke Squire. An excited Constellation sends a supportive message as Therese searches a massive treasure chest. A soft click sounds as Therese happily discovers a beautiful, glowing purple gemstone brooch. A resonant hum sounds as Therese activates a magic circle to sweep up the gold. A gentle snap sounds as Therese decides to store the vast treasure inside her brooch. A system prompt reveals the Constellation's worry about losing the valuable treasure. Therese reassures the chat that the brooch is bound and cannot be stolen. In close-up, Therese confidently reflects that her plans have progressed flawlessly so far. She notes that the key unlocks 2 Easter eggs, the Treasure Vault and Paradise. Therese smiles, relieved that everyone believes the key only unlocks the Treasure Vault. White doves soar through the clear sky, marking the official end of the tutorial. Feathers drift through the breeze, heralding the arrival of a brand new main story tomorrow. Falling feathers frame the Grand Academy as the main game storyline officially begins. Through a glass window, a silver-haired young man sits quietly inside the Academy library. The handsome silver-haired student gazes out with an intense, mesmerizing expression. A horse-drawn carriage clatters toward the central fountain of the Academy grounds. Students admire the elegant carriage as Therese and Libby arrive at the Academy together. Libby warmly expresses her genuine joy at attending the Academy alongside her dear sister. Libby confesses her deep anxiety about her newly discovered magic and sudden Academy enrollment. Therese listens quietly as Libby describes the overwhelming transition of enrolling in Valhalla Academy. Therese contemplates the harsh reality of Libby's plot-mandated enrollment behind her sweet facade. Turning her head, Therese softly calls out Libby's name to get her attention. Therese gestures toward the carriage, offering to let Libby use it for future travels. Therese explains that leaving such a nice carriage completely unused would be a waste. Libby looks completely astonished, touched by her sister's unexpected and thoughtful offer. Libby nervously whispers that she feels everyone around them is staring at them. Therese reassures Libby, explaining that people are naturally drawn to such a beautiful student. A blue system window pops up as a constellation donates coins, loving the sisterly romance. Chibi Libby blushes furiously in embarrassment while Chibi Therese looks on, completely bewildered. Therese offers to guide Libby directly to the main auditorium for the entrance ceremony. A sudden squeal of excitement erupts as students loudly cheer for someone named Damien. Excited female students swoon and cheer, calling out adoration for the handsome senior Damien. Libby inquires about Damien while Therese explains his high status on the student council. Therese devises a plan to confirm her suspicions without having to approach Damien directly. Damien, trying to escape a chasing crowd of girls, walks away quickly. Damien suddenly collides with Libby, catching her as they bump into each other. Narration explains that Damien is a student sponsored by the Squire Scholarship Foundation. Therese walks past in a hurry, her quick footsteps echoing as she moves. Damien and Therese suddenly collide with each other, caught in a flurry of white petals. Damien asks Therese with concern if she is hurt anywhere. Therese internally panics, realizing that Libby was originally the one meant to bump into Damien. System notification announces a coin donation from a constellation pleased with the encounter. Dismissing her worries, Therese commands the system to open Damien's character information. Damien's profile appears, showing his statistics and an affection gauge with a single black heart. A game guide screen illustrates that one heart represents a friendly relationship. The guide explains that reaching 3 hearts indicates a mutual crush. The screen displays that 4 hearts represent deep and genuine love. 5 full red hearts unlock the coveted true ending for Damien's route. The system explains that a black heart marks the dangerous path toward a bad ending. The screen outlines the progressive stages of danger, culminating in outright murderous intent. A sinister red backdrop serves as a stark warning of impending danger. Therese silently laments starting with a black heart, knowing her villainous status makes it expected. Therese wonders if the difficulty is too harsh while constellations watch her next move. Therese resolves not to tank her affection levels further despite Damien's commoner background. Therese puts on a bright, charming smile to put Damien at ease. Damien stares back, his expression softening as he observes her pleasant demeanor. Damien notes her unusually good mood, and Therese cryptically replies she has a reason. Therese gracefully gestures toward her sister to introduce her to Damien. Therese proudly introduces Libby as her long-lost younger sister. Libby and Damien exchange a shy, quiet greeting under Therese's watchful eye. Therese hopes that fostering their connection will help her avoid a future death flag. Damien casts a sharp, sideways glance toward Therese as if sensing something unusual. Therese asks Damien about the ceremony, privately noting his growing suspicion of her behavior. Therese compares Damien's stunned, analytical expression to a developer discovering a game bug. Therese politely requests that Damien guide Libby to the ceremony hall. Damien readily agrees to help, but hesitates as a deeper question arises. Damien asks with sudden, intense suspicion how she knew his destination. Damien repeats his question, demanding to know how she obtained that information. Therese inwardly amuses herself by recalling that she is in fact the game's developer. Therese smoothly deflects his suspicion, smiling as she claims that everyone already knew. Therese's conversation is loudly interrupted by a pink-haired girl calling out her name. A sharp clack of heels echoes as a figure steps forward, drawing everyone's attention. Therese and Libby turn around, startled by the sudden and aggressive arrival. The pink-haired girl, Mimosa Bruni, furiously demands that Therese step away from Damien. Narration notes that despite Valhalla Academy's ideal of equality, social hierarchies still exist. The narration explains that Mimosa is one of the very few who can challenge Therese. Mimosa's royal bloodline and high status in the Bruni ducal house are reviewed. Mimosa stands firm, her gaze filled with intense royal pride. Mimosa physically shoves Therese back, accusing her of having the audacity to flirt with Damien. Damien steps forward in surprise, calling out to Mimosa to stop. With a soft rustle, white-gloved hands are clasped together, diffusing the physical tension. Therese warmly greets Mimosa, politely asking if she enjoyed her school break. Mimosa is left utterly dumbfounded by Therese's unexpectedly polite and calm reaction. Therese continues speaking, subtly issuing a calm but firm warning regarding any potential bullying. Therese warns Mimosa that she can no longer guarantee her safety from this point forward. Mimosa reacts with sheer outrage, asking if Therese is actively threatening her. Therese calmly confirms the threat, asserting it is actually for Mimosa's own benefit. Therese reflects that Mimosa, as the female lead, constantly faces life-threatening danger. Bystanders whisper rumors that the clash ignited because Therese greeted the popular Damien. Therese pauses in surprise as she overhears the ridiculous gossip circulating among the students. Nearby girls whisper that Therese only has eyes for the vice president, Clyde. Hearing the gossip, Therese blushes with intense embarrassment as she walks through the courtyard. The academy boasts rival fan clubs dedicated to the main male leads, Clyde and Damien. As rival presidents of these opposing clubs, Therese and Mimosa are sworn enemies. Therese inwardly cringes, regretting ever writing such an embarrassing fan club rivalry into her game. Therese remains mortified, finding her roles as developer and rival president incredibly awkward. Libby notices her sister's pale complexion and asks if she is feeling all right. Therese tries to direct Libby to Damien, prompting a furious outburst from Mimosa. Mimosa angrily demands to know why Therese is trying to set Libby up with Damien. Therese suddenly spots a red-haired professor walking away and gasps in surprise. A wave of realization hits Therese as she focuses on the distant professor. Mimosa flinches in surprise as Therese suddenly grabs her firmly by the shoulders. Therese cheerfully announces she forgot their scheduled meeting with the professor and grabs Mimosa. Therese bids farewell to Damien as she firmly pulls Mimosa away by the arm. As Therese drags her protesting classmate away, a pleased Constellation donates 1,000 coins. Mimosa yells in frustration, accusing Therese of using brute strength without any sense. The red-haired professor's leather shoes come to a sudden halt on the pavement. Mimosa's angry complaints die down as she suddenly freezes and looks up in silence. Professor Ilya Bernstein turns to face the two girls, calmly asking if something is wrong. Mimosa stammers in surprise, completely taken aback by Professor Ilya's sudden presence. Therese requests a career consultation, and the professor tells her to meet in his office. Flustered, Mimosa quickly announces she has a separate appointment scheduled with her own advisor. The professor calmly acknowledges Mimosa's excuse, permitting her to quickly leave. Mimosa storms away in annoyance, leaving Therese alone with the formidable red-haired professor. Ilya turns away and tells Therese that they should head up to his office. Therese politely agrees while quietly commanding the system to open Ilya's character profile. The system reveals Ilya's profile details in a completely empty 5-heart affection gauge. Compared to Damien's dangerous black heart, Therese finds Ilya's empty gauge remarkably comforting. Therese reminds herself that she must pay special attention to Ilya's affection levels. Professor Ilya opens his office door, inviting her inside as a Constellation sends a donation. Therese inwardly grumbles about the dramatic role-playing name of the newly arrived Constellation. Therese reminds herself that in this world, the term celestials refers to angels. The game lore outlines the existence of distinct races, including powerful gods and celestial angels. After a mysterious incident, the barriers separating the human, demon, and celestial realms collapsed completely. The game lore hints that Ilya is deeply tied to the dimensional collapse under a different name. The red-eyed, demonic figure represents Ilya's true, terrifying identity as the archdemon Ablo. Therese glances at Professor Ilya, fully aware of his dark and ruinous secret. Ilya's ultimate bad ending spells absolute doom, resulting in the complete destruction of the human world. A promotional page displays a lovely illustration of a silver-haired girl with a cheerful smile. Long ago, Ilya reigned as Archangel Elijah, the most powerful ruler of the celestial realm. Tragedy struck Elijah's divine existence when the other angels murdered his beloved twin sibling. Heartbroken and betrayed, Elijah was ultimately cast out and exiled into the dark demon realm. In the depths of exile, the fallen angel corrupted into the great demon named Abla. Back in the present, Professor Ilya stands silently within his quiet, book-filled academy office. Therese reassures herself that everything will be fine as she faces the intimidating professor. The narration explains that Elijah's true goal is the destruction of the celestial realm, requiring him to first overthrow the human realm. Therese reminds herself that the formidable professor currently has no reason to harbor a grudge against her. Professor Ilya addresses Therese by her full name. Standing firmly with crossed arms, Professor Ilya coldly states that he does not like wasting time. Flustered, Therese quickly apologizes and brings up their scheduled career counseling. Therese glances around nervously as she prepares to make her excuse. Therese presents a thick textbook claiming there is a specific part she does not understand. Therese holds the open book, silently justifying that her excuse is not entirely a lie. Ilya steps closer, calmly pointing out that she is holding a second-used textbook. Professor Ilya looks down at her, asking how much of the material she has managed to grasp. Therese is left momentarily speechless, letting out a soft sigh of surprise. Therese nervously points to a section in the textbook, claiming she understands up to that part. Therese explains that elemental magic utilizes the primary properties of fire, water, air, and earth. Therese questions why widely used magic excludes the active application of black and white magic. Therese notes that while lost during the ancient era, they theoretically should still be usable. Professor Ilya stares back at her with a quiet, unreadable expression. Calling her by name, Ilya tells Therese that her chosen topic is quite advanced. Ilya explains the topic is for third years, pointing out the irony since Therese is actually a fourth year. When Ilya asks if she understood the preceding parts, Therese internally despairs about her graduation prospects. Professor Ilya decides to test her knowledge, demanding an explanation of magic manifestation. Therese panics in shock as she realizes she is facing a sudden unexpected oral exam. Therese explains how runes connect to form spell formulas, and Ilya asks if that is all. Therese completes her answer, explaining that infusing mana into the completed formula manifests actual magic. Therese reflects that the manifestation of magic is incredibly similar to the logic of game coding. Ilya asks for her real reason for visiting, confirming Therese's suspicion that he saw through her excuse. Therese honestly admits she ran into trouble earlier and used him as a convenient escape route. Ilya asks with quiet amusement if she truly decided to seek refuge with him. Therese inwardly laments that out of all places she escaped straight into a great demon's lab. Therese gasps in surprise as a sudden prompt catches her off guard. A system notification displays that her affinity with Elijah Bernstein has increased to 1 heart. Professor Ilya stands before her, silently holding 2 massive textbooks in his hands. Ilya hands the heavy books to Therese, instructing her to read them and ask if any questions arise. Ilya claims the heavy reading is her punishment for being rude, even as his affinity gauge floats above. Therese can only utter a soft gasp of surprise as she clutches the giant stack of books. Clack clack goes her heels as Therese dejectedly walks down the quiet academy hallway with her books. Therese wonders why his affinity increased, questioning if she accidentally coded some strange preference into him. A peach-haired student excitedly calls out to Lady Therese, interrupting her deep thoughts in the hallway. A close-up reveals a brilliant sapphire and silver butterfly ornament pinned proudly to her chest. 3 smiling academy students greet Therese warmly, clapping their hands together in excitement. Therese recognizes the silver butterfly ornament as the exclusive emblem of Clyde's future brides club. The girls excitedly gossip about how much they missed her and offer to show off a new portrait card. The pink-haired girl curiously asks Therese if she arrived at school with her younger sister today. The girls praise Libby's outstanding beauty while quickly assuring Therese that she is still far superior. Therese puts on a warm, gracious smile and politely requests that they treat her sister well. Therese notes that as the male lead's fan club, these girls are destined antagonists who torment Libby. Therese resolves to protect Libby using her presidential authority, though she knows Mimosa remains a dangerous wildcard. While contemplating how to disband the fan club, Therese is interrupted when a girl asks about her books. The 2 fan club members gasp in sheer horror upon seeing the daunting stack of textbooks. Therese nervously wishes the girls would just insult her directly rather than questioning her terrifying homework load. The pink-haired classmate smirks, claiming that Therese already knew everything about Clyde's current whereabouts. A bewildered Therese turns around, asking her giggling classmates what exactly she was supposed to know. The girls excitedly gossip, revealing that Clyde Willow is currently inside the academy library. Clutching her heavy books, Therese is completely stunned and quickly protests that she had absolutely no idea. The girls squeal with admiration, mistakenly assuming Therese prepared textbooks in advance just to impress him. Therese asks which library Clyde is in as a constellation expresses deep admiration for her romance plan. A soft creak echoes as the heavy wooden door of the library slowly swings open. Therese steps inside the grand Valhalla library, marveling at its massive size and impressive architecture. Therese looks around in awe, noting that this library holds far more books than her family's estate. A quiet, steady set of footsteps echoes across the carpeted library floor as someone approaches. Therese suddenly freezes, alerting herself to a nearby presence as she turns around to look. Clyde's sharp blue eyes narrow as the Scholar constellation donates 1,000 coins in appreciation. A brilliant blue system notification floats, dramatically declaring that Clyde possesses the face of a genius. Surrounded by a striking frame of white lilies, Clyde Willow stands tall with a quiet, calm expression. Spotting him near the library fountain, Therese internally celebrates finally locating her target. Therese opens his profile but stops in surprise upon seeing his affection level is surprisingly low. Therese panics internally, shocked to discover 2 ominous black hearts on Clyde's love-affection gauge. Therese recalls that the game's critical ending branch point is set for January 31st next year. A nostalgic visual novel screen displays a sealed envelope with roses representing the goal of 5 hearts. Cautiously sliding her hand along the back of a chair, Therese watches Clyde with bated breath. Clyde slowly walks down the quiet study aisle, passing right by the table where Therese sits. Therese dismissed the rumors, realizing that Clyde has a very specific logical reason for staying here. The narration explains that Valhalla Magic Academy operates directly under the control of the Willow Duchy. After Clyde's father tragically died of madness, Duke Willow immediately declared young Clyde as his official heir. Hostile nobles opposed Clyde's inheritance, but graduating from Valhalla would solidify his qualifications beyond any dispute. Consequently, greedy political rivals are eagerly waiting for the perfect opportunity to completely ruin his reputation. Clyde stays in the quiet library to avoid trouble, making any sudden approach highly risky for Therese. Clyde sits in silence, resting his chin on his hand as he stays deeply on guard. Clyde remains completely absorbed in his heavy open book, ignoring all distractions around him. Warm evening sunlight gently filters through the massive arched windows of the quiet, peaceful library. The 2 students sit in tense, quiet proximity, silently reading their respective books at separate tables. After finishing her current reading, Therese tells herself she needs to find the next volume soon. Therese finds the challenging nature of elemental magic highly intriguing, smiling as she plans her next steps. A chilling voice suddenly calls out her full name, shattering the quiet library atmosphere completely. Clyde towers over Therese, mockingly pointing out that she even followed him into the library. Clyde stands directly in front of her, his overwhelming presence casting a heavy shadow over her desk. Therese quickly tries to claim she only wanted to study while secretly worrying about the main romance. Clyde slams his hand onto her book, coldly calling her explanation a ridiculous excuse. Leaning in close with an arc aura, Clyde coldly demands she shut up to spare him nonsense. Sweating nervously, Therese quickly apologizes while inwardly complaining about Clyde's incredibly harsh attitude. Clyde scoffed at her apology, telling her to drop out of the academy if she is truly sorry. Constellation donates coins while asking if dropping out or expulsion would result in a game over. A crimson system screen immediately sounds an alarm, warning that expulsion triggers absolute death. Clyde looks down at her with a chilling, silent stare, waiting to see how she will respond. Mindful of the fatal penalties, Therese firmly promises to completely stay out of his way from now on. Clyde suddenly breaks out into mocking laughter, finding her sudden dramatic declaration highly amusing. Clyde points out the irony of her promise, revealing she applied for a dormitory near his room. Therese freezes in sheer horror as Clyde looks down and calls out her full name. Surrounded by dark rose thorns, Clyde insults her by calling her foolish, reckless, selfish, and incredibly greedy. Therese feigns ignorance, claiming she does not understand his accusations, despite knowing they are entirely accurate. Clyde coldly demands to know why Therese still pursues him despite his clear rejections as a constellation donates coins. Therese silently agrees with his harsh assessment, knowing she has no defense. Dark chains and ominous purple flowers symbolize the tragic fate of death that awaits her. The narrative warns that unrequited love causes her death, forcing her to declare she has no feelings for him. Therese nervously clasps her hands together, finding the complex situation incredibly difficult to explain. The two students stand in the quiet library, the atmosphere filled with unresolved tension. Clyde recalls how Therese's constant, overbearing declarations of love used to feel entirely natural to her. Therese gasps in utter confusion, completely caught off guard by his sudden silence. Reflecting on her role as the creator of this world, she confesses her deep parental affection for the protagonist she designed. Therese dramatically claims her affection for him is an undeniable fated bond. Clyde stares back at her in complete, stunned silence, deeply shaken by her intense declaration. Shattering images of her confession echo in Clyde's mind as he struggles to process her intense feelings. Clyde inwardly recalls how the original Therese always spoke of her love in such dramatic terms. Therese is completely bewildered by why Clyde is taking her words with such grave seriousness. With a sudden passionate shout, Therese firmly declares that she will no longer hold any feelings for him. Therese immediately regrets her dramatic outburst, realizing she completely got carried away in the heat of the moment. Therese suggests that they simply ignore one another's existence to avoid any future complications. Clyde clenches his jaw in frustrated silence, offering no response to her sudden proposal. With a sharp, sudden turn, Clyde walks away from her without uttering a single word. A steady sound of heavy footsteps echoes through the quiet library as Clyde departs. Therese laments how incredibly awkward the atmosphere has become after his abrupt departure without any answer. A blue system screen asks why she couldn't just lie, which Therese flatly rejects. Heavy, ominous footsteps echo outside as a crimson glow begins to tint the library windows. Grabbing his head in sudden sharp pain, Clyde struggles to maintain his composure while walking. Red light and heavy chains of psychological torment close in around Clyde as he gasps for breath. His eye flashing crimson with demonic tension, Clyde demands to know how Therese could change so easily. Clyde bitterly reflects on how her past false confessions made him sick, unlike her current raw honesty. Recognizing the sweet and intoxicating change in her soul, Clyde desperately orders the whispering voices to shut up. The memory of Therese's calm, changed demeanor lingers heavily in his restless thoughts. A chilling dark aura reveals his true nature as a cursed half-demon, trapped between two worlds. Swirling crimson shadows rise around Clyde as he questions the hidden motives behind her sudden transformation. In ominous reflection, mockingly questions if he foolishly still believes himself to be entirely human. A seductive, purple-haired succubus embraces him from behind, reminding him of his demonic heritage. Swirling dark magic pools in his hand as the voice declares that humanity will never accept him. Clyde plunges his hand into a dark, rippling portal of swirling magical energy to suppress his rage. With a sudden splash, a brilliant white light manifests as he retrieves a sacred glowing tassel ornament. Clutching the holy artifact tightly to his chest, the violent crimson energy around Clyde slowly dissipates. Clyde stands alone in the dimly lit hallway, his breathing finally slowing as calm returns. Mocking laughter echoes in the moonlight, teasing him for constantly running away from his true self. Clyde Coley barks a sharp dismissal to the lingering whispers, continuing down the long corridor. The scene shifts to the academy dormitory, a quiet, detached estate nestled quietly under the night sky. Standing inside, Therese marvels at the impressive layout of her new academy living quarters. A soft, slow creak sounds as the heavy door of her bedroom gently swings open. Therese glances around the surprisingly neat room, finding the rumors of its rundown state entirely false. Therese reads a thoughtful note left by Eloise alongside a sandwich, feeling deeply touched. With a heavy thud, she drops her massive pile of textbooks onto the wooden desk. Collapsing onto the soft mattress, an exhausted Therese sighs, wishing the day would finally end peacefully. Her eyes snap wide open as she bolts upright in bed, sensing a sudden disturbance. A low, crackling sound fills the air as a chilling voice interrupts her quiet evening plans. Therese freezes in absolute shock as the dangerous mimosa stands right behind her, smiling menacingly. Oswald questions what Therese has in her hand as she clutches her surprise sandwich. Oswald stares closely, identifying the simple paper bag as containing a sandwich. A fresh vegetable sandwich falls directly onto the floor after being grubbed. Oswald towers over Therese, advising her to eat a proper, hearty meal. Oswald gently points out that skipping meals is the source of her lethargy. Therese looks up, asking if he has activated the promotional ad videos again. Oswald smugly notes that her hard work has brought in numerous interview requests. A dazzling vortex of magical white light suddenly envelops Therese, transporting her. Therese is teleported to a massive banquet table with Oswald sitting at the head. Oswald sits patiently at the lavish dining table and invites her to sit. Therese hesitatingly asks if he actually intends for them to eat together. Oswald explains that their audience would find a boring meal segment unentertaining. Oswald snaps his gloved fingers, activating several glowing blue system notification screens. A flurry of holographic notification windows pops up, startling the young woman. Her eyes covers her ears as a loud system alert displays fans screaming for Oswald. A floating notification window notes how entertaining the broadcast becomes because of Oswald. Another fan notification declares Oswald's face is precious and vows to donate coins. Oswald explains how his simple presence in the broadcast excites the viewing followers. Therese realizes Oswald's obsessive followers are intensely dedicated, even if they lack genuine interest. Oswald leans in close, suggesting she must have realized the truth by now. Oswald politely pulls out a chair, gesturing for Therese to sit down. Oswald asks if she noticed receiving more coins than the allowed sponsors. Therese realizes her massive donation fund of 151,500 coins came from off-screen viewers. Oswald pours wine, admitting that dining during an interview is a suitable compromise. Therese inwardly questions Oswald's high self-importance given his bright pink hair. Oswald explains how explanation documents and guides prepare the followers before the broadcast. Therese listens to Oswald explain that streamers must ration information to keep things fun. Therese understands the viewers only know basic details, not the main plot twists. Oswald asks Therese to explain the details of the situation she encountered today. Therese reveals Professor Ilya is a fallen angel plotting to conquer the world. Violent flames devour a city, representing the threat of a unified demon realm. Therese stands before a burning vision, witnessing the absolute destruction of her world. Oswald ponders if such a powerful demon could easily destroy the human world. Therese explains that game restrictions were implemented to prevent such an instant catastrophe. Straz notes that humans and fish are bound by their respective natural environments. Therese explains Professor Ilya must use a human host body to survive on Earth. Therese reflects on how other lower demons are bound by contracts and limitations. Therese is startled to find Oswald suddenly sitting directly across from her. Oswald wonders if reverse harem games are typically this extreme in nature. Oswald smiles warmly as he sits across the table, watching her closely. A sudden blush warms Therese's face as she meets Oswald's steady gaze. Oswald points out the game's nature, while Therese regrets designing such an extreme world. Oswald smiles, suggesting they move on to the most important question of all. White lilies frame 3 potential love interests she met during her busy day. Oswald clasps his hands, preparing to ask her which candidate she prefers. Oswald leans forward with a charming smirk, asking which man she likes most. Oswald presses further, inquiring which of the male characters fits her ideal type. Therese bluntly responds that none of them appeal to her at all. Oswald falls silent, looking slightly surprised and deeply intrigued by her honest answer. Therese panics, wondering if her blunt dismissal was too careless for a romance broadcast. Therese reflects that among the unintroduced supporting characters, there is one who is exactly her ideal type. She introduces Professor Felix Lockhart, explaining that his laboratory resembles a botanical garden and highlighting his outstanding animal communication skills. She notes that the Emperor character has not made an appearance in the story yet. Oswald points out that the 3 main male characters she met today were all excellent choices. Therese openly admits that she likes all the candidates she met. Clenching her dress tightly, she insists that she is telling the absolute truth this time. Oswald dismisses her answer as cliché, clarifying that he was not asking for her thoughts on fictional content. She silently realizes he is referring to actual events rather than fictional scenarios. She inwardly compares him to a merciless god, recognizing him as far more dangerous than any of the suitors she met earlier. He continues to speak, his calm smile belying a more menacing undertone. She senses that he is already exerting some kind of supernatural influence over her. She laments that all her responses simply sound cliché and unconvincing to Oswald. Deciding to shift the focus, she asks if this is truly his first time hosting a romance broadcast. She resolves to turn the tables on him by pressing him with her own questions. Oswald remains silent, pensively resting his chin on his gloved hand. She points out that she has not seen anything in his broadcast that could actually be classified as romance. He reaches out and gently handles her hair as he begins to speak. Oswald confesses that he initially expected the entire premise of the broadcast to be quite boring. He admits that the experience has turned out to be surprisingly fresh and entertaining. He clarifies that his personal distaste for the romance genre itself has not changed. A soft touch signals as his gloved hand firmly rests upon her shoulder. He leans down and whispers that the only aspect he finds entertaining is her. Oswald smiles charmingly, declaring to Lady Therese that he might actually become her biggest fan. She inwardly accuses him of merely playing along and acting affectionate for the benefit of the audience. He warns her that her audience is not human and requires a much stronger stimulus to remain engaged. A sudden system notification materializes, assigning her a quest to join the student council. The system details the quest's lucrative reward and the annoying penalty for failure. She panics because she recently promised to distance herself from Clyde. She is horrified by the prospect of having to commute to school if she fails. He reminds her that viewers love nothing more than watching a streamer struggle in an unfamiliar world. He tells her that people like her, who must beg for love, are destined to make the show a success. He confidently asserts that her desperate efforts will inevitably drive the broadcast to triumph. Angered, she inwardly seethes at him, questioning if acting like a desperate clown for coins counts as love. She sharply turns and demands to know if he has any concept of what love truly is. Oswald responds with a pleasant, closed-eye smile, asserting that he absolutely does. He defines love as the single thing she desperately desires above all else. He explains that he built this stage to ensure her unrequited past life would finally be corrected. He tells her she is now fully equipped to be loved to her heart's content. Therese remains silent, staring downward as she processes his heavy words. A soft scoff escapes her lips in response to his claims. She realizes he equates audience donations with genuine affection, regretting that she ever asked him about love. The quiet tick-tock of a clock breaks the heavy silence as Oswald stands beside her. Oswald politely announces that they must unfortunately bring their interview to an end. He leans in close to her cheek as if preparing for a formal farewell. She recoils in surprise, turning away to dodge his sudden closeness. Oswald curiously asks if a cheek kiss is an unfamiliar greeting in her culture. She glares downward in silent annoyance, offering no response to his question. He poses another ominous question, addressing her directly by her title. Suddenly, a black-gloved hand firmly grabs her jaw, forcing her to face him. Oswald sternly warns her never to dodge his greeting while she questions why she must submit to his customs. Tears well in Therese's widened eyes, a black-gloved hand tightly grips her jaw. With a soft moi, Oswald plants a firm cheek kiss on a startled Therese. Oswald smiles dismissively, offering a parting wish of good luck as he prepares to send her back. Teleported back to her quiet bedroom, Therese stares blankly at her dropped sandwich. Bending down to clean up the mess, Therese realizes too late that she could have used magic instead. Heavy chains wrap around her portrait, symbolizing the inescapable constraints of her new reality. Kneeling on the floor, she laments that her grueling first day has barely even concluded. As morning light fills the room, her thoughts recall the luxurious life at the Duke's estate. The blonde maid in a green dress complains that the mandated school uniforms are barbaric. Therese defends the simple school uniform, but her maid insists a brooch would look far better. Theresa turns back to her maid in confusion, questioning the mention of a specific brooch. The maid presents a brilliant blue butterfly brooch, noting it signifies the potential brides of Clyde. Recalling her strict domestic setting, Therese firmly orders the maid to put the symbolic brooch away. As the student council quest hovers, she considers Damien, the council's vice president, as a strategic key. She realizes she must take action to satisfy the conditions and complete the council quest. Standing amidst white flowers, Therese recognizes that she must earn the favor of both council leaders. A bright new morning greets the academy as she approaches the towering main school building. Clutching her books tightly, Therese walks across the patterned courtyard toward her destination. Sighing softly, Therese resolves to address the most urgent threat to her survival first. She nervously hopes that skimming the book won't provoke the wrath of the dangerous archdemon. With a sudden thud, Therese accidentally collides face first into a broad chest. The blue-haired student council vice president, Damien, looks down at her with calm yellow eyes. Therese quickly apologizes for her distraction, inwardly noting that she has crossed paths with him again. Damien responds with a gentle, polite smile, taking the blame for the collision himself. She reminds herself of Damien's secret identity as a deadly mage from the Assassin Guild. She laments that his charming duality as student leader and assassin is now a lethal threat. Damien maintains his polite facade, gently asking her if she sustained any injuries. Damien trails off after reassuring her, his sharp golden eye fixed intently on her face. Damien slowly reaches his hand out toward her face, closing the distance between them. Damien's gloved fingers gently brush against a strand of her dark brown hair. A sudden, tense flash of memory disrupts the peaceful atmosphere of their encounter. Oswald's menacing voice echoes in her mind, demanding if he must adjust his manners. Returning to the present, Damien softly brushes a stray leaf away from her head. Damien gazes at her with a serene, caring expression, seemingly devoid of malice. Feeling highly uncomfortable under his gaze, Therese insists he has no need to worry. Footsteps click-clack as Damien casually offers to walk her to the main school building. Damien falls into a silent, pensive mood as they walk side by side. Damien breaks the heavy silence by politely asking if she enjoys drinking coffee. With a slow creak, the wooden door opens to reveal his private office. Damien gestures toward his clean and organized workspace, inviting her inside his office. Therese compliments the tidy room, privately wondering if he intends to brew coffee himself. Damien admits that her kind compliment makes him feel much more at ease. A sudden ding chimes as a system alert announces a donation from the detective constellation. The viewer points out the artificial feel of the room, noting its complete lack of personal warmth. Therese reflects on how rooms reveal secrets as a screen notes the space is built for secrecy. She deduces his gentle demeanor is merely a deceptive shield to hide his assassin identity. She internally labels his extremely polite hospitality as nothing more than obvious hypocrisy. Therese wonders if a shift in his affection level triggered this unexpected encounter. Summoning the status window, she is shocked to see his affection level at 2 hearts. Dumbfounded, Therese realizes he only possessed a single black heart of affection yesterday. She is shocked to see Damien's status window suddenly displaying 2 black hearts of affection. Damien gazes at her, starting to recall a specific event with a mild smile. He politely asks if it is her first time visiting this private office. Therese nervously responds that she does not keep track of her visits there. He silently contemplates whether her past self had simply barged into his office uninvited. A gentle pouring sound fills the room as he questions her response while filling a cup. Damien places the cup down, asking if she attended the assembly to congratulate her sister. She realizes Damien knows her character too well to believe she would celebrate her sister. She senses he is testing her true feelings regarding her successful sister, Libby. She carefully replies that ignoring her sister's top score would not change the reality of it. Soft scraping sound breaks her train of thought as she prepares her next words. Damien notes with a calm expression that her sister appeared somewhat disappointed. She asks him if there could be anything more important than congratulating an honor student. She points out her disastrous grades and expulsion risk, prompting a nervous laugh from Damien. Damien advises her to worry as a senior, but stops as magic suddenly crackles over her cup. A pleasant clinking sound echoes as she uses magic to drop ice cubes into her coffee. A loud slurp breaks the quiet as she enjoys her iced coffee under his bewildered stare. Damien asks with utter bewilderment if she truly prefers to drink her coffee cold. She smilingly defends her preference, claiming that coffee tastes much better cold. The two sit in a comfortable silence, enjoying their drinks across the decorated table. She inwardly notes that Damien is normally highly proficient in the language of high society. Looking closely at his serene expression, she wonders if he just insulted her politely. A sudden chiming sound rings out as a constellation donates 1,000 coins. Soft clink sounds as a notification notes Damien was mocking her breach of etiquette. A quiet slurp sounds while the system praises Damien's impressive high society speech as a commoner. Damien continues to comment on her drinking style, pointing out it is not even trendy. He watches in shock as she casually conjures even more ice into her cup. Another quiet slurp echoes through his private office as she ignores his bewildered expression. She reassures herself that 2 black hearts will not trigger her death route just yet. Drinking quickly with a soft slurp, she resolves to make her escape as fast as possible. She fears that the pink-haired mimosa might suddenly interrupt her quiet meeting with Damien. She realizes that being seen sharing coffee with Damien will make her survival much harder. A sudden, sharp creaking sound echoes as she stands up to make her departure. She thanks him for the coffee and stands up, prompting him to ask if she is already leaving. She excuses herself to study, silently feeling like a cheater for desperately trying to avoid Mimosa. A sudden double knock startles them as Damien offers to walk out with her. Mimosa calls out from the hallway, sending Therese into a spin of absolute panic. The streaming audience goes wild with donations, highly amused by the sudden dramatic tension. She frantically scans the office, desperately searching for a suitable place to hide. She narrows her eyes in intense concentration, realizing she must act instantly. Spotting a potential hiding spot, she points desperately toward the back of the room. A sudden rustling sound accompanies her firm grip on Damien's sleeve. Damien looks at her with wide eyes, completely baffled by her sudden physical grab. She urgently whispers that there is no time to explain as she drags him to hide. Mimosa cheerfully announces from the hallway that she is opening the door. The door clicks open as Mimosa steps in, searching the empty room in confusion. Her heart beats wildly in the dark closet as Mimosa wonders where Damien is gone. Pressing close together, she belatedly realizes that only she actually needed to hide. A sudden chill runs down her spine as Mimosa notices the 2 coffee cups left behind. She dreads the dangerous consequences of being caught while Damien looks down at her quietly. A soft whisper calls out Therese's name, breaking through the heavy silence. Damien holds her close in the darkness, whispering that she will be cut if she moves. The 2 lock eyes in the cramped space, their proximity heightening the tense atmosphere. A pink system notification announces a massive coin donation from a thrilled, romance-loving constellation. The virtual streaming audience erupts into chaotic, excited screaming at the sudden romantic tension. Clutching Damien, she's immensely relieved that only she can hear the loud system donation alerts. Staring ahead, Therese quietly celebrates that her hiding spot has successfully kept her hidden. Mimosa gasps in mild surprise as she inspects the teacup left on the table. Mimosa's eyes widen as she spots lipstick on the cup, realizing Damien was with a girl. While Therese resolves to wipe her lips, Mimosa furiously wonders who dared tempt her innocent Damien. Mimosa vows to hunt down the mysterious girl and have her expelled from the academy. A sudden loud quang echoes as the heavy wooden door slams shut. A quiet, slow creak sounds as the closet door is pushed open. Stepping out of the cramped closet, Therese sighs in relief, confessing how terrified she was. Damien catches her with a sudden, sharp talk as she stumbles, asking if she is unharmed. Holding his hand for support, Therese flusteredly thanks him for catching her in time. Damien points out that a simple closet is a very poor hiding spot. After Damien warns her of being easily caught, she notes his expert assassin instincts. Therese playfully asks where she should hide next time, and Damien holds her hands tightly. Damien asks if she plans to return, leaving her internally questioning when she implied that. Damien turns serious, asking Therese if she has stopped harboring hatred toward him. Therese denies hating him, privately thinking that he has far more reason to hate her. Damien leans in closer, quietly asking what she actually thinks of him. Caught off guard, Therese hesitantly answers that she views him as a friend. Damien questions her definition of friendship, asking why she felt compelled to hide from Mimosa. She explains she wanted to avoid a fuss, sensing he shared her desire to avoid Mimosa. Damien asks if their meetings must remain secret, while Therese worries this goes beyond friendship. Damien's fingers brush her chin as he asks if that is why she wanted hiding spots. Lifting her face, Damien softly expresses his genuine happiness that they are finally on good terms. Damien gently caresses her lower lip while warmly confessing his affection for her. Dumbfounded by his touch, Therese questions his intimate hand gesture and the implication of a kiss. Damien offers a gentle smile, teasingly reminding her that she wants to avoid Mimosa's sight. Therese firmly states she does not permit such intimate physical contact between ordinary friends. She turns away, holding her ground to establish proper boundaries with the vice president. Damien acts surprised, noting that other girls usually seem to welcome his physical affection. She explains that others like him romantically, but reiterates his touch was far too forward. After the chat stream calls her conservative, Therese wonders if Damien's actions were actually normal. Damien apologizes politely, promising to respect her personal boundaries and feelings in the future. Bidding him farewell, Therese reminds him to maintain proper limits to prevent any future misunderstandings. Damien stands in complete silence, watching her departure with a cold, unreadable posture. Removing his glasses, Damien mutters in frustration that he simply cannot figure her out. Stripped of his polite disguise, the assassin's cold, piercing gaze finally reveals his true nature. High society elegance shatters completely as his frustration over her unpredictable behavior peaks. He finds her softened personality incredibly annoying, recognizing that something fundamental has changed about her. Recalling her past foolishness, he realizes she is no longer the clueless girl she used to be. He notes she has grown clumsier just as a sudden, sharp talk sounds at the window. Damien opens the window with a quiet creak while wondering if she was sent by the guild. A white messenger pigeon lands on his hands carrying a secret dispatch from his organization. Damien unrolls a tiny parchment filled with coded runes containing his latest covert assignment. Guild orders him to investigate Libby Squire, sparking suspicion about her alleged slum background. The blonde-haired girl recalls expecting Therese to be arrogant, but finds her to be the complete opposite of a typical noble. She fondly remembers the gentle and warm side of Therese she witnessed on that day. A hand suddenly halts its writing, gripping a decorative feather pen in quiet hesitation. Reports state that House Squire requires surveillance because the younger daughter possesses the rare white magic attribute. The purple-haired man muses that white mages were thought extinct, wondering if Teresa used the girl as bait. Dismissing his doubts, the purple-haired man decides it was a pointless thought since Therese is foolish. He notes that Therese has recently shown more expressions, her once sharp demeanor becoming oddly gentle. The purple-haired man resolves to keep a close eye on the change Teresa himself for Nell. A glitching blue system window reveals that Damien's affection level has successfully increased to 1 heart. The grand, sunlit academy building stands tall, setting the stage for the new day's events. Carrying a heavy book, Therese sighs because she has not finished reading everything yet. Therese pauses in the hallway, her attention caught by various club recruitment flyers on the board. Looking at the bulletin board, Therese notes how fiercely competitive the student recruitment advertisements are. Spotting the student council application notice, Therese decides she will have to submit one as well. Therese reflects on the prestigious reputation of the student council at Valhalla Academy. She considers how the elite council acts as a magical night corps, regularly executing monster extermination missions. Whenever dangerous demons appear, the student council is always the very first force called to action. Despite the high risk of death, Therese acknowledges that elite students continue to apply relentlessly. She notes that membership guarantees success, imperial medals, and lifelong protection from the powerful House Willow. Recognizing House Willow as her family's enemy, Therese realizes none of these rewards are useful to her. Though she wishes to avoid death flags, she decides fighting monsters is preferable to a daily commute. Therese is startled when a voice suddenly calls out her full name from behind. The red-haired professor asks Therese if she is considering applying to the student council. Turning around in shock, Therese nervously stammers out a greeting to her professor. Regretting running into him before finishing her reading assignment, she sheepishly greets the professor. The red-haired professor advises her to read that particular volume only after finishing the first 2. Confining her panic, Therese wonders if he truly expected her to complete all 3 textbooks before class. The red-haired professor asks with surprise if she has already finished the first 2 volumes. Teresa explains that the final volume is highly difficult, earning a coin donation from a watching constellation. She proudly presents a paper bag, declaring that she brought a sandwich to get through it. In a simplified chibi style, Therese offers her sandwich bag to the towering red-haired professor. She apologetically admits that she does not believe she will finish the reading before class begins. The red-haired professor clarifies that he never demanded she finish the readings prior to class. Teresa blinks in confusion, completely caught off guard by his sudden reassurance. Looking at her closely, the red-haired professor gently asks if she has gotten any sleep. Therese admits she slept only a little, wondering if her exhaustion is really that obvious. The red-haired professor falls silent, his green eye narrowing slightly in deep, quiet thought. Standing before the ornate doorway, the red-haired professor calmly invites Therese to step inside. Therese quietly follows the tall red-haired professor as they enter a spacious office together. Remembering something, the red-haired professor suddenly turns around, causing Therese to react in surprise. Sitting on the lavish sofa, Therese anxiously wonders why he summoned her to his office today. She gasps in surprise as she notices the professor beginning to move away from her. The red-haired professor walks silently across the room, leaving Therese sitting on the couch. Unable to contain her confusion any longer, Therese asks why he called her there. But the red-haired professor instructs her to wait there, promising to return before class starts. Left completely alone, Therese panics while a constellation jokes about this being an imprisonment route. Therese firmly tells herself that Professor Ilya would never fall for her unless he lost his mind. Finding the situation bizarre, Therese sits holding her sandwich as constellations monitor her thoughts. She realizes that she shouldn't even be allowed in Ilya's office without a higher affection level. Taking a bite of her sandwich, Therese wonders when she could have possibly made a good impression. Therese guesses that her dedication to her studies might be raising her favorability with Professor Ilya. Reaching for her textbook, Therese decides that gaining some favor from an archdemon is actually beneficial. She opens the book, determined to finish her reading while eating her sandwich. A sudden click echoes through the quiet office as the door begins to open. Steady footsteps approach as someone enters the room, their dark trousers and shoes visible.
Clyde enters the office, stopping in surprise upon discovering a sleeping Therese on the sofa.
Clyde frowns in deep annoyance, displeased to find Therese of all people resting there. Clyde looks down at the student council application form he was tasked to deliver. Standing over the sleeping girl, Clyde wonders if the application form belongs to Therese. Clyde immediately dismisses the idea, believing it is completely impossible for her to apply. He remembers her selfish reputation, knowing the student council faces dangerous monster extermination missions. He reasons that Therese would never risk her life or make sacrifices for others. Clyde watches her with cold, calculating eyes filled with deep suspicion and doubt. Clyde notices a third-year magic textbook lying on the floor beside the sleeping girl. Picking up the book, Clyde questions why she is studying a subject she should have completed. Clyde finds it unbelievable that she is sleeping peacefully after her dramatic love confession yesterday. Looking down at her, Clyde mockingly questions her declaration of being fatefully in love. He dismisses her as a fool infatuated with his facade, unaware of his true nature. Clyde contrasts her cluelessness with Mimosa, who instinctively senses the danger he possesses. He stands in silence, looking away from the sleeping girl in the quiet room. Clyde mentally mockingly asks if someone so demonic could truly love another person. Gripping his fist in disgust, he scoffs as a system window displays his empty affection level. The door shuts with a sharp click, leaving the room behind in quiet stillness. A sleepy hum escapes Therese as she begins to wake up on the couch. Therese bolts upright in shock upon realizing that Professor Ilya is sitting right before her. Panicking, Therese desperately hopes she did not just fall asleep in the professor's office. Sitting comfortably in his armchair, Professor Ilya calmly notes that she has finally awakened. He reaches out and hands her a document stating that it belongs to her. Therese is stunned to see that the paper is a student council application form. Professor Ilya instructs her to fill it out and submit it directly to him. Therese gratefully thanks Professor Ilya while nervously holding the application form. Professor Ilya stands up, telling Therese that they should now head to the lecture hall. With a heavy, deliberate stride, the red-haired professor begins walking out of the room. Therese scrambles on her feet, running quickly to keep pace with him. Therese follows him, internally complaining about how incredibly fast the tall professor walks. She humorously imagines herself as a loyal dog being walked on a leash by its owner. The door creaks open as they arrive at the lecture hall for the class. Therese notes that the class is mostly empty because elemental magic is a non-combat major. She reflects on how highly popular combat majors are since successful mages become celebrated heroes. Therese observes that Ilya's class is treated as a niche because of its extreme difficulty. Despite this, she recognizes that mastering elemental magic allows mages to cast advanced spells incredibly fast. She acknowledges that both Ilya and Clyde serve as living proof of elemental magic's power. Suddenly, steady footsteps echo in the room as a student arrives at the doorway. Clyde apologizes for his tardiness, prompting Therese to instantly recognize his voice in sheer terror. Therese remembers that her character originally joined this difficult class solely to be near Clyde. Clyde scowls deeply as he looks around the room, his expression dark and displeased. With a heavy clank, Clyde suddenly sits down at the desk directly next to Therese. Sweating in sheer panic, Therese internally wonders why he is sitting right next to her. Despite wanting to ignore him, Therese realizes she has no control over this awkward situation. Glancing at him nervously, Therese wonders why his attitude has suddenly changed so drastically. Therese notices a glitching blue system screen, wondering if her affection level has changed. Therese is horrified to discover Clyde's affection meter now shows 3 deadly black hearts. Therese panics over Clyde's 3 black hearts while he sits nearby casting a cold glare. Therese looks away in dejection, overwhelmed by the sudden and dangerous development. The dark atmosphere, heavy with warning signs, signals that 3 black hearts are incredibly dangerous. Therese envisions herself dead in a coffin, realizing a dangerous death route has opened. Therese resolves to reduce Clyde's black hearts to avoid failure and being exiled back home. 3 female classmates slowly peek through the cracked door into the quiet classroom. Chibi Therese feels overwhelmed and suspects the intense atmosphere might have triggered Clyde's hostility. Therese contemplates if disbanding Clyde's fan club would help lower his hostility towards her. Therese worries that dismantling only one fan club will cause either target's resentment to spike. A menacing demonic figure warns that a bad ending increases the likelihood of demon attacks. Therese sighs and decides to focus entirely on the lecture to distract herself. Therese locks eyes with the red-haired professor, sensing his intense gaze on her. Professor Ilya formally begins the lecture, commanding the attention of the quiet room. Therese watches Professor Ilya walk past, questioning if his sharp gaze was directed at her. Writing down notes with her quill helps Therese feel a bit more grounded and comforted. Classroom remains quiet as the difficult lecture continues in a tense atmosphere. Exhausted by the grueling lesson, Chibi Therese collapses completely face first onto her desk. Therese groans in exhaustion, questioning if the professor's relentless teaching pace is actually torture. Clyde stands up to leave, leaving the overwhelmed Therese struggling to gather her thoughts. Therese resolves to completely ignore Clyde to prevent any further rise in his hostility. Therese is startled out of her thoughts when someone loudly calls out her name. The 3 girls approach Therese with bright smiles, sympathetic to her post-lecture exhaustion. Therese laughs politely, inwardly wondering if these students even paid attention to the class. A quiet girl with short purple hair anxiously asks Therese why she is not with Clyde. Therese looks at the quiet girl with curiosity, identifying her as Miss Rumio. Therese recognizes Rumio as a dangerous demon contractor who acts as a ticking time bomb. Rumio expresses her desire to see Therese and Clyde together, unaware of her demon-summoning potential. Therese remains silent, staring at Rumio with a deeply serious and calculating expression. Therese recalls that Romeo will summon a demon if Clyde stays too distant from her. The terrifying condition remains a constant threat as any distance between them triggers demon summoning. Inwardly cursing her development team's ridiculous design, Therese tries to change the subject. Clyde coldly demands Therese step aside, prompting a chorus of squeals from nearby fans. The three fangirls swoon dramatically at the sight of Clyde, squealing his name in adoration. While the fangirls shower Clyde with compliments, he and Therese are mutually annoyed. As the president of the club, Therese finds their dramatic display deeply embarrassing. Therese quickly makes an excuse about a due assignment to flee the awkward situation. Clyde narrows his eyes, watching Therese leave with a suspicious and intense glare. Standing amongst his adoring fans, Clyde continues to stare coldly in Therese's direction. A watching constellation donates coins while Therese walks away, dismissive of the ridiculous drama. A bright pink message window reveals a constellation enthusiastically supporting a romantic match. Chibi Therese deadpans, completely ignoring the crazy constellation's unsolicited romantic shipping. A system window notes the constellation's curiosity as Therese slips inside a quiet room. Therese seeks refuge in the Grand Library, a safe haven where Clyde never goes. Therese freezes in shock as she spots someone unexpected in the quiet library. Therese recognizes Mimosa standing in the distance, locked in a heated argument with a classmate. The pink-haired girl fiercely accuses Mimosa of sneaking into Damien's laboratory earlier that morning. Furious scream echoes through the library as the accuser rejects Mimosa's denial. The accuser presents a stained teacup, pointing out that the lipstick match exposes Mimosa's lie. Mimosa points out that the lipstick found on the teacup matches Libby's limited edition shade. Libby defensively argues that owning a limited edition makeup item is not unique to her. Therese worries that Libby's lipstick choice has triggered Mimosa's suspicion, wishing she could discard hers. A sudden clack echoes as Therese steps forward to address the lipstick accusation. Standing amidst white lilies, Therese confidently intercedes, revealing she also owns the rare rouge. Libby smiles in immense relief while Mimosa glares at Therese in bitter frustration. Mimosa accuses Therese of defending Libby, suddenly suspecting they have orchestrated a larger plot. Mimosa loudly accuses Therese of intentionally sending Libby to approach Damien in his laboratory. Therese mentally dismisses the absurd accusation, knowing her character was never that clever. Therese tries to leave, but a high-stakes quest forces her to obtain Mimosa's apology. Stunned by the severe penalty of the quest, Therese halts to reconsider her options. The system warning highlights that failing to get an apology results in immediate expulsion. Mimosa flinches in surprise as Therese suddenly turns back to address her directly. Therese boldly challenges Mimosa's habit of making false accusations, prompting a furious scream. Onlookers whisper about faction disputes, wondering if the new representative is being bullied. Therese realizes she must quickly resolve this argument before other factions gather and escalate. Therese proposes a bet, challenging Mimosa to swear her claims on her honor. Blinded by anger, Mimosa fiercely accepts the wager, staking everything on her accusations. Therese sets the stakes, demanding a formal public apology posted on the bulletin board. Mimosa is taken aback, demanding to know what kind of bet Therese is proposing. Therese mockingly suggests that Mimosa lacks the confidence to stand by her words. Stepping closer, Therese demands an immediate apology, baiting Mimosa into angrily accepting the challenge. Therese secretly smiles, highly pleased that Mimosa has fallen perfectly into her psychological trap. An amused constellation donates 1,000 coins, praising Therese's calculated gambling strategy. A second coin donation arrives from another supportive spectator, celebrating her clever counterattack. Therese is thrilled by the sudden financial windfall from her highly entertained audience. Mimosa's expression freezes in sudden panic as Therese prepares to dismantle her argument. Mimosa desperately demands to know why Libby would have visited Damien's laboratory today. Therese begins her interrogation, calmly asking Mimosa when she found the stained coffee cup. Mimosa replies that she discovered the cup around 9:30 this morning. Therese asks Libby to state her arrival time, which was around 10 o'clock. Therese notes that 10 o'clock is indeed Libby's designated arrival time for school. The watching constellations cheer and applaud in excitement as the truth is revealed. Onlookers point out the timing discrepancy, noting carriage records can easily verify Libby's alibi. Therese mockingly suggests they go check the carriage records together to settle the matter. Realizing she has lost the bet, Mimosa trembles in horror at her complete defeat. Mimosa formally apologizes to Libby, promising to post her written apology on the board. The system confirms the quest is complete, rewarding her with a shift in faction influence. Chibi-Therese deadpans, finding the newly revealed faction rewards to be rather pathetic. Mimosa pivots her questioning, asking Therese why she was in the lab with Damien. Therese calmly explains that Damien was honored as the vice president of the student council. A flashback shows Therese meeting Damien, explaining her role on the Scholarship Foundation's board. Therese challenges Mimosa's motives, calling out her constant attempts to drag Damien down. Therese prepares to trigger a crucial in-game event by officially appointing Damien West. Therese stands poised and elegant, ready for the upcoming scripted event to unfold. A system screen notes that this event normally triggers with Damien's red hearts. A flashback reveals that Teresa's interference prevented Damien from becoming his family's official guard. Mimosa bitterly thinks that no noble has the right to interfere with guard appointments. Hand in hand, Teresa and Libby happily depart from the library, leaving the drama behind. The scene transitions to the quiet night over the Grand Academy dormitory building. Holding a lit candle, Therese looks startled as she wonders who could be visiting her at this late hour. Looking out, Therese notes that visiting the girls' dormitory at night strictly violates the Academy's rules. Surrounded by glowing flowers, a smiling Damien stands before her in his school uniform. Damien playfully claims he snuck in without getting caught, while Therese dryly notes his assassin instincts made that easy. Damien asks her to confirm if the rumors about choosing him as her guard are true. Therese confirms the rumor and suggests formalizing their contract right away. A gold-framed narrative box explains the high-status implications of a commoner serving a noble family. Accompanied by a portrait of Damien with a rapier, the text details how this position grants him semi-noble status. Under the windy night sky, Damien gazes intensely down at Therese. Smiling, Damien formally accepts her offer, prompting a constellation to donate coins and tease them. Surprised but pleased, Therese tells him she will immediately notify her family of his appointment. With a soft thud, Damien drops down on one knee to perform a formal greeting. A soft kissing sound echoes as Damien presses his lips to the back of her hand. Blushing and flustered, Therese protests that such gestures are inappropriate before his official appointment. Looking up with a sweet, innocent gaze, Damien asks if he did something wrong. Damien tilts his head, innocently questioning if this isn't the correct way to pledge loyalty. Flustered, Therese internally questions how a professional assassin can manage such a pure and innocent smile. With a smooth movement, Damien stands back up to bid her farewell. Damien softly wishes Therese a good night as he prepares to leave. As Damien walks away, Therese wonders if the warmth she feels is from his smile or the candle. A cheerful chime sounds as a constellation donates coins to show support. A system alert encourages her to check Damien's favorability, hinting at a rapid increase. Sensing a shift in his attitude, Therese decides to check his favorability status right away. Teresa gasps in shock as she views the newly updated favorability system screen. She is stunned to see a red heart on the display, wondering when it changed. Therese recalls that the heart was black not long ago, bewildered by the incredibly rapid change. She reflects on the reality of this world, acknowledging that the characters possess genuine human feelings. Surrounded by glowing butterflies, Therese resolves to clear the game without becoming emotionally attached to anyone. Morning light filters through the green leaves as a new day begins at the academy. The scene shifts to the Grand Academy building where Therese presents her assignment to her professor. Through the tall windows, the burgundy-haired professor sits at his desk and asks Therese if she has any questions. Therese happily explains that she researched her questions in the library's magic reference books. The professor hums thoughtfully while holding her assignment notebook. A sudden clatter sounds as the professor stands up, giving Therese an ominous premonition of what is coming. With a quick rustle, he slides a thick book from the library shelf. The burgundy-haired professor hands her a new heavy book to study next. Therese reluctantly accepts the book, replying that she understands the task. In chibi form, Therese mentally despairs at the prospect of being forced to read a new book every single time. While she enjoys studying magic, Therese finds the constant, intense reading sessions highly burdensome. A quiet footstep sounds as he steps closer to her. Standing close to her, the professor firmly warns her not to stay up all night studying. Therese is caught off guard, wondering if he remembers the previous time she stayed up late. She observes his cold, indifferent expression, yet senses a hidden warmth beneath his words. Smiling gently, Therese politely complies with his instructions. The professor turns away slightly as the room falls into a quiet, brief silence. Left with her thoughts, Therese remains standing there, feeling flustered by his advice. She raises her hand to touch her lips, wondering if she was actually smiling. She hesitantly wonders out loud if her smile is because she feels happy. The professor overhears her and asks what makes her happy, making her worry he is trying to trap her. Caught off guard, Therese struggles to find a proper explanation in front of him. The brown-haired girl warmly explains she is happy because he cared about her well-being. The burgundy-haired professor frowns slightly, visibly affected by her heartfelt words. Flustered by her own bold declaration, the brown-haired girl finds the situation incredibly embarrassing. The professor calmly informs her that he has already submitted her student council application. Sitting alone on a garden bench, she wonders why she has not received any response. Restlessly pondering the delay, she worries someone might be actively blocking her entry. Resolved to find answers, she decides to go directly to the student council room. A sharp creaking sound echoes as she cautiously steps inside the quiet office. She peers into the room, surprised to find the space seemingly deserted. A silver-haired boy suddenly appears, mocking the casual visitors entering the student council office. Suppressing her irritation, she reminds herself she created this incredibly insolent character. Smiling politely, she explains she came in person after waiting a week for updates. The silver-haired boy reaches out, mockingly questioning the document sitting on the desk. Holding her application aloft, he sneers that her timing could not be more perfect. Using fire magic, he smugly burns her application, claiming her results are now decided. She gasps in sheer shock as she watches him incinerate her important form. Refusing to back down, she begins chanting a summoning spell to retrieve her document. Surrounded by bright magic circles, she successfully calls the paper back to her. The silver-haired boy stares in disbelief, shocked she broke his demonic magic. Determined, she focuses on completing the complex magical rune faster than him. Glowing butterflies swirl as she successfully completes the perfect rune ahead of him. She stands triumphantly in the quiet room, holding her fully restored application form. The silver-haired boy looks utterly dumbfounded by her sudden, impressive display of magic.
With a confident look, she proudly announces her successful retrieval of the document.
She celebrates her victory in a playful, glowing frame under falling confetti. A bright chime sounds as a constellation laughs, thoroughly enjoying her mocking of Clyde. Clyde grits his teeth in frustration, causing her to nervously flinch back. Stepping uncomfortably close, he angrily questions if she has lost her mind. He aggressively demands to know if she believes he cannot easily take the paper back. Shadowed by thorns, he reiterates his threat to seize the document from her. She coolly retorts that joining the student council does not mean they will be together. He scowls, suggesting her presence might encourage more volunteers for dangerous monster hunts. She silently recalls that Libby was originally meant to join as a student role model. A sudden, sharp clapping sound echoes through the tense atmosphere of the room. An elderly, white-haired gentleman steps forward, praising her impressive performance. She is startled to recognize the man as Clyde's grandfather, the Academy's chairman. A beautiful gold-framed prompt explains that the prestigious elder sees her in a new light. A formal status display introduces the distinguished noble as Duke Noel Willow. She politely bows and formalizes her greeting to the prestigious Academy chairman. The chairman gazes at her warmly while she breaks into a nervous sweat. She anxiously wonders how long the ghost-like chairman has been watching them. She recalls studying late into the night with the magic books the professor recommended. A system window announces her intelligence has successfully increased to grade B. Clyde looks on in frustration as the chairman begins to assert his authority. The chairman speaks directly to her, overriding Clyde's objections regarding her enrollment. A pleasant chime sounds as the system confirms her successful student council enrollment. Clyde angrily protests the chairman's sudden decision to admit her. The chairman calmly rebukes Clyde's temper, officially approving her admission anyway. She bows respectfully, pledging never to tarnish the student council's reputation. She happily converses with the smiling chairman while a defeated Clyde fumes behind them. The chairman bids them farewell, advising the two students to get along well with each other. A soft click echoes through the quiet room as the heavy office door shuts behind him. Leaning in closely, Clyde mockingly ridicules her intelligence and questions whether she is even human. Sweat-dropping, Therese mentally laments her role as the game's developer, realizing she programmed his insufferable personality. Clyde continues to belittle her, asking if she truly believes the chairman's polite behavior was genuine. A constellation donates coins to support her, while a narrative box notes the deep enmity between their families. A shadowed projection reveals that the chairman only permitted her enrollment to exploit her family status. Unbothered by his harsh warnings, Therese responds with a sly, knowing smirk. Clyde stares at her in sheer confusion, utterly baffled by her unexpected amusement. Therese maintains a calm face, though a tiny drop of sweat betrays her internal nervousness. Therese mentally panics after realizing she mocked him, prompting a supportive constellation to donate coins. A system window overflows with hysterical laughter from the highly entertained constellations. Clyde demands to know what she meant, warning her not to get arrogant over a single success. Glaring down with a hostile gaze, Clyde sneeringly questions if she believes she is someone important. Therese quickly backs down, politely denying any such high and mighty thoughts. Clyde dismisses her and announces he is leaving for his next lecture. Therese politely calls out to him, suggesting they try to cooperate from now on. She watches Clyde walk away, calling out his name as he ignores her. The scene shifts to the main hallway where students gather and begin to gossip. Therese walks through the corridor, noticing the uncomfortable murmurs and stares from nearby classmates. A dark, menacing aura looms behind her as Clyde closely shadows her movements. Whispering students question why Clyde is tailing her when she was used to following him. Damien approaches her in the crowded hallway as she carries her paper. Therese hastens her steps, anxiously realizing that her classmates are about to catch up to her. With a sudden thud, Therese accidentally bumps straight into someone's solid chest. Losing her balance, she begins to fall backward in slow motion. Both Clyde and Damien quickly reach out, catching her before she hits the floor. A pink system window announces a generous donation from a constellation thrilled by the romance. Constellation's screen screams in absolute excitement over the sudden dramatic moment. Multiple pink alerts announce the constellations cheering for the male leads and demanding a kiss. Flustered, Therese looks up at them and awkwardly apologizes for not watching her step. Damien smiles warmly, pleasantly noting that this is already their third accidental run-in. Surrounded by glowing lilies, a system box displays Damien's gentle reassurance that her safety is all that matters. Damien radiates a dazzlingly handsome charm, making the atmosphere around them sparkle. Clyde bluntly interrupts the sweet moment, dryly commanding her to stand on her own 2 feet. Therese flinches in surprise at his sudden harsh intervention. Finding her footing, Therese politely thanks Clyde for helping her maintain her balance. Clyde smugly refutes her, claiming he only blocked her path to keep her from being an obstacle. Therese internally grumbles about his massive ego but decides to keep her thoughts to herself. With a polite but flat expression, Therese offers a simple apology to ease the tension. Damien shifts the subject, curiously asking if she has successfully joined the student council. With a swift motion, Clyde suddenly snatches her restored application form directly from her hand. Clyde coldly reminds her that she still must submit the physical document despite the chairman's approval. Damien stands close to her, watching Clyde walk away with her paperwork. Therese dryly agrees, noting that joining a life-threatening club is hardly a cause for celebration. With a polite wave, Therese bids Damien farewell and heads off to her upcoming class. Damien watches her leave, quietly murmuring about her sudden enrollment in the student council. Damien cracks a dark, enigmatic smile as he watches her walk away through the doorway. With a dull thud, Therese pauses as she wonders if she heard him make an ominous remark. Looking back with deep concern, she anxiously tries to decipher the true meaning behind his words. An announcement echoing through the bright classroom window marks the start of Transformation Magic class. Therese is instructed to receive her practice materials as she sits lost in deep thought. Therese warily recalls Damien's ominous comment, questioning his hidden motives as she watches him. The red-haired professor instructs the class to transform their flowers into butterflies for extra points. She places her hand near the delicate blue forget-me-not flower resting on her desk. A sudden pop sounds as a classmate's spell backfires, while Therese holds her flower steadily. An alarmed student frantically calls out to the professor after a magic attempt goes awry. Therese contemplates Damien's true feelings, sensing he was annoyed rather than pleased by her joining. The professor warns that unfocused magic yields no results as a student's plant runs wild. The red-haired professor watches the students with a quiet, observant expression on his face. Glowing blue butterflies gracefully flutter all around Therese, filling the bright classroom with magic. Gazing at the blue butterfly resting on her finger, she quietly admits the task is difficult. The red-haired professor approaches her desk, observing her perfectly conjured butterfly with quiet interest. She claims she succeeded in one try, though internally she is baffled by her effortless success. The red-haired professor stares at her in silent disbelief, clearly stunned by her hidden magical talent. She realizes magic requires materializing vivid images, without which even abundant power is completely useless. Her classmates whisper in disbelief, recalling that she used to be the worst at transformation magic. A hand gently reaches out toward the glowing blue butterfly hovering in the air. The red-haired professor carefully holds her magical butterfly, examining her perfect creation with a solemn gaze. She recalls another instructor praising her well-made potion while comparing it to the failures of others. A graceful dance instructor praises her flawless performance, calling her the flower of the ballroom. She flatters the professor while an entertained constellation donates coins to support her clever modesty. Therese looks back on her actions, wondering how she managed to perform so flawlessly without trying. She walks down the hallway, reflecting on her sudden and uncharacteristic ability to flatter others. A dark, ominous shadow of Damien looms behind her as she walks through the quiet corridor. A heavy wooden door creaks open slowly, revealing a quiet room inside. She seeks refuge in the first-floor library, finding comfort in its private and quiet reading rooms. Therese stands alone in the dimly lit library, preparing to study the heavy book before her. With a soft sigh, Therese sinks into her chair to rest from her exhausting day. Though her classes went well, she feels strangely suffocated and overwhelmed by a sudden heaviness. Damien suddenly appears, warning her that hiding in this library makes her easy to find. Rubbing her tired eyes, Therese weakly acknowledges his sudden and unexpected presence in the library. She panics, realizing her memory that Damien avoids the first-floor library might actually be incorrect. Surrounded by spider lilies, she dreads that another developer altered the settings without her knowledge. She grimly realizes that her own interference might have completely derailed the game's original storyline. Struggling to stand, she is filled with dread that no place is safe for her anymore. She desperately questions how she managed to increase the favorability of the 3 male leads. She despairs over her foolishness, realizing she must act quickly before losing everyone's affection. Gasping for breath, her weak body collapses as she desperately wishes to escape this suffocating place. Mysterious hand, clad in a black glove, gently reaches down toward her trembling form. A quiet, commanding voice instructs her to calm down and take things slowly. A stunning pink-haired man in a red suit catches her, gently covering her eyes from behind. He softly commands her to breathe slowly, whispering that he has stopped time for her. With her eyes covered, she weeps as the pink-haired man warns her not to break yet. Feeling his warm, gentle touch on her face, she wonders if she is finally safe. The pink-haired man gently cradles her limp, exhausted body against his chest in the quiet room. The handsome pink-haired man looks down with a solemn, piercing gaze as he holds her close. A sudden step echoing nearby reveals someone wearing a white traditional shoe approaching them. A man in a blue Korean hanbok suddenly appears, curiously asking about the unconscious girl. The pink-haired man tightens his protective grip around her, shielding her from the newcomer's gaze. Oswald holds the unconscious Therese and confirms to Jang that his assumption is correct. A quick rustle sounds as Jang prepares a stethoscope to examine her unconscious body. Jang diagnoses her condition, confirming that she is suffering from possession syndrome. Oswald asks if she is badly broken, and Jang reassures him that she remains in good condition. Oswald expresses mild disappointment that her stopping time reduced the excitement of the live broadcast. Oswald reflects on how most other possession subjects eventually succumbed to the possession syndrome and died. System messages highlight Therese as an incredibly unique and valuable subject who constantly breaks new records. Oswald warmly embraces Therese, vowing that he will never let her become a failure. The narrator observes that her physical body has undergone an unusually dramatic change due to her soul's influence. Oswald tells Jang that this is precisely why he has such high expectations for her. Oswald expresses his desire for more entertainment from the possession subjects. The narrator grimly notes that if even Oswald is satisfied, the broadcast must be extremely brutal. Jang looks closely at the unconscious girl, noticing something unusual about her eyes. Jang wonders if her eyes are glowing with some hidden strength or determination. With a sudden whoosh, Oswald instantly blocks Jang's hand from touching her face. Oswald coldly warns Jang that touching her violates their professional ethical boundaries. Jang quickly apologizes, reminding Oswald that she is merely a human toy for their entertainment. Jang silently questions if he was temporarily spellbound by the unconscious girl. Jang warily reminds himself of Oswald's terrifying power and ability to escape punishment using coins. A bright flash erupts as system notifications announce that her soul's distortion has been completely resolved. Oswald gazes down at Therese with a quiet, thoughtful expression as she rests. Jang informs Oswald that he has successfully transferred the required coins for the transaction. Jang politely takes his leave while internally grumbling about Oswald's increasingly terrible personality. A soft step echoes through the quiet digital space as Jang walks away. Oswald stands on a floating platform in the starry void, cradling her in his arms. With a sudden thud, Oswald steps forward, worrying that other dangerous entities are already gathering around her. Oswald notes that her genuine connection with the constellations makes her starlight exceptionally pure and bright. Oswald admits that her beautiful, pure appearance makes him want to completely corrupt and ruin her. He softly mumbles that it is no wonder Jang was so easily shaken by her. Oswald gently brushes his gloved hand against her cheek, humming to himself in contemplation. Her hair slips smoothly through his fingers as he looks down at her. A soft pat sounds as Oswald holds her close amid blooming white lilies. Oswald stares intently with a silent, heavy expression as time remains completely frozen. A quick static buzz sounds as Oswald looks at his golden pocket watch, noting it is time to leave. Oswald decides to stay for one more minute, promising to see her awake next time. The scene transitions to a bright, sunny blue sky filled with soft white clouds. The scene shifts to the grand exterior of the Squire Family Academy under the morning sun. A soft thud sounds as a sealed letter lands on the wooden desk in the office. The brown-haired Duke notes that Therese apparently intends to appoint Damien West as her guardian mage. The silver-haired butler confirms the appointment, praising her selection as an excellent choice. Butler explains that Damien is a prominent and highly respected mage within the Squire Foundation. The Duke worries that Damien's commoner background might complicate his relationship with Therese. The silver-haired butler reports that Therese has unexpectedly joined the student council. The Duke reacts with shock and anger, demanding to know if Clyde influenced her decision. A narrative window explains that the student council operates under the authority of the Willow faction. The narrative details that the student council is a group dedicated to hunting dangerous monsters and demons. The butler worries that her joining might make the Willow faction appear superior to the Squire family. The Duke lets out a heavy sigh, doubting she thought that far ahead, and asks for the rest of the report. The butler states that there is another request regarding a message from her personal maid. The butler explains that Therese's school uniform is currently in need of immediate mending. Narration notes that Therese is so focused on her magic books lately that she ignores her favorite snacks. Rumors circulate that she has lost a significant amount of weight due to her intense studying. The brown-haired Duke murmurs her name, his expression filled with quiet worry and contemplation. A sudden polite knock sounds at the door, breaking the silence of his spacious private study. Libby, the cheerful blonde girl, opens the door to announce her safe return home to her father. The Duke asks about her school day, and Libby happily assures him that she had a wonderful time. His brow furrows with concern as he asks her if her sister appeared to be doing well. Libby silently wonders when her sister will finally come to her senses and distance herself from Clyde. She admits to her father that she does not know her sister very well just yet. Clasping her hands together, the blonde girl earnestly defends the mysterious man as a good person. The Duke is deeply moved, realizing his blonde daughter is firmly defending her sister's controversial reputation. The brown-haired Duke secretly finds a strange sense of satisfaction in his daughter's fierce loyalty. He gently yields to her determination, prepared to accept her feelings on the matter. The door bursts open as the dark-haired boy angrily calls the man a terrible, unforgivable person. Libby turns to him with a questioning gaze, asking if she said something incorrect. The dark-haired boy fiercely insists that she is being completely deceived by the man's lies. Raising his voice, the brown-haired Duke sternly orders both of his children to stop arguing immediately. He coldly warns the dark-haired boy that further reckless behavior will not be tolerated anymore. The sound of rapid footsteps echoes through the room as Joseph turns and walks away in anger. Libby calls out after him, her green eyes wide with distress as he storms out. A soft click sounds as the Duke opens his drawer, reflecting on their rare sibling argument. The silver-haired butler notes how unusual it is for the close siblings to fight over Therese. Striking a match, the Duke instructs his butler to prepare the family's donation fund immediately. Inhaling his cigar, the Duke quietly announces his decision to pay a visit to Valhalla Academy. The silver-haired butler questions if such a personal visit to the academy is truly necessary. The Duke reflects on how the Emperor uses family disputes to exert constant political pressure on them. He considers that pretending to maintain family harmony might temporarily ease the Emperor's scrutiny. He hopes this peace offering will make the upcoming social season easier for his children. Clyde stands in the bright courtyard, towering over Therese as they cross paths under the sun. The narration explains that social clubs hold welcoming parties, including Clyde's exclusive fan club. Therese is deeply annoyed, dreading her sudden run-in with the most exasperating person in the academy. Deciding to avoid any unnecessary conflict, she swiftly turns her back to walk away from him. Footsteps click as she contemplates moving out of the dormitory to completely avoid these constant encounters. She considers using her vast fortune to buy a nearby mansion for a more peaceful commute. In a cute chibi style, Therese attempts to walk past him as fast as possible. Clyde glances back over his shoulder, watching her quick and determined departure with quiet interest. Clyde wonders if she purposefully ignored him, while a constellation donates coins to support her. A blue system window appears, mocking Clyde's behavior as incredibly childish and amusing. Therese grows increasingly irritated, determined not to back down or lose this petty walking race. The scene transitions back to the majestic spires of the academy framed by green summer leaves. A system notification declares her defeat as she slumps over, utterly exhausted from the race. She laments her inability to match his natural speed, earning another generous donation from a constellation. With a gentle creak, the door opens to reveal several elegant female students waiting inside. Stepping inside, Therese politely compliments the beautifully decorated clubroom to her fellow classmates. Girls discuss how Clyde's massive donation secured them the finest room in the academy. A sweet blonde girl smiles warmly, celebrating the historic nature of their special club gathering today. Joyful applause erupts as the students form a welcoming circle around the newly arrived Therese. Though she maintains a polite smile, Therese internally screams that she desperately wants to escape. She notices that Romeo is absent once again, reminding her of his constant health struggles. Relieved by his absence, she prepares to confidently announce the club's exciting upcoming activities. The gray-haired girl firmly reminds her blonde classmate of their obligation to set an example. Teresa suggests they preserve their reputation on campus by strictly avoiding any inappropriate actions. Teresa stands surrounded by white lilies, her expression suddenly filled with mild surprise. The club members gasp in sheer disbelief upon realizing they must stop following Clyde around. While one student laments the sudden restriction, Teresa firmly maintains that it is a necessary rule. The group of 5 girls continues their earnest conversation together in the spacious hallway. A blue system window pops up to announce a generous coin donation from a saint. Teresa finishes her speech while the surrounding noble ladies prepare to voice their own thoughts. The TB blonde girl excitedly asks Teresa if she knows what special item she brought. A hand proudly lifts a sparkling bottle of premium liquor with an elegant gold label. The girls brag about the rare vintage champagne and valuable family liquor they brought along. Looking at the valuable drinks, Chibi Teresa sweat drops and labels them a gathering of dutiful daughters. As her classmate pours a glass of red wine, Teresa protests that she cannot drink. The blonde girl dismisses her protests as a joke, but Teresa insists she is serious. Teresa silently wonders to herself why the sweet aroma of the poured wine smells so enticing. A delicate hand holds a wine glass as the rich red liquor swirls elegantly inside. A soft gulp sounds as Teresa gives in to the sweet aroma and drinks the wine. Teresa gazes at her empty glass, her face turning a soft pink from the alcohol. Her classmates cheer and encourage her to keep drinking as the lively party continues. Teresa slumps completely drunk on the sofa as a servant arrives to pick her up. The brown-haired Duke holds Libby close, gently noting how much his children worry him. After a soft hiccup, the butler asks the flushed, newly awakened Teresa if she needs an escort. Teresa insists she can walk alone, but her helper worries about how intoxicated she is. A soft clack sounds as Teresa tries to walk away while repeating her reassurances. The brown-haired Duke in his green coat stands before her, calling her name sternly. Teresa looks up in utter shock, stunned by his sudden appearance. Teresa quietly questions if the man standing before her is truly her father. Whispering voices fill the background as Teresa and her father stand in the quiet room. The Duke stares down at her with a deeply serious and intense expression. A stark black bubble appears as the Duke coldly commands Teresa to follow him. A steady stomp sounds as Duke Raoul walks through the moonlit courtyard with Teresa behind. Teresa silently questions why Duke Raoul has suddenly shown up at Valhalla Academy. She remembers that Duke Raoul would never normally enter hostile territory due to the novel setting. Teresa wonders if his unexpected arrival is merely a strange setting error in the system. Despite her confusion, Teresa lets out a soft, sweet smile under the starry sky. Duke Raoul glances back over his shoulder to observe his quiet, smiling daughter. Duke Raoul asks what she is laughing about, causing Teresa to look up in surprise. Teresa softly asks the Duke if he is truly acting as her father right now. She remembers how Duke Raoul lovingly raised her as his own daughter despite her being adopted. A gentle squeeze is shared as Duke Raoul reaches down and firmly takes her hand. Teresa timidly asks if she can hold his hand as they walk back together. Teresa feels a surge of happiness, noting she had always wanted this simple moment. Duke Raoul remains completely silent, staring ahead with a solemn, unreadable expression. A swift slide sounds as Duke Raoul suddenly pulls his hand away from hers. Teresa looks down with a saddened expression, assuming holding hands was too difficult for him. Duke Raoul remarks that walking slowly will make their journey to the dormitory take too long. Duke Raoul crouches down and instructs his shocked daughter to hop onto his back. Teresa's face lights up with absolute joy and flushed embarrassment at his unexpected offer. Clinging tightly to his back, Teresa happily reveals that a piggyback ride was her secret wish. Under the star-filled sky, Raoul carries Teresa as she asks if she is too heavy. Resting her head on Raoul's shoulder, Teresa drifts off to sleep as he carries her. Duke Raoul carries his sleeping daughter on his back, silently reflecting that she is just like her father. Glancing back at her, Raoul dismisses her comparison, claiming he was nothing like her when he was young. Noticing his voice sounds softer, Teresa leans in and asks her father if he already knew something. Reflecting on her past, Teresa remembers always envying other children whose parents came to pick them up. She warmly recalls her joy when her father unexpectedly came to the academy to pick her up. Clinging to his back, she admits that today she finally feels a little less pitiful. A steady stomp echoes through the courtyard as Raoul walks silently under the glowing gas lamps. A cascade of system notifications alerts that a massive coin donation has upgraded her channel rank to gold. Teresa wakes up in her grand bed holding her forehead, immediately regretting drinking so much soju. The constant influx of 10,000 coin donations only adds to her overwhelming morning dizziness. Staring at the system window in disbelief, she wonders why viewers are suddenly donating 10,000 coins. She raises her hand as a system window confirms her channel has broken another record, reaching gold rank. Teresa gasped in shock, realizing her channel's growth is rapidly spiraling out of control. Her stream settings reveal she has reached gold rank, 99th place, and over 1 million coins. Viewers continue to leave funny comments and donations, calling her stream brighter than their own futures. Another user donates while praising her stream's rapid rise, comparing it to an incredible blue-chip stock. Pondering her success, she wonders just how impressive entering the top 100 ranks truly is. The system explains that entering the top 100 immediately upon reaching gold rank is an extraordinarily rare achievement. In a chibi style, Teresa sweat drops, feeling slightly annoyed that she is inadvertently proving her administrator's worth. The door opens as the cheerful maid enters, warmly asking if her lady is finally awake yet. Presenting a warm bowl of soup, the maid encourages her to eat to help soothe her stomach. Sipping her warm tea, Teresa tries to recall how she got back after her 10th bottle of alcohol. She looks up in surprise as the maid reveals that the head of the family carried her back. Teresa clarifies if her father carried her, which the maid confirms, though she admits she has no details. The maid extends her hand, presenting a folded white letter that the Duke left behind for her. Teresa opens the letter, reading her father's high praise of a wizard of outstanding talent. The note instructs to omit the appointment ceremony due to the wizard's low status to avoid gossip. It outlines extensive plans to build new campus facilities and fund scholarships using profits from the commercial district. She continues reading, learning that the entire operation will be managed by the newly formed Scholarship Foundation. Teresa's sweat drops, stunned that her father finalized such major financial decisions right after seeing her completely drunk. She remembers her father's dislike of undignified behavior along with his observation that she has lost weight. The letter concludes with a gentle warning to eat well, take care, and drink only in moderation. Clutching the letter, Teresa smiles softly to herself, finding that her father's nagging is actually quite comforting. She feels her chest swell with warmth, describing the sensation as if her heart is filling with soft foam. Walking into the bright academy hall, Teresa is greeted by a cheerful morning welcome from her classmates. Her classmates gather around to say how fun the orientation was and ask if she got home safely. Teresa blushes furiously as her friend teasingly asks if the Duke carried her from the main building. When Teresa timidly asks if the rumor is true, her friend enthusiastically confirms how sweet her father looked. Teresa realizes in horror that the main building connects to the gate, meaning nearly everyone saw them. The girls giggle, pointing out that Lady Teresa's face is turning an extremely bright shade of gray. Blushing deeply and sweating, Teresa tries to hide her face as her friends ask if she is embarrassed. System notification chimes with a generous donation from a constellation gushing over how cute she is. Unable to handle the intense embarrassment any longer, Teresa covers her face and prepares to flee. Teresa runs away in a cute chibi style while her laughing friends tease her for fleeing out of embarrassment. The quiet hallway stands empty as sunlight pours through the large arched windows of the academy. Suddenly, a pink-haired girl with beast ears charges down the hallway, screaming Teresa's name at the top of her lungs. Teresa holds her forehead in distress as her furious friend accuses her of stabbing her in the back. The beast girl continues to shout, demanding that she quit the student council immediately. Teresa sighs, silently wishing she had escaped to the library to avoid her overly dramatic friend. Teresa looks ahead with a wide, purple-eyed gaze of sudden realization. The pink-haired girl calls out in frustration as Teresa begins to walk away. Mimosa angrily demands that Teresa quit the student council immediately. A soft clack echoes as Teresa is suddenly stopped by a man's brown leather boots. Professor Ilya stands silently, his dark red hair tied back as he stares down calmly. The Rodrigo family's innate sensitivity to malice explains Mimosa's instinctive fear of the elegant archdemon, Professor Ilya. With a bright smile, Teresa greets Professor Ilya and says she finished his recommended book. Teresa admits she feels bad using him again, but asks if she can borrow another book. Professor Ilya agrees, leaving a shivering Mimosa behind in absolute terror. Walking away, Teresa cheerfully bids farewell to Mimosa, who remains frozen in fear. Heavy footsteps echo through the empty sunlit academy corridor as they walk. Teresa hesitantly calls out to Professor Ilya as she struggles to keep up. Teresa admits she is heavily hungover and pleads to walk a bit slower. Professor Ilya warns that monsters will eat her alive if she only studies theories. A soft creak sounds as the heavy wooden door to his office swings open. Professor Ilya invites her inside while extending his hand to guide her. In a stylized frame, Teresa takes his hand, resulting in a sudden, startled reaction from both. Professor Ilya gazes down at their joined hands with a slightly surprised expression. With a blush, Professor Ilya clarifies that he was actually asking her for the book. Flustered, Teresa drops the green book onto the floor with a loud gasp. An amused constellation donates 10,000 coins, laughing at Teresa's embarrassing mistake. Professor Ilya quickly changes the subject, asking if she had any questions. Teresa nervously confirms that she has questions regarding the book she read. Teresa asks about spells that can cure magical creatures affected by corrupting demonic energy. Professor Ilya suggests that a book by Professor Felix can help with her inquiry. Teresa despairs internally because Professor Felix teaches magical creatures and animals naturally hate her. Teresa lies that she merely wants to prepare for monster encounters as a council member. Suddenly, the office door bursts open with a loud slam, interrupting their quiet conversation. A messy-haired young man in a white lab coat bursts in, calling out to Professor Ilya. The gray-haired professor, Felix Lockhart, stops and notes that Ilya already has a guest. Teresa politely greets Professor Felix, recognizing him from her previous knowledge. A viewer donates 1,000 coins, teasing Teresa about her ideal type of man. Felix wonders if his excuse was too sloppy, analyzing his own attractive appearance. Quick steps, Felix walks directly toward Teresa to inspect her closely. Felix leans in incredibly close, stating that her ideal type has black hair and silver-gray eyes. Teresa pokes her cheek, completely bewildered by the eccentric professor's bizarre behavior. A stern voice commands Felix to stop as Professor Ilya steps in. Professor Ilya stands defensively in front of Teresa, firmly stating that she is his student. Felix defensively claims he was only verifying that Teresa wasn't a doppelganger monster. In a chibi style, Felix dismisses the suspicion while Teresa sweat drops in confusion. Felix notes that instead of a demonic cat, Teresa looks like a sick puppy. Teresa touches her face awkwardly, feeling highly embarrassed by their weird comparison. Felix happily boasts that the demonic energy is gone, but Ilya tells him to stop the nonsense. Felix promotes his special magical honey tea as the absolute best cure for a hangover. Felix panics in shock when Teresa mentions his secret source of cosmetic income. Teresa reveals she knows he is the secret owner of the famous Chanur workshop. Teresa attributes her secret knowledge to the unmatched power of being a game developer. Felix desperately begs her to keep it a secret to avoid receiving more death threats. Chibi Professor Oya watches his co-worker's embarrassing and pathetic display with utter disappointment. Teresa reassures him and gladly requests a cup of his special honey tea instead. Teresa stands beside Professor Ilya and announces to Felix that Ilya will act as their witness. Teresa turns to Professor Ilya with a smile, seeking his confirmation as he looks back calmly. An ecstatic Felix enthusiastically gestures for them to go to his lab, promising her plenty of honey tea. As Felix leads them away, he eagerly suggests that Teresa sign up for his magical creatures class. Teresa looks thoughtful, noting that the great influence of Academy nobles would make changing majors incredibly easy. While Felix leads them to his nearby lab, Teresa quietly wonders why Professor Ilya is tagging along. A soft creak echoes as Felix opens the door to his sunlit plant-filled laboratory. Swirling with golden magical energy, a dark beast steps forward from the shadows of the lab. Teresa gasps in shock as a majestic white wolf and a dark panther emerge, radiating vibrant golden mana. Teresa sweats nervously, panicking internally because she is notorious for having the absolute worst compatibility with magical animals. The massive black panther suddenly leaps directly at Teresa, causing her to freeze in terror as she prepares to die. Flinching in fear, Teresa shields her face with her arm, bracing herself for the beast's attack. A bright, shimmering flash of light floods the room, shifting the tense atmosphere of the confrontation. The giant white wolf affectionately licks a highly bewildered Teresa while the other creatures nuzzle her. Teresa sits on the floor surrounded by loving beasts and cute rabbits, completely dumbfounded by what is happening. Felix sheepishly apologizes for letting his creatures loose, but stops when he notices how calm they are around her. Felix looks incredibly surprised, noting that these highly intelligent magical creatures usually never charge at people like this. An embarrassed Teresa pleads with Felix to help get the overly affectionate white wolf off her. Two adorable white rabbits hop excitedly around Teresa's dress, completely enamored by her soothing presence. Felix stands in front of a sparkling backdrop, dramatically declaring that Teresa is a genius with magical creatures. A mythical vision depicts Teresa dressed as a legendary tamer, sitting peacefully amidst a variety of adoring beasts. Teresa looks completely stunned, questioning if she truly possesses such a legendary talent for handling magical beasts. Felix eagerly grabs Teresa's hands, explaining how rare taming magic is and begging her to switch majors. A system notification chimes with a generous 10,000 coin donation from a constellation who absolutely loves this entertaining content. Teresa looks at Felix with skepticism, asking how he can be so certain about her supposed genius talent. Felix explains that magical creatures are normally highly hostile and would aggressively bare their teeth at ordinary students. Teresa looks down thoughtfully, wondering if the powerful magical beast would actually listen to her commands. Teresa tests her authority while commanding the white wolf to sit, and it immediately obeys with star-filled eyes. The obedient wolf promptly lies down and places its soft paw in Teresa's hand upon her gentle commands. An overjoyed Felix points out that the creatures are listening perfectly without even receiving mana as a reward. Professor Ilya looks on stoically, bluntly pointing out that her grades in elemental magic are an absolute disaster anyway. Ilya firmly places his hand on Teresa's shoulder and asks if she wants to change majors, shocking Felix. Professor Ilya steps forward defensively, placing himself between Teresa and Felix with a stern, protective gaze. The magical beasts instinctively back away in fear, sensing Professor Ilya's terrifying and dangerous demonic energy. Felix looks surprised, whispering Teresa's name as he senses the tense shift in the room's atmosphere. Professor Ilya glares at Felix, firmly asserting that Teresa is his student and she is not switching. Teresa blushes in surprise, realizing this protective behavior is the highest affection response Ilya's character can give. Felix points out that only incredibly powerful individuals like Clyde or Professor Ilya can make the beasts back away. The system notification chimes with a 10,000 coin donation from an amused constellation laughing at the brutal reality. Professor Ilya turns away with a calm but slightly annoyed expression on his elegant face. Felix suggests a double major, but Teresa quickly rejects it, knowing Ilya's affection will drop to 0 if she switches. In a chibi style, Teresa politely declines the double major while Felix protests and Ilya tells him to give up. Teresa looks down at the white wolf, wondering why the magical creatures suddenly look so anxious and worried. Teresa's eyes widen with sudden realization as she realizes the animals think she is in grave danger from Ilya. She realizes the affectionate beasts only crowded around her because they felt a strong instinct to protect her. Felix gently pets the wolf, explaining that the creatures were recently corrupted by demonic energy and only recently recovered. Felix tells Teresa that although the beasts were sickly earlier, they became completely healthy the moment they saw her. A constellation donates 10,000 coins, explaining that sensitive creatures immediately recognize and adore their creator's pure affection. Staring at the wolf, Teresa is touched, realizing their emotions felt connected because she is indeed the creator. Teresa pets the wolf as she recalls how demonic energy turns innocent magical creatures into terrifying red-eyed monsters. Teresa realizes she created the creature's tragic history and silently apologizes to the white wolf she is embracing. Looking down with a melancholic expression, Teresa finally understands the deeper emotions of the creature she created. Remembering Raoul's protective behavior, Teresa realizes his nagging note was purely out of concern for her safety. The burgundy-haired Professor Ilya interrupts her thoughts, noting that their class is about to begin. A cheerful, gray-haired Professor Felix Lockhart happily hands Teresa a book, telling her to return it soon. Hugging the book, a pleased Teresa hums to herself, delighted to have obtained the research material she wanted. Professor Ilya suddenly asks if she plans to change majors, causing Teresa to firmly reject the idea. Close-up of Ilya's green eye as he notes that ordinary humans are completely incompatible with magical creatures' mana. A mystical illustration explains that researching powerful, hard-to-control beasts brings immense wealth and legendary fame. Walking alongside Teresa, Professor Ilya points out that her compatibility with the beasts is exceptionally rare. Professor Ilya looks back at Teresa, assuring her that switching majors would reveal her outstanding talent. Teresa privately acknowledges this point, but knows she has no desire to become a legendary mage. Teresa looks up at Professor Ilya with a bright smile, stating she only wants his personal approval. Professor Ilya is left momentarily speechless, staring back at Teresa with a surprised, intense gaze. After a brief pause, Professor Ilya quietly acknowledges her response as they continue walking under the sunlight. As they walk down the spacious hallway, Teresa suddenly realizes she is keeping up with his stride easily. Teresa looks over at him in surprise, wondering if he is deliberately slowing his pace to match hers. Observing Professor Ilya's back, Teresa notices a flickering system screen and wonders if his affection level has risen. Teresa's eyes widen in absolute shock as she gazes at the sudden system notification in front of her. System notifications announce that watching constellations are closely monitoring and starting to support Professor Ilya's romantic route. Teresa stares at Professor Ilya's back in disbelief, stunned by how rapidly his affection level has filled up. Breaking into a cold sweat, Teresa finds the incredible speed of his affection increase completely unbelievable. Teresa recalls that in the game's hard mode, filling 2 hearts with Ilya required countless personal meetings. Staring at Ilya's portrait with a glowing red heart, Teresa frantically wonders what decisive action triggered this massive increase. Teresa ponders if her unexpected popularity with the magical beasts was the actual catalyst for his growing affection. An elegant illustration depicts white wolves in the celestial realm before a dimensional rift shattered their peaceful home. A visual of a shattering sky explains how celestial flora and fauna crossed over into the human world. A magnificent illustration of Archangel Ilya with giant wings reveals his past absolute authority over all magical creatures. Walking beside him, Teresa wonders if the creatures only acted friendly because they recognized her as their creator. Professor Ilya remarks that staring silently at someone is typically done to either seduce or insult them. Horrified, Teresa quickly panics, realizing her intense staring might have crossed professional boundaries. In a bid to diffuse the tension, Teresa nervously flatters him by saying he looked exceptionally handsome today. Teresa internally hopes her flattery works, recalling how well this tactic usually succeeds with academy professors. Professor Ilya lets out a soft scoff, reacting with a subtle smirk to her bold and sudden compliment. Teresa tenses up in sheer panic as she anxiously awaits his reaction to her desperate flattery. Professor Ilya opens the large wooden door, quietly commenting on her boldness as they proceed. Teresa panics further as system notifications confirm that the constellations are enthusiastically rooting for the Ilya route. The scene shifts as gossiping voices discuss a massive financial donation made by the prominent Squire Duke. The majestic spires of the Grand Magic Academy stand tall under a bright sunny sky. Students gossip in the hallways about Damien being personally appointed by the Squire Duke as Teresa's bodyguard mage. Clutching her heavy books, Teresa walks through the whispering crowd, feeling completely overwhelmed by her new council duties. In a chibi style, a highly stressed Teresa sweat drops, feeling exhausted by the constant academy rumors. Teresa retreats to a quiet courtyard bench to escape the bothersome crowds, while a constellation donates coins. Looking up thoughtfully, Teresa suddenly realizes her appetite is completely returned after days of stress. Touching her temple, Teresa notes with relief that her persistent, painful headaches have finally vanished. A memory surfaces of her losing consciousness and completely fainting during her previous visit to the library. Teresa sits in quiet contemplation, wondering who could have moved her safely to the sofa after she fainted. A system chime rings out as a constellation donates 10,000 coins to share some crucial information. Floating system messages suggest her sudden fainting and memory loss might be classic symptoms of possession syndrome. Staring at the glowing screen, Teresa ponders the existence of possession syndrome, realizing it explains her bizarre condition. Teresa ponders whether her past bizarre isolation in the library stacks was caused by possession syndrome. Teresa sighs with relief that she is finally feeling better as someone approaches her. Teresa turns around in surprise as a gentle voice calls out her name. A nervous, glasses-wearing student carrying a box of alchemy supplies stands before Teresa. The startled student is shocked to hear Teresa address her by her name. Teresa recalls that Rainy Rose is a crucial supporting alchemist from the game she created. Rainy Rose politely asks for permission to pass through on her way to the annex. Teresa realizes Rainy is highly wary of her due to the original Villainess's terrible reputation. Remembering she hasn't eaten her lunch yet, Teresa suddenly gets a helpful idea. Knowing Rainy's background as a poor commoner, Teresa decides to offer her the food. Teresa steps closer to the anxious girl, determined to extend a kind gesture. Teresa gently hands over her untouched sandwich to a highly startled Rainy. Teresa lies that she lost her appetite, offering the untouched sandwich to the girl. Rainy softly expresses her gratitude, her eyes wide with deep emotion and surprise. Rainy asks if Teresa is interested in magical creatures, receiving a curious reply. Teresa notes that the situation with the magical beasts is rapidly getting worse. Rainy is caught off guard by Teresa's surprisingly knowledgeable and serious response. Rainy's face lights up as she thinks of her research on magical creatures. Teresa recalls that despite her shy demeanor, Rainy has an incredibly warm heart. Teresa beams with a radiant, joyous smile, completely disarming the young alchemist. Deeply flustered Rainy quickly waves her hands, insisting there's no need to thank her. Rainy shares that knights were dispatched to her hometown, Pansy Village, for protection. Teresa chuckles, teasingly asking if this is her indirect way of expressing gratitude. Rainy flusteredly demands to know why she is laughing, while Teresa gently dismisses it. Rainy blushes intensely, completely embarrassed by the friendly teasing from her senior. Rainy hurriedly excuses herself and runs off, while Teresa warns her to be careful. Please Constellation donates 10,000 coins after witnessing the heartwarming interaction. Teresa's expression turns solemn as she redirects her attention to her broadcast rankings. A system screen reveals that her stream ranking has dropped out of the top 100. Teresa realizes she must take active measures to boost her channel's popularity again. She worries about the consequences if the constellations lose interest in her broadcast. The scene shifts to the grand facade of the Magic Academy under a clear sky. Teresa nervously opens the massive wooden doors to attend her first official student council meeting. Inside, Damien and Clyde sit stoically, waiting for the critical meeting to commence. The sun shines brightly over the Academy's majestic towers, setting a tense atmosphere. Teresa swallows hard, feeling a bead of sweat drip down her face from anxiety. Teresa panics when she realizes she is forced to sit between Clyde and Damien. Damien instructs Teresa to sit beside him, heightening her sense of awkwardness. Sitting between them, Teresa desperately hopes to avoid any romantic or dramatic misunderstandings. Clyde formally initiates the student council meeting, maintaining a stern and businesslike demeanor. The student council member presents reports of magical creatures being corrupted by a dark miasma. A visual depicts corrupted monsters attacking, fueling growing fears among the civilian population. A council member mentions Teresa's previous act of dispatching knights to Pansy Village as an example. Constellation donates coins, criticizing the Academy's elitist focus on protecting only certain villages. Clyde listens quietly, processing the complex strategic and political arguments being presented. Clyde pragmatically states that the Empire cannot afford to fund and protect every single region. Blonde student notes that Damien is silently but intensely warning them to stop talking nonsense. The blonde student smugly suggests that Lady Teresa should provide the necessary funding instead. Other members pressure Teresa to sponsor the protection zones under Clyde's name. Amused Constellation donates coins, laughing at the students walking straight into a trap. Teresa pensively considers how she would have enjoyed being paired with Clyde if she were the real villainess. A hand violently slams against the table as someone angrily barks about not provoking a sleeping lion. Gold coins rain down around an elegant butterfly crest while Clyde steps away, muttering about the high sum. Clyde sternly demands silence from the room, questioning Dorno and the other student if their demands were ever truly fair. Completely cornered by Clyde's sharp questioning, a sweating Dorno stammers nervously in response. Teresa looks on in confusion, quietly wondering why Clyde is unexpectedly taking her side in the debate. A sudden system warning alerts Teresa that she risks expulsion if she fails to humiliate Dorno. Sweating profusely, Dorno internally acknowledges how risky his aggressive political play was. Teresa hides a delicate giggle behind her hand, amused by how the situation is unfolding. Narrated details explain that the Student Council is a highly volatile paramilitary force made of powerful noble scions. The council maintains political survival by framing its actions as direct service to the Emperor. Dorno tenses up as he remembers that all student council proceedings are documented for the crown. Teresa narrows her eyes as she prepares to press her advantage in the meeting. Teresa points out that expanding protection zones could easily be misconstrued by political factions. Teresa asks Clyde if her actions could look like her family trying to seize territory. Teresa explains that involving the imperial family changes everything when disputing land ruled by the crown. Panicking, Dorno realizes that challenging the emperor's authority could easily get them branded as traitors. Terrified, Dorno bows deeply and begs Teresa to forgive his reckless words and disregard his foolishness. A glowing blue system notification confirms that she successfully humiliated Dorno, rewarding her with 500,000 coins. Teresa smiles with quiet satisfaction, pleased that they can finally proceed with their meeting without distractions. The student council members wonder in chibi style if Teresa's clever political maneuver was completely out of character. A heavy wooden door suddenly flies wide open with a loud dramatic burst. An alarmed student council member rushes through the open doors, calling out urgently to Clyde. The panicked student reports that monsters have attacked Tuberosa village, leaving over 10 people wounded. The boy delivers the chairman's orders for the student council to immediately investigate the monster attack. Three riders gallop down a scenic, sun-dappled forest path toward their urgent destination. While riding, Teresa is distracted by a blue system screen displaying her available quest options. Teresa purchases advanced horsemanship skills for nearly all her coins, leaving her wondering how she will save. Clyde demands to know why she hesitated, while Teresa weakly excuses herself by claiming she was checking shop restocks. Clyde calls her an impatient brat while Teresa silently panics, realizing she has never even ridden a bicycle. Clyde scoffs at her unbelievable incompetence after Teresa sheepishly apologizes and claims she suddenly forgot how to ride. Damien watches Teresa from behind with a quiet, observant gaze as they ride side by side. Damien warmly tells Teresa to let him know next time so he can teach her how to ride. Teresa looks back at Damien in surprise, softly speaking his name in response to his kindness. Damien silently wishes he could have prevented Clyde from bringing Teresa along to the dangerous village. Clyde cuts off their conversation, curtly ordering them to stop chatting and focus on the road. The riders halt on a cliff, gazing down at the horrific sight of Tuberosa village burning. Clyde announces their arrival as they look down at the smoky ruins of the settlement. A screen transition reveals their new location at the temporary base established in Tuberosa village. Tents are pitched across the dirt clearing of the fortified base camp under the gray sky. An officer presents the map of the village, laying out the tactical pieces on the table. The officer explains how demon wolves invaded, leaving corpses that they had to move away to avoid pollution. Clutching his head in stress, the officer explains that this crisis is why they urgently contacted Valhalla. Clyde declares that his noble family, the Willow House, must step in to handle the situation. Teresa gasps softly, caught off guard by Clyde's sudden declaration of direct involvement. Teresa points out an unguarded area on the map, only to be told it is uninhabited. Teresa silently notes that this was the expected answer, realizing she has no choice but to act. Teresa recalls that the beast will target this specific area because the game script dictates it. She remembers that failing to defend this zone will ruin the villagers' lives for a long time. Teresa warns them that a wolf pack invading this unguarded spot would cause massive irreversible damage. Teresa takes matters into her own hands after the guard apologizes for their severe lack of defensive manpower. Teresa decisively declares her intention to scout the dangerous, unguarded area entirely by herself. Damien reacts with immediate, silent concern upon hearing her reckless scouting proposal. Clyde sternly warns Teresa against her dangerous plan, commanding her not to be reckless. A glowing blue system menu reveals that her current affection levels are far too low. Turning on her heel, Teresa firmly insists that her choice is not a matter of recklessness. Damien urgently calls out to Teresa, pleading with her that going alone is too risky. A corrupted demon wolf lies trapped inside a glowing magical circle ready to be cleansed. Teresa channels her radiant purification magic, transforming the dark miasma into fluttering golden butterflies. Clyde stands frozen in absolute shock as he witnesses the sheer scale of her power. Teresa casually smiles and points out that she is fully capable of using purification magic. She internally notes that as scholars of magical organisms, they must recognize her spell's mastery. Clyde skeptically questions her choice of location, pointing out that beasts always attack specific zones. Teresa feels frustrated that they have already assumed she was trying to flee the area. Realizing she has no leverage, Teresa prepares to explain her logical reasoning to the council. She explains that the unguarded zone lies dangerously close to farms growing magical crops. Teresa confidently challenges Clyde, asking him if he understands this basic rule of magical ecology. Convinced by her sound logic, Clyde instructs her to send a messenger owl if necessary. Teresa quietly decides to send her signal owl immediately before the actual beast attack occurs. Her peaceful plan is shattered as a sudden foreboding energy fills the dense forest. Two vicious red-eyed demon wolves suddenly emerge from the thick foliage and charge toward her. Sweating nervously, Teresa looks on in panic, wondering how her situation went so wrong. She recalls how the beasts appeared too quickly, causing her startled horse to throw her. Having already dispatched her owl, she realizes she must survive on her own for 5 minutes. Steeling her resolve, Teresa nervously prepares to engage in her very first magical battle. Unleashing her magical power, Teresa commands the corrupted life before her to be fully purified. A brilliant wave of golden light and shimmering butterflies washes over the charging demon beasts. The intense magical radiance targets the snarling wolf, completely neutralizing its dark, corrupt miasma. Teresa looks back in confusion, wondering why the cleansed beast is roaring so strangely. Regretting her lack of study, she frantically casts her purification spell once again. Glowing geometric magic circles expand rapidly across the clearing, casting a blinding white light. Overwhelmed by panic, Teresa repeatedly spams her purification magic across the entire forest path. An amused Constellation donates 10,000 coins, jokingly telling her to stop since they are purified. Teresa is baffled to see the terrifying wolves transformed into docile, friendly puppies. She panics as the over-affectionate purified beast jump on her and tear her expensive cloak. Her relief is short-lived as a low, ominous growling sound echoes from behind. 3 more massive, unpurified demon wolves with glowing red eyes emerge from the dark bushes. Regaining her composure, Teresa nervously raises her glowing hand to cast another purification spell. A sudden loud shout echoes through the trees, interrupting her before she can unleash her magic. Instead of fighting, Teresa is hilariously chased around by the wolves who refuse to stand still. A disappointed Constellation donates coins, complaining about getting a chaotic chase scene instead of romance. Panting heavily, Teresa realizes that the demon beast fleeing from her was never in the script. Another amused Constellation donates 10,000 coins, thoroughly enjoying the chaotic turn of events. A system notification teasingly suggests that the wolves did not enjoy being unilaterally purified either. A group of armed knights charges into the clearing, shouting that the lady is under attack. Damien rushes past the confused knights, focused entirely on rescuing Teresa from the beasts. Damien conjures a massive blue magical shield, proudly announcing that he has blocked their escape. Seizing the perfect opportunity, Teresa summons her remaining strength to cast one final purification spell. Utterly exhausted, Teresa collapses onto the grass, surrounded by 3 adorable, freshly purified puppies. One overenthusiastic puppy repeatedly licks Teresa's face, leaving the tired girl coughing in humorous defeat. Damien reaches out his hand, offering to help Teresa off the muddy ground. Helping Teresa up, Damien asks if she is all right while the wolves stand watch. Walking hand in hand, Teresa mentally laments her low stamina while feeling completely exhausted. Damien observes that Teresa keeps surprising him, asking if magical creatures always obeyed her so well. Damien presses further, questioning if magical beasts normally followed her commands so flawlessly. Teresa worries she overstepped, knowing Damien is fully aware she never had such abilities. The brown-haired knight loudly proclaims that Teresa's success is an entirely unprecedented phenomenon. The knight explains the high failure rate of live purification, marveling at Teresa's effortless success. Teresa silently doubts his praise, dryly noting her only past taming experience was with humans. Clyde suddenly approaches the group, demanding to know what is happening in the forest. The white wolves growl defensively, proving to be highly wary of Clyde's sudden arrival. Teresa notes that the beasts instinctively sense Clyde's cursed half-demon heritage on this land. Looking at Clyde's brooding expression, Teresa struggles to uphold their agreement to ignore him. Teresa sighs, finding it impossible to ignore someone with such an incredibly gloomy face. Taking a decisive step forward, Teresa prepares to speak with her brooding companion. Approaching Clyde, Teresa directly asks him if he needs something from her. Clyde flinches in surprise, momentarily stunned by Teresa's sudden and direct address. Clyde avoids her gaze, telling her to follow him to write a field report. Teresa readily agrees, asking for a brief moment to bid farewell to the wolves. Kneeling down, Teresa gently instructs the white wolves to return to their natural home. Teresa warns the beasts to stay safe and avoid getting corrupted by miasma again. White wolves howl together, releasing a brilliant wave of shimmering golden magic. Teresa looks up in surprise as the holy magic of the creature spreads outward. The light brown-haired knight gasps in awe, pointing toward the incredible display of magical light. Sweeping golden energy purifies the corrupted land, transforming the forest clearing entirely. The ecstatic knights cheer in unison, loudly praising Teresa for saving the forest. Teresa worries about drawing unnecessary attention, though she is relieved the land is safe. She recalls how failing to purify the land previously led to her execution as a scapegoat. Teresa shudders at the memory of her original tragic death amidst pools of blood. Teresa's dark thoughts are suddenly interrupted as Clyde extends his hand toward her. Clyde commands Teresa to stop dawdling and take his hand to help her up. Suspicious of his sudden kindness, Teresa declines, insisting she can walk back entirely alone. Clyde scoffs at her refusal, skeptically asking how she expects to walk in her shoes. Teresa inspects her feet, dismayed to find her high heel has snapped completely off. Teresa notes his low affection score, suspiciously wondering if Clyde's kindness is actually a trap. Teresa stubbornly refuses, limping forward while reminding Clyde of his field report duties. Barefoot and carrying her broken shoes, Teresa insists she will be fine as she walks. Clyde scowls deeply, thoroughly irritated by her persistent refusal to accept his assistance. Clyde storms off in irritation, leaving Teresa to sweat drop at his notoriously bad temper. Walking barefoot, Teresa is met with shocked stares, realizing exposing feet is highly taboo. Damien intercepts her, gently lecturing Teresa on maintaining proper noble dignity and courtesy. The system glows as a romance-loving constellation donates 10,000 coins to Teresa. Realizing there is no reason to turn down free coins, Teresa decides to cooperate. Damien sighs playfully, asking if he has to instruct her on every basic detail. Damien sweeps Teresa up into a princess carry, noting she should have cooperated sooner. While Damien questions her behavior, Teresa smugly commands him to hurry up and carry her. An amused constellation donates 10,000 coins, praising Teresa's broadcasting genius. The system message enthusiastically declares that this is what a true villainess is about. Slightly embarrassed, Damien complies with her demand and carries her forward. Teresa rests in his arms, pleasantly surprised by Damien's unexpectedly sturdy and muscular build. Teresa marvels at Damien's impressively toned physique, wondering how much training he underwent. A system notification announces a generous coin donation from a constellation eager to check affection levels. Damien requests Teresa stop staring, while she notes his rapid increase in affection progress. Held in a princess carry, Teresa feels secure as Damien carries her down the path. Teresa secretly hopes this progress might finally lead her to a successful romance ending. She realizes a happy romantic ending is only possible if she avoids all bad endings. A screen reveals Clyde's black hearts have increased to 3, indicating growing dark affection. She worries about encountering the Emperor, which would dramatically increase her risk of execution. Teresa reasons that avoiding the Imperial Palace will keep her safe from the Emperor. He confidently concludes that she will not encounter the ruthless ruler anytime soon. A narrative screen transitions the scene directly to the Grand Sun Palace in the capital. The magnificent, white-walled Sun Palace stands tall under a clear, bright blue sky. Inside the Grand Throne Room, a request is made for Gordon Willow to enter. Resting his chin on his gloved hand, the Emperor coldly grants Gordon permission to enter. The silver-haired Gordon Willow walks slowly up the red carpet toward the majestic throne. Gordon Willow kneels respectfully before the great ruler, offering his formal, submissive greetings. Emperor Eugis Rodrigo commands Gordon to rise, noting he has heard rumors about Teresa. The blonde emperor inquires about the squire lady's remarkable activity at her student council meeting. A vision shows Teresa's unprecedented feat of restoring land corrupted by dark miasma. Emperor Eugis speaks of the squire family, attributing their unexpected revival to their eldest daughter. Gordon gulps nervously, realizing the political danger if Teresa can truly command magical creatures. The emperor wonders why Valhalla did not notice her incredible taming abilities much earlier. Eugis reflects on the squire family's expected decline versus Teresa's sudden, powerful magical awakening. The emperor turns a stern, demanding gaze toward Gordon, asking how this oversight happened. Gordon explains that her aptitude test originally showed the worst compatibility with magical creatures. A sudden footstep signals the tense atmosphere as Gordon tries to explain her sudden change. The emperor steps down from his throne, warning Gordon that he never tolerates deceit. A heavy gulp escapes Gordon as sweat drips down his face under the emperor's pressure. Gordon bows deeply, begging the emperor to forgive his incompetence regarding the girl's assessment. Emperor Eugis smiles with chilling warmth, claiming to cherish Gordon despite his failure. Standing before the tall windows, Gordon humbles himself while the emperor maintains his dominance. A dark history reveals how Eugis was manipulated by greedy nobles during his childhood. Upon coming of age, the ruthless emperor executed all his deceivers by burning them alive. The emperor speaks, his expression cold as he plans his next calculated move. Eugis gestures with a gloved hand, calling for a servant to step forward. A royal attendant approaches, presenting a sealed golden letter on a serving tray. Eugis prepares to send a personal invitation to the Sun Palace for the talented girl. The blonde emperor smiles, determined to personally evaluate the student's unique magical abilities. Gordon is deeply shocked that the emperor wishes to meet a minor unwed noblewoman. Gordon realizes the emperor wants to verify if Teresa is a fool or a threat. Gordon stands in silence, deeply unsettled by the dangerous implications of the emperor's curiosity. The emperor's ultimate goal is to monitor Teresa and eliminate her if she poses danger. The scene shifts to the elegant exterior of the Magic Academy on a bright morning. Teresa's peaceful morning is interrupted by a crowd whispering about a sudden prestigious arrival. Milo, head of the Magic Association, greets Lady Teresa with a warm, polite smile. Teresa sweat drops nervously, offering a formal and cautious greeting to the high-ranking visitor. Milo mentions he heard of her extraordinary ability to purify pollution using magical beasts. Milo requests Teresa cooperate with their research for humanity's sake to replicate her powers. An outraged Constellation donates coins, furiously warning Teresa not to become their lab rat. Teresa recognizes this invitation as a dangerous trap event that will trigger an immediate game over. Teresa refutes Milo's claims by pointing out he talks as if her magic is uniquely powerful. She flatly reminds him that her official aptitude test showed her magic had no special attributes. She questions his noble intentions, highlighting that she already risked herself by joining the student council as a B rank. Teresa mockingly asks if she is expected to go even further and become a mere lab rat for the Magic Association. While the association representatives are outraged by her disrespect, the surrounding students whisper in agreement with Teresa's logic. An outraged brown-haired student demands Teresa take responsibility for her words, accusing her of lacking patriotism. A powerful voice commands the accusers to shut up as Duke Raoul makes a dramatic entrance. Teresa is utterly stunned to see her father suddenly appearing at the academy. Duke Raoul places a reassuring, firm hand on his daughter's shoulder to protect her. The Duke delivers a chilling ultimatum, threatening to permanently ruin whoever refuses to kneel and confess. The system announces that the Constellations are absolutely thrilled by Duke Raoul's sudden, powerful appearance. A Constellation enthusiastically donates 10,000 coins while fangirling over Teresa's protective father. Raoul instructs Teresa to step back, leaving her overwhelmed by his incredibly intense and intimidating aura. Observing his fierce protectiveness, Teresa realizes she definitely inherited her father's dramatic temperament. She silently admits that having her father shield her from everyone's stares feels comforting, despite being overprotective. Teresa reflects that she thought she had already become completely immune to the whispers and stares of others. Raoul fiercely accuses the association of trying to exploit his daughter for their own selfish desires. The students who previously questioned Teresa stammer in absolute terror, unable to form a defense. Milo calmly warns Duke Raoul that he is overstepping his bounds, even as a protective parent. Milo feigns offense, claiming they only sought cooperation for the public good and dislike having their intentions scorned. Teresa inwardly scoffs at Milo's excuse, completely dismissing his hypocritical claim of working for the public good. She remembers that Milo is a dangerous mad scientist, entirely unguided by reason or common sense. Deciding he has heard enough, Duke Raoul coldly declares there is nothing left to discuss between them. Viewing their actions as an unforgivable insult to the Squire family, the Duke officially declares a territorial war. Teresa's eyes widen in sheer disbelief as she processes the terrifying reality of an actual territorial war. Milo stands completely stunned, unable to believe the Duke would go to such extreme lengths. The weight of a declaration of territorial war hangs heavily in the tense academy corridor. Teresa glances around anxiously as the atmosphere in the room grows increasingly tense and unpredictable. The white-haired academy chairman steps in, sternly warning Duke Raoul to watch his dangerous language. Seeing the academy chairman intervene makes Teresa realize this confrontation has escalated far beyond her worst fears. Duke Raoul retorts that the Squires do not tolerate insults, reminding Duke Willow of their family's pride. Duke Willow reacts with visible shock and anger at the direct defiance of his warning. The spectators whisper about the Squires' undefeated record, noting the Willow family previously lost to them. A curious Constellation donates 10,000 coins, thoroughly entertained by the sudden escalation of noble family drama. Teresa watches the unfolding conflict with a growing sense of dread, sweating at the sheer danger. A century ago, the Squire and Willow families attempted to unite their powerful houses through a marital alliance. The alliance collapsed when the Willow groom fled with his mistress on the wedding day, humiliating the Squire family. To avenge their ruined pride, the enraged Squire patriarch launched a war and ruthlessly executed the Willow patriarch. In fierce retaliation, the Willow family raided and burned all of the Squire family's generational secret magic archives. This bloody history of betrayal and destruction permanently established the two proud noble houses as sworn, bitter enemies. Duke Raoul sternly warns that anyone who dares harm his child must be prepared to pay with their life. Another enthusiastic Constellation donates 10,000 coins, captivated by the intense and dramatic family feud unfolding. Caught in the middle of this massive historical conflict, Teresa feels completely suffocated by the intense atmosphere. While the other students admire the Duke's fierce protection, Teresa internally screams at how suffocating it actually is. Duke Willow grits his teeth, clearly frustrated and cornered by the dangerous declaration of territorial war. Relenting under pressure, Duke Willow admits that the Academy should have done more to protect Teresa sooner. Teresa notes the sudden shift, wondering if the presence of so many spectators forced them to back down. Yielding to the pressure, Milo grudgingly promises to send a formal written apology from the Magic Association. Duke Willow apologizes to Teresa directly, pleading for her to believe he had no malicious intent today. He explains that he simply values her extraordinary talents, leaving her wary but relieved the crisis has ended. Teresa scoffs at the Magic Association's greed for arriving at the crack of dawn. Duke Raoul vows to remember the faces of everyone who targeted his daughter. Raoul threatens them with consequences, leaving the terrified students pleading for him to wait. Duke Raoul calls out Teresa's name, preparing to lead her away. Teresa looks back in surprise as her father calls him aim. Taking her hand, Duke Raoul firmly leads Teresa away from the school hallway. System window announces that the constellation Madmania has donated 10,000 coins. Another glowing window displays a constellation's enthusiastic praise for Teresa's protective family. Teresa looks down at their joined hands, feeling slightly embarrassed by the gesture. Teresa awkwardly asks her father how long he plans on holding her hand. Teresa curiously asks her father what brought him back to Valhalla so soon. Duke Raoul walks in silence, looking deeply serious as he guides his daughter. Brown notes the greedy Magic Association was bound to target her after her purification feat. Duke Raoul turns to his daughter, who looks up at him with concern. Duke Raoul looks sternly ahead, clearly displeased with the Academy's lack of protection. Teresa sweat drops, admitting she did not expect her magic to cause so much chaos. Chibi Raoul aggressively lectures his daughter, who can only listen in stunned silence. Teresa internally complains about her father's intense lecturing, finding it a bit unfair. Teresa silently defends herself, while Chibi Raoul demands to know if she makes sense. Raoul uses his own youth to lecture her, leaving Teresa exasperated by his nagging. Teresa submissively promises to inform him about her future activities in advance. A voice greets Duke Squire, prompting Teresa to recognize the speaker as Gordon Willow. Teresa is shocked to see Gordon Willow, who should be at the Imperial Palace. Gordon Willow addresses Teresa Squire directly, shifting the focus of the tense atmosphere. A sealed white envelope with gold ornaments rests formally on a luxurious golden tray. Gordon Willow coldly commands Teresa to show proper respect to the Imperial message. An attendant presents the golden tray to Teresa, who reacts with visible tension. Teresa is deeply shaken upon realizing she has received a direct Imperial summon. Duke Raoul scowls with absolute fury at the sudden and unwelcome Imperial intervention. Duke Raoul angrily demands to know the meaning of this sudden Imperial announcement. Gordon Willow impassively clarifies that the decree comes directly from the Emperor himself. Gordon recites the Imperial decree commending Teresa's achievements in restoring the corrupted village. The Emperor officially summons Teresa to the Sun Palace, leaving her completely stunned. Sweat drips down Teresa's face as she processes the immense danger of the summons. Teresa stands in silent dread, shocked that a royal summons has actually happened. Desperately trying to stay calm, Teresa realizes the gravity of receiving a royal invite. Teresa notices that the royal servants are closely watching her every expression. Teresa worries that her reactions will be reported directly to the dangerous Emperor. A terrifying vision of her execution at the guillotine flashes through Teresa's mind. Teresa politely accepts the letter, promising to follow the Emperor's instructions with utmost courtesy. A system notification announces a donation from a patron excited for the Emperor meeting. Teresa reacts with dry disbelief, questioning the constellation's eagerness for her danger. Teresa laments that she hasn't unlocked the advanced etiquette skill required for this route. She worries her intermediate etiquette will lead to her execution for insulting the Emperor. Duke Raoul coldly asks Gordon Willow if his business is finally finished. Raoul bluntly orders Gordon to leave, refusing to speak with his enemy's son. Another blue system window announces a donation of 10,000 coins from Cider Pass. Gordon claims he is merely executing the Emperor's task, but Raoul dismisses his excuse. Teresa panics as Gordon involves both the Magic Association and the Royal Palace. Teresa nervously intervenes, politely requesting some private time to speak with their father. Duke Willow reluctantly accepts the situation, gritting his teeth in silent frustration. Duke Willow nervously attempts to diffuse the tension by inviting everyone to the drawing room for tea. A low hum resonates as Duke Raoul activates a powerful swirling purple magical defense barrier. Teresa marvels at the dense layers of chain security magic, wondering if Raoul is paranoid about being overheard. Teresa nervously panics, realizing her father is speaking with dangerous disrespect regarding the Emperor despite the barrier. Raoul demands to know the contents of the summons, prompting a nervous Teresa to open the letter. The letter formally acknowledges Teresa's impressive achievements in slaying the monsters and restoring the village. The Emperor summons Teresa to the Sun Palace, which she nervously recognizes as a deadly, veiled threat. Teresa fretfully anticipates the inevitable royal chaos and her father's irritation over the Emperor's summons. Raoul sternly advises Teresa to dress flawlessly, warning her that the emperor values strict etiquette above all. Raoul tells Teresa to return home for a proper dress, leaving her wondering how he knew her wardrobe's limitations. Teresa feels a sudden warmth, wondering if her father has actually been quietly paying close attention to her. Dismissing her sentimentality, Teresa decides to travel home with Libby on Friday to prepare for the palace. Duke Raoul stands in contemplative silence, absorbing his daughter's decision with a serious expression. Softening his stern demeanor, Duke Raoul gently assures Teresa that he will be waiting for her return. Teresa stands completely frozen, deeply surprised by her father's uncharacteristically gentle and warm farewell. The Grand Academy building stands majestic and peaceful under a clear, bright sky. In the courtyard, two persistent suitors eagerly invite the blonde-haired Libby to spend the weekend with them. The boy persistently demands an answer to his confession, while a flustered Libby insists she already rejected him. A sudden, sharp click-clack of leather boots on the stone walkway signals someone's approaching presence. Teresa dryly observes the scene, silently mocking the endless romantic side stories that constantly follow the popular heroine. Libby joyfully calls out to her sister, while her suitors freeze in terror at Teresa's formidable presence. Libby happily runs toward Teresa like an excited puppy greeting its favorite person. Teresa feels a surge of annoyance at the thought of random side characters bothering her carefully crafted heroine. Casting an icy, terrifying glare, Teresa demands to know if the boys have business with her sister? The petrified suitors frantically stammer an apology and immediately prepare to flee for their lives. Teresa dryly concludes that maintaining a fearsome and notorious reputation certainly has its daily conveniences. Teresa asks Libby about her suitors, prompting Libby to innocently explain how often other male classmates approach her. Teresa asks if she harbors feelings for any suitors, causing a flustered Libby to stammer a denial. Teresa's eyes narrow calculatingly as she prepares to thoroughly assess Libby's romantic prospects. Teresa considers that Libby might not love the male lead, while Libby admits she hasn't met anyone special. As their carriage rolls along, Teresa inquires about Libby's ideal type, sparking her curiosity. Libby places a finger to her chin, deeply pondering what her dream partner would be like. Libby envisions a sweet and caring protector, entirely unaware that she is imagining Teresa herself. Teresa sweat drops, dryly realizing finding such a sweet partner is impossible since the male leads are all trash. Teresa flatly claims no such perfect person exists, fully aware of the male lead's actual dark personalities. Teresa silently reflects on how the male leads are actually dark, cruel, and deceptive. Libby offers a soft, mysterious giggle, her cheeks flushing pink with secret affection. Looking at Teresa with absolute adoration, Libby warmly confesses she wants someone exactly like her sister. Teresa internally screams in panic, realizing with horror that Libby's romantic standards are dangerously warped. Teresa fretfully remembers that she has only ever shown Libby her aggressive fighting and family arguments. Looking out the carriage window, Teresa's attention is suddenly caught by a commotion on the street. Teresa spots Joseph standing on the street, immediately recognizing him as he confronts a group of students. Mocking students loudly taunt Joseph, claiming Teresa despises her family and pointing out his lack of purification skills. Joseph furiously tells them to shut up, drawing the attention of whispering onlookers who recognize the Squire family. The bully maliciously warns Joseph that Teresa's rise as heir means he will inevitably be kicked out of the family. Consumed by rage, Joseph gathers glowing magical energy in his hands, fiercely shouting for them to be silent. Intervening instantly, Teresa appears with glowing butterflies and orders everyone to cancel their magic. Joseph finds himself completely bound and silenced by Teresa's glowing magical butterflies, left groaning in surprise. The terrified bullies are similarly bound in glowing chains, as Teresa coldly permits them to speak again. Teresa reflects that her newly developed magic command system is working efficiently with short commands. Bound in glowing chains, Joseph furiously demands his release, but Teresa refuses, warning he will only fight again. Teresa smiles warmly, leaving the two bound, blushing male students completely starstruck in her presence. The two bound boys stare in dazed, starry-eyed silence, completely mesmerized by the beautiful sisters. Libby suddenly arrives on the scene, anxiously asking her sister what is going on. The boys internally admire Libby's angelic beauty, imagining a literal halo hovering over her head. A blue system screen describes the stunned reactions of boys witnessing pure beauty. Teresa sweat drops, dryly noting that the system notification sounds exactly like a sensational online video title. Placing a hand on Joseph's shoulder, Teresa politely asks boys if they are his friends. Teresa beams brightly behind her brother, who grumbles in embarrassed frustration under her touch. Releasing her magic, Teresa warns the boys to behave themselves as she grants them movement. The glowing magical chains dissolve, freeing the surprised pink-haired boy from his tight binding. Joseph stands in quiet contemplation as the purple magical chains break apart around him. Grabbing Joseph's hand, Teresa casually tells him it is time for them to leave. Joseph furiously demands to know her plot, but a smiling Teresa claims she is merely holding his hand. Joseph angrily commands her to stop lying and demands to know the true scheme behind her actions. Teresa explains that her actions will ensure the onlookers watch their mouths from now on. Joseph furiously shouts that he will never support her as heir, but Teresa calmly agrees with him. A sharp slap sounds as Joseph abruptly yanks his hand free from Teresa's grip. Joseph quietly asks if she was truly that desperate to kick him and his mother out. Libby watches the painful family exchange in silent sorrow, deeply affected by their lingering resentment. Teresa deeply ponders what the absolute best thing to say to her brother would be. A dark memory reveals the past Teresa screaming that she would never acknowledge Joseph and his mother. Teresa somberly reflects that even though she is not personally responsible for those past cruel actions, she accepts that bearing the burden of past sins is necessary to live as Teresa. Teresa sincerely apologizes, admitting it was incredibly difficult for her to accept him and his mother. Teresa vows that from this moment onward she will make sure absolutely no one. Libby stares in wide-eyed hope, deeply touched by Teresa's sudden change of heart. Teresa smiles gently at Joseph, holding his hand warmly amidst a beautiful bloom of white lilies. Joseph blushes furiously, unable to hide his embarrassed confusion at his sister's sudden kindness. Walking away together, Teresa tells them that the bullies are still watching them from behind. A dramatic constellation sponsors 10,000 coins, complaining about the unexpectedly heartwarming family reconciliation scene. Another supportive constellation sponsors 10,000 coins, acknowledging Teresa's struggles and expressing deep empathy. The scene shifts to the next day at the magnificent and sprawling Squire family mansion. Multiple luxurious, sparkling dresses are lined up on mannequins inside the mansion's dressing room. Teresa stands in the center of the lavish dressing room surrounded by her busy maids. The elegant blonde Duchess enters, announcing she has summoned the boutique staff directly to the mansion. Duchess Eloise smiles warmly at Teresa, accompanied by her loyal brown-haired assistant. Eloise joyfully celebrates getting Teresa out of her uniform, while Teresa insists she has enough dresses. A materialistic constellation sponsors 10,000 coins to support the luxurious dress shopping spree. The system screen emphatically begs Teresa to simply accept the beautiful gifts being offered. Teresa decides to treat this dress-up session as a classic fun video game. The maid presents a thick fur coat, which Teresa complains is far too heavy. Eloise worries whether any of the selected boutique dresses will meet Teresa's high standards. Teresa stands in a gorgeous white dress while an intimidated constellation sponsors 10,000 coins. Teresa realizes her biggest issue isn't the clothes, but the missing advanced etiquette skill in the shop. Eloise and her assistant gasp in pure admiration, praising Teresa's stunning and beautiful appearance. Resolving herself, Teresa accepts that she has no choice but to proceed with her plans. A grand, majestic palace stands under a bright sky as a carriage prepares for departure. Stepping into the carriage, Teresa resolves to utilize every piece of knowledge she possesses. Teresa, in her elegant white dress, looks out from the carriage window, resolved to face the Emperor herself. Inside the grand, majestic palace, an announcement echoes, declaring the arrival of Lady Teresa Squire. Standing before the massive ornate double doors, the butler requests permission for Teresa to enter. With a sharp click, the doors swing open and a deep voice welcomes Teresa, stating she has been expected. Emperor Eugis Rodrigo, a handsome young man with golden hair, stands waiting in a lavish, dark imperial uniform. Teresa performs a respectful curtsy, formally greeting the emperor as the master of the world. A quiet smirk plays on the emperor's lips as he observes her polite greeting. Teresa rises from her bow, mentally noting that the initial greeting has thankfully gone off without a hitch. Her relief is instantly shattered, her eyes widening in absolute shock at a sudden realization. A blue system screen displays Eugis Rodrigo's profile, revealing 4 terrifying black hearts of favorability. Staring at his back, Teresa panics internally upon seeing that Eugis harbors 4 black hearts right from the start. The system screen details that while 1 to 3 hearts warn of danger, 4 black hearts signal literal killing intent. Teresa grimly concludes that this is a dangerous stage where a single mistake will trigger an instant bad ending. Eugis turns back to her with a chilling smile, delivering a silent ultimatum as he invites her to sit. Seated at the tea table, Eugis comments on her changed impression, while Teresa offers a polite, safe response. Teresa grows visibly tense as Eugis points out how fervently her eyes used to gaze upon him. Teresa inwardly curses her predecessor's behavior, realizing Eugis's affection drops whenever she seems to aim for the throne. She fretfully remembers that his bad ending doesn't just mean her death, but the total annihilation of her family. Eugis remarks that all the young ladies were restless at that time, keeping his arms crossed defensively. Smiling softly, Teresa tactfully replies that seeing him was the absolute peep of what any lady could wish for. Eugis's eyes narrow as he repeats her reference to him as a prince with cold curiosity. Teresa sweats nervously, desperately hoping she did not inadvertently insult him by implying he is not emperor-like. She quickly flatters him, while Eugis asks if she was drawn to him solely because of his looks. Teresa sweat drops as Eugis notes her talkativeness, leaving her wondering if he strictly adheres to rigid traditional values. Teresa quickly apologizes, but Yuji, slicing a piece of cake, assures her there is no need for apologies. Teresa accepts the plate with polite gratitude, though a bead of sweat betrays her intense anxiety. Taking a quiet moment, Teresa reflects that his behavior is actually much more normal than she had expected. As she hopes for a peaceful outcome, Yuji drops his fork with a sharp clank, complaining that the cake tastes dreadful. Teresa is left completely speechless, staring at him in frozen silence over the lavish spread of untouched desserts. Yuji coldly asks his staff if this pathetic display is truly the best they can do for an honored guest. A heavy, terrifying silence fills the room as Yuji glares down, his dark aura radiating pure menace. Terrified, the butler, bowing low, pleads for forgiveness, promising to bring a fresh set of refreshments immediately. Facing his overwhelming pressure, Teresa clutches her chest, feeling physically ill from the sheer tension in the room. Standing up, Yuji decides to take her on a tour of the Scent Palace while the staff prepares new snacks. Yuji steps closer and politely extends his gloved hand, offering her a tour after a brief walk. Forcing a bright, trembling smile, Teresa accepts his hand, expressing that it is a great honor. Teresa gasps in pain as Yuji squeezes her hand tightly, mocking her for trembling so heavily. Standing amidst dark lilies, Yuji claims he only meant to escort her, mockingly noting her wariness of him. Feeling like she has been caught by a wild beast, Teresa weakly stammers that she has no such intention. Yuji smiles with chilling amusement, pulling her forward as he simply tells her to follow him. Heavy rain pours over the Grand Imperial Palace, setting a somber and foreboding atmosphere. Walking along the sheltered terrace, Yuji mentions hearing about a recent angry commotion involving her father, the Duke. Yuji asks if the matter has been amicably resolved, quickly dismissing it as unimportant compared to the present. Teresa looks down warily as Yuji assumes she expects a reward for her distinguished services. Stopping by the rain-slick courtyard, Yuji offers to make her an imperial mage with her own magic tower. Teresa politely declines the grand offer, prompting Yuji to question her refusal with narrowing eyes. Looming over her, Yuji demands to know what she truly desires, as Teresa realizes this is a deadly test. A mental scale weighs golden coins against a bloody dagger, illustrating Teresa's struggle to find the perfect balanced request. As the servants return with refreshments, Teresa fretfully wonders what in the world she should ask for. Yuji holds Teresa close under the dim light, watching her reaction intently as she stares up in stunned silence. Clumsy servant prostrates himself in the rain, frantically apologizing to the Emperor for his oversight. Teresa observes the servant's muffled footwear, realizing Yuji is in a deadly, highly volatile mood. Teresa grows anxious, realizing she cannot stand by and let the poor servant be executed. She resolves to intervene immediately before a tragedy unfolds right in front of her. Teresa boldly speaks up, requesting to visit the Imperial Garden to see the ice-storm monkshood. Yuji expresses skepticism about the flower, but his butler confirms it is kept in the Imperial bedchamber. Teresa reveals her knowledge of the poisonous plant, which numbs the Emperor's oversensitive royal senses. Yuji turns back with a cold glare, questioning if she is trying to soothe his anger. Teresa politely explains she merely noticed his headache and wanted to offer a healthy, natural alternative. Yuji asks if her reward is concern for him, prompting her to request his favor instead. Yuji quietly considers her request, acknowledging that his royal favor is indeed the ultimate prize. The rain continues to fall as Yuji commands her to lead the way to the garden. Arriving at the rain-slicked courtyard, they find the stunning blue ice-thorn monkshoot in full bloom. Teresa begins to express her relief, but her words are cut short by a sudden movement. A sudden harsh grip sounds as Yuji ruthlessly grabs the trembling servant by his hair. The servant cries out in agony as Yuji violently throws him to the ground in front of Teresa. Teresa watches in horror as Yuji coldly offers to grant her a dark opportunity. Yuji commands the terrified servant to pluck the deadly flower with his bare hands. Knowing the flower is instantly lethal to normal humans, Teresa desperately begs to pluck it herself. Yuji abruptly grabs Teresa's chin, mockingly questioning her sudden display of compassion for a servant. Yuji looms over Teresa, his chilling smile betraying his utter amusement at her desperate plea. Yuji proposes a deadly wager, offering to spare the servant if she answers his upcoming question satisfactorily. Yuji pauses with a sinister smirk, leaving the terrible alternative hanging in the air. He dictates that if her answer fails to please him, Teresa must execute the servant herself. Surrounded by symbolic chains of fate, Yuji coldly demands to know if she accepts the wager. The tense silence of the rainy terrace highlights the absolute gravity of his horrific terms. Knowing that backing down will only seal her doom, Teresa reluctantly accepts the dangerous bet. Yuji warns her that historically, anyone who attempted to deceive him was burned at the stake. Yuji observes the trembling servant, musing that his punishments have perhaps grown too soft lately. But Yuji poses his question, demanding Teresa decide a fitting punishment to warn others against deceit. Teresa stands frozen under his intense gaze, struggling to find a safe and clever response. Teresa panics internally, realizing this critical prompt never existed in her knowledge of the scenario. Reviewing his profile, she spots a single peculiar interest she can exploit to save herself. Resolving to take a massive gamble, Teresa begins channeling her luminous water magic. She decides to appeal to the Emperor's deeply hidden fondness for captivating stories. Before delivering her final answer, Teresa requests permission to share a legendary tale. Teresa begins weaving a magical fluid illustration of King Sisyphus to capture the Emperor's attention. Her story details King Sisyphus' struggle with a mischievous godson who repeatedly stole his cattle. To catch the thief without angering the gods, Sisyphus secretly branded the hooves of his cattle. Having successfully reclaimed his cattle, Sisyphus foolishly grew arrogant, believing he could outsmart the gods themselves. Sisyphus went so far as to trick the god of the underworld to escape back home. Eutychus interrupts, asking if she is suggesting he should simply let the guilty servant walk free. Teresa quickly clarifies that she is absolutely not suggesting the sinner should go unpunished. She explains that the gods eventually captured Sisyphus' soul and devised an eternal, fitting punishment. Sisyphus was condemned to roll a heavy boulder up a mountain, only for it to fall forever. Teresa draws a parallel, comparing the emperor's divine status to the gods in the legend. She proposes that the servant should receive a similar grueling punishment of endless labor instead of death. To her immense relief, Eutychus bursts into a hearty laugh, thoroughly delighted by her clever answer. Teresa's gamble pays off as the emperor's terrifying mood visibly softens. Teresa exhales a deep, trembling sigh of relief, having narrowly avoided a lethal bad ending. Teresa expects the servant's release, but Eutychus sentences him to the endless punishment of rolling a boulder. The terrified servant desperately begs for mercy, reminding the emperor of his promise. Eutychus coldly retorts that he technically spared the servant's life by not executing him. On the emperor's command, the guards ruthlessly drag the struggling servant away. The unfortunate servant's desperate cries for mercy quickly fade into the rainy courtyard. Teresa stands in stunned silence as the weeping servant is dragged away. As the rain continues to pour, the dark atmosphere begins to shift. Picking the blue monk's hood, Eutychus muses that even Teresa's bad etiquette no longer irritates him. Eutychus surprises Teresa by offering her the deadly blue flower as his first ever gift to a woman. Teresa accepts the flower with quiet gratitude, relieved that his terrifying mood has finally improved. The Emperor's favorability screen appears, showing a noticeable decrease in his dangerous hostility. Eutychus gently holds Teresa, suggesting they return indoors to have some warm food. Despite his gentle gesture, Teresa inwardly curses him for being a terrifyingly erratic tyrant. Delighted by the intense drama unfolding, fascinated celestial observers shower Teresa with generous sponsorships. Staring at Eugenius, Teresa silently labels him the absolute worst male lead she has ever written. Under a serene night sky, the scene transitions to chapter 40 of her perilous journey. Back in his private chambers, the butler notes the emperor's apparent satisfaction with today's meeting. Eutychus reflects on his long life, noting he has survived long enough to witness surprising events. Eutychus smirks, highly amused that a lady from the Squire family managed to entertain him. He recalls nearly choking Teresa, yet his curiosity about her remains thoroughly piqued. Looking out at the full moon, Eutychus concludes she is definitely not a devil contractor. The butler pours red wine as Eutychus describes feeling an unpleasantly favorable sensation from her. Picking up his wine glass, Eutychus ponders Teresa's unexpected, captivating effect on his senses. Eutychus vividly recalls the breathtaking magical aura that momentarily captivated his highly guarded heart. Eutychus grimly warns his butler that Teresa remains a highly dangerous and unpredictable variable. Raising his wine glass, the emperor offers a silent, intrigued toast to Teresa. Back at the academy, Teresa is left utterly speechless by a sudden, shocking discovery. She is horrified to see an overwhelming caravan of lavish imperial gifts arriving for her. Morning sunlight filters through the lush green leaves, marking the start of a chaotic day. As she stands outside the Grand Academy building, someone loudly calls out Teresa's name. A sensational rumor about the emperor proposing to Teresa instantly spreads among the academy students. Excited classmates swarm Teresa, eagerly questioning her about the massive parade of imperial gifts. Teresa frantically denies the wild rumors, explaining the gifts were simply rewards for her service. Romeo stands closely behind Teresa, darkly noting that the emperor has never gifted flowers before. Growing increasingly unhinged with jealousy, Romeo frantically scribbles notes, muttering about Teresa's allure. Teresa panics, realizing that Romeo's growing rage threatens to summon a dangerous devil right there. To prevent a disaster, Teresa desperately declares to her friends that she only loves Clyde. She dramatically proclaims that she will never marry anyone else if it is not Clyde. Blushing a bright, furious red, Teresa shouts out her fake confession to quiet the rumors. A sudden, calm voice cuts through the garden, expressing dry pity at her passionate words. Teresa freezes in absolute horror as she realizes who is standing right behind her. Clyde calmly approaches her, teasingly asking how much of her dramatic proposal he has heard. Teresa inwardly panics over the intense humiliation, while her excited classmates squeal over Clyde's arrival. Looking thoroughly annoyed by the screaming girls, Clyde coldly tells them to get lost. Turning his attention back to Teresa, Clyde demands that she follow him immediately. Stunned and sweating nervously, Teresa points to herself in absolute confusion. From inside the academy, a mysterious dark-haired man silently watches their interaction through a window. In the sunlit courtyard, Teresa quietly follows Clyde, wondering why he was searching for her. Clyde quickly mutters a brief dismissal, attempting to cover up his sudden desire to see her. Teresa sighs in deep relief, glad Clyde's timely arrival successfully prevented Romeo's demon-summoning rage. A crisp clack sounds as Teresa takes a step forward while Clyde walks nearby. Walking through the sunlit grounds, Teresa asks Clyde if she may walk beside him. Looking away with a slight blush, Clyde quietly mutters that she is impossible to read. Clyde commands Teresa to follow him, prompting her to ask what he just said. A polite notification announces that Professor Ilya has requested Teresa's presence in his grand study. Observing Teresa's pale complexion, Professor Ilya warmly notes that she does not look well. Teresa lies about having an upset stomach while inwardly blaming her sickness on Eugis. A gentle hand reaches out, presenting a small bottle of glowing blue liquid to Teresa. Professor Ilya offers a kind and reassuring smile as he extends his helpful gift. Presenting the medicine, Professor Ilya gently takes her hand and asks for her cooperation today. A pink system notification reveals that several celestial observers highly support the Ilya romantic route. Startled by the sudden physical contact, Teresa asks why he is acting this way. Ilya presses the blue potion into her palm, telling her to drink it to feel better. Teresa inwardly notes the extreme cost of potions, attributing his generosity to his high affection. Holding the valuable blue bottle close, Teresa politely thanks her professor for the medicine. An ominous dark aura frames a comment noting Teresa's apparent closeness with the professor. Clyde expresses surprise that the two are close enough for Ilya to gift her potions. While Ilya remains silent, Teresa glances between them, inwardly questioning Clyde's unusually prickly attitude. With a swift grab, Clyde suddenly snatches the medicine directly from Teresa's hands. Clyde coldly offers a brief thank you, while Teresa inwardly grumbles about being treated like a child. Ilya explains he summoned them for a highly confidential request from the House of Bernstein. When asked if the request is from his family, Ilya calmly confirms that it is. Ilya details that a mysterious magical beast has been repeatedly trespassing in his family's garden. Teresa recognizes this as a game event, while Ilya warns the beast is beyond his power. Teresa worries about the extreme danger of a beast that even Ilya cannot defeat. Listening intently, Clyde asks if the invading creature is a spiritual beast known as a ghost. Ilya agrees that slaying the creature is necessary, though it poses an immense challenge. System information explains that celestial ghost beasts corrupted by miasma become far more dangerous than demons. Ilya explains that revealing the truth to the public would only cause unnecessary widespread panic. A quest screen appears, warning Teresa that refusing the request will lower Clyde's crucial affection. Teresa realizes she cannot risk losing affection points, which would increase Clyde's dangerous black hearts. Teresa recalls that the 4 remaining dimensional gates are hidden within each male lead's home. The magical gates only appear during even-numbered months, and only one can be opened. Teresa decides to accept the mission, eager to search the Bernstein Duchy for the portal. Teresa warmly agrees to the request, stating she wants to help the professor's family. A gentle hand reaches down to affectionately pat Teresa's head as she accepts the task. Teresa is completely startled as the tall professor unexpectedly pats her head with great gentleness. While Teresa wonders how a great demon can be so gentle, Clyde glares in silent annoyance. Clyde's expression darkens further as he watches the intimate interaction between Teresa and Ilya. Ilya speaks up, shifting the group's focus back to the details of the magical beast. Ilya reveals that the mysterious beast trespassing in their garden is a giant glowing humpback whale. Ilya gazes up into the dark night sky, reflecting on the bizarre and majestic beast. The scene transitions to the sunlit, majestic white stone building of the Academy's annex. Reviewing her status screen, Teresa wonders why her intelligence rating remains stuck at B rank. Teresa ponders how to raise her intelligence while receiving a generous donation from a constellation. Chibi Teresa struggles under a massive stack of books to complete her library visit requirement. Chibi Teresa sits attentively at her desk, working hard to fulfill her lecture attendance count. Teresa realizes her 4th-year status means she has far fewer naturally scheduled classes to attend. Teresa realizes she must enroll in Professor Felix's class to boost her poor academic record. Teresa gasps in shock upon checking her channel statistics and seeing her massive coin total. Teresa watches her interface, wondering when her channel rank climbed back into the top 100. A system message registers a 10,000 coin donation from a critical arguing constellation. Teresa watches in disbelief as constellations spam her screen with heavy donations and petty arguments. Teresa questions why hostile viewers bother donating massive sums of coins just to insult her. Grimacing in sheer exasperation, Teresa complains aloud about the endless stress of her live broadcast. A flashy young man wearing a yellow suit walks up to her with confident strides. The yellow-haired man smiles charmingly, greeting her as Oswald's new little darling. Teresa eyes him suspiciously, wondering why he is dressed in a style so similar to Oswald. Kissing her hand, the stranger introduces himself as Chekhov, manager of the top-ranked channel. Pulling her hand away with a slap, Teresa coldly demands that he state his business. Chekhov scoffs in amusement, mockingly asking if she lacks basic noble etiquette. He points out her lack of skills and slow progress, ignoring the chat screens flashing behind him. Chekhov criticizes her bad pacing, questioning why she has not crippled the original female lead yet. Glaring fiercely, Teresa warns him to watch his mouth regarding his cruel suggestions. Chekhov laughs off her anger, claiming Oswald has always been harsh toward his creators. Chekhov warns that Oswald is deliberately driving her into a corner to get her killed. Teresa retorts that Oswald would have killed her directly if that was his true goal. Chekhov starts to reveal his system's secret before quickly covering his mouth in shock. Teresa inwardly deduces that channel managers are forbidden from directly killing their own creators. Teresa demands to know how a rival manager managed to access her personal broadcast records. Chekhov reveals that all broadcast logs are stored within the mystical Akashic records. Chekhov leans in close, teasingly mocking Teresa for her complete lack of cosmic knowledge. A pink system screen shows a protective viewer donating coins to defend Teresa from Chekhov. Chekhov gestures grandly, claiming he only wants to share the harsh cosmic truth with her. He reveals that her rapid rise is solely due to Oswald's first romance broadcast. As she looks at the stars, Chekhov warns that mediocre creators never survive the War of Stars. Chekhov grabs her collar, promising to make her #1 if she transfers to his channel. Before Chekhov can finish his proposition, a sudden burst of magical energy flashes behind him. Chekhov gasps in excruciating pain as a hand ruthlessly pierces directly through his chest. Oswald stands behind him with a chilling smile, reminding Chekhov of the severe penalties for interference. A horrifying crunch echoes aloud, crack, as Oswald ruthlessly crushes Chekhov's glowing golden core. Chekhov screams in absolute agony, furious that Oswald actually dared to destroy his core. Oswald smiles calmly as the system window confirms complete compensation for the damage. Terrified and defeated, Chekhov begs for mercy, promising never to touch Oswald's streamer again. Clutching his glitched, pixelated back, Chekhov stumbles away into the darkness while cursing. The final system announcement confirms Oswald has blocked the hostile constellation as he apologizes for the unpleasantness. Oswald calmly pulls off his stained black glove, calling Chekhov's intrusion an amateurish move. Teresa watches him closely, noticing cold droplets of melting snow resting upon his shoulder. Oswald looks down at Teresa, catching her staring and blinking in mild confusion. He ruffles his vibrant purple hair, causing cold snow water to splash directly onto Teresa's face. Wincing from the cold splash, Teresa complains while Oswald notes her touch felt surprisingly cold. Oswald reaches out to wipe her face, warning her that rejecting his kindness is unpleasant. Leaning in close to her ear, Oswald whispers a soft, threatening warning that leaves her speechless. Outside the annex, they walk together as Teresa mentions Chekhov's remarks about her lack of skills. Oswald gestures to the floating screens, explaining how record-breaking events draw massive crowds of constellations. Staring at him, Teresa finally understands the true mechanics behind her rapid channel growth. Looking up at her manager, Teresa silently marvels at his absolute competence and power. Pointing to his purple-pink hair, Teresa curiously asks what his original hair color was. Oswald smiles softly and touches his hair, amused by her unexpected question. Teresa is shocked when he reveals his true blonde hair, recalling she designed the arrogant emperor similarly. Teresa reflects on the striking similarity in their ferocious and elegant auras, noting they both possess the dignity of a natural-born ruler. Oswald leans in close to Teresa, teasingly noting her tendency to get overly engrossed in her research when her curiosity is piqued. Oswald comments on her guard being properly up today, leaving Teresa thoroughly confused by what he means. Declaring he is running past his schedule, Oswald abruptly takes his leave and departs. Teresa stands in quiet solitude under the falling leaves, processing the brief but intense encounter. Teresa aggressively wipes her face while grumbling in exasperation about her manager's irritating personality. A heavy, echoing thud shakes the quiet personal reading room, causing the desk to tremble. Teresa gasps in shock as she accidentally drops her books and research papers onto the floor. Teresa sighs while picking up the papers, wishing she had her own research lab to avoid the annoying cleanup. A system window displays constellations donating coins while arguing over whether Teresa is simply a magic enthusiast. Startled by a sudden loud noise, Teresa wonders who would slam the reading room door open so aggressively. Another generous coin donation notification registers as a constellation reacts wildly to the sudden disruption. Clyde stands at the entrance of the reading room, looking in at the messy scene. Teresa stutters in surprise, nervously questioning Clyde's sudden and unannounced arrival. Clyde awkwardly apologizes for his loud entrance, looking slightly embarrassed. Chibi Teresa frantically tries to shut the door on Clyde, promising to stay completely quiet. Clyde criticizes the messy study space, while Teresa silently suspects he is looking for an excuse to expel her. Desperate to drive him away, Teresa resolves to say something ridiculous and dramatically questions his behavior. Teresa dramatically cries out that they cannot continue doing this, pleading with Clyde to let her go. Clyde stares back in absolute speechless bewilderment at her sudden and confusing outburst. Sudden footsteps halt outside the doorway as student voices murmur in confusion. Rivia and her friends gasp in shock upon discovering Teresa inside the room with Clyde. The students immediately begin whispering dramatic gossip, assuming the two are having a tragic breakup. Teresa panics and tries to clear up the misunderstanding, but the startled girls quickly run away. A system notification appears as a constellation gleefully predicts the dramatic rumor is bound to spread. Clyde dryly observes her talent for worsening situations, leaving Teresa to lament her self-inflicted disaster. Clyde reminds her of their urgent mission, while Teresa grumbles that he should have said so in the first place. Teresa hastily gathers her fallen papers on the floor while Clyde stands waiting impatiently. Clyde coldly warns her not to waste any time as she gets ready. Clyde announces that transportation is ready as their carriage speeds through a dense forest at sunset. An awkward, suffocating silence fills the carriage as they ride together. A system screen notes the oppressive silence, with a viewer begging them to start talking. Teresa crosses her fingers in a firm refusal to break the silence. The interface displays her determination to hold her breath rather than speak. Teresa resolves to stay silent until they arrive, fearing any attempts to chat will end badly. A sudden loud bump shakes the carriage alongside a bizarre, echoing screech, catching Teresa off guard. Clyde urgently commands the driver to halt the vehicle immediately. Stepping out of the carriage, Teresa notes a chilling, ghastly wail echoing nearby. Teresa stumbles off the carriage and twists her ankle, while a constellation mockingly critiques her poor physical coordination. Teresa's eyes widen in sheer horror as she gazes up at the sky. A colossal, glowing blue humpback whale floats majestically yet ominously in the evening sky. A sudden surge of magical tension hangs in the air as they confront the beast. As Clyde prepares his magic, Teresa warns him that living beings cannot physically touch ghost-type mana beasts. Clyde calmly acknowledges her warning with full confidence. Teresa gasps in shock as a sudden burst of power shifts the surroundings. Teresa loses her balance and falls backward, but Clyde swiftly catches her in a protective hold. Clyde demands to know what she is doing, his composure momentarily breaking. A second colossal whale radiating a warm golden light suddenly emerges in the sky. Leaning against him, Teresa softly explains that the golden whale is the calf's mother. Teresa explains the mother is trying to stop her corrupted calf, leaving Clyde to wonder how she knows so much. Narration explains that humpback whales possess exceptionally strong maternal instincts, setting the stakes. Holding Teresa on the ground, Clyde observes that the mother whale has successfully prevented her calf from invading the town. Looking up with determination, Teresa resolves to purify the corrupted beast no matter what it takes. Teresa groans in pain as she struggles to walk beside Clyde. Teresa scolds herself in frustration for spraining her ankle from a simple jump out of the carriage. Clyde sighs as he admits his own purification magic is useless against ghost-type mana beasts. Swiftly lifting her into his arms, Clyde confesses that she is the only one he can rely on. When Clyde demands she focus and prepare, Teresa quickly snaps out of her daze. Teresa realizes that using Clyde's relic could purify the beast, but risking his awakening as the king of incubi would doom the continent. Determined to avoid Clyde's tragic bad ending, Teresa prepares her own purification magic while Clyde looks on with curiosity. Teresa announces her spell is prepared as a brilliant, multicolored magical light begins to gather in her hands. Golden butterflies burst forth as Teresa desperately commands the corrupted mana beast to be purified. Ethereal blue light washes over the sky as Teresa notices the corrupting black mist is successfully thinning out. Clyde asks about her remaining mana while Teresa checks her status window and replies she has about half left. Teresa grows concerned, knowing her current mana limits make completing this purification incredibly difficult. They watch in alarm as the colossal mana beast begins moving toward the aura of nearby magical plants. Clyde declares they must outrun the beast to stop it, leaving Teresa completely stunned. Teresa panics, realizing that even on horseback they cannot possibly match the colossal beast's speed. Spotting a glowing magic circle on the lawn, Teresa recognizes Professor Ilya casting a spell. Professor Ilya stands inside the magic circle, radiating a powerful and elegant aura. A sudden flash of teleportation magic envelops Clyde and Teresa, startling them. They are instantly teleported directly into the grand and luxurious lobby of the Bernstein Manor. Teresa gasps in horror as Professor Ilya suddenly begins violently coughing up blood. While servants panic, Ilya calmly orders everyone to evacuate before the deadly ghost mana beast arrives. Clyde hands Teresa a small glass vial containing a glowing blue potion. Teresa wonders if this is the special magic potion the professor originally gifted to Clyde. Clyde promises to take full command of the situation while she drinks the potion. Thanking him, Teresa downs the potion, causing a surge of blue magical energy to course through her legs. Speeding through the estate, Teresa feels relieved she can run fast enough to reach her destination in time. Narration explains that activating the dimensional gate inside the retired gardener's greenhouse will reveal a hidden secret. A metallic click echoes as Teresa unlocks the heavy chains blocking the greenhouse door with a golden key. System notification registers, confirming the lock has been successfully opened. An unexpected hidden Easter egg belonging to the Bernstein family appears before Teresa. The system reveals the hidden treasure is none other than the legendary mana enhancement potion. Grinning with triumph, Teresa greedily drinks down the rare potion to boost her magic. Eager to see the results of the potion, Teresa immediately summons her status window. Staring at her maxed out S-rank mana, Teresa marvels at the sheer, overwhelming power coursing through her. Constellations in the chat react with wild excitement, cheering as her mana pool is fully charged. Deep, majestic cry echoes through the night sky as the massive, corrupted whale floats overhead. Channeling her newly acquired S-rank mana, Teresa unleashes a massive wave of purification magic. Countless glowing butterflies ascend into the sky, bathing the giant beast in dazzling purification light. A brilliant burst of pure energy cleanses the corruption, restoring the whale's majestic glowing form. The fully cleansed mana beast glides peacefully above the grassy fields, completely free of corruption. Teresa smiles with profound relief, glad that her dangerous plan succeeded without any casualties. System windows confirm the purification succeeded, though Teresa's immense S-rank mana has been completely depleted. Overwhelmed by sudden exhaustion, Teresa's vision blurs and she begins to fall backward. Falling onto the soft grass, Teresa passes out as a system window confirms her quest completion reward. Clyde frantically slaps her cheeks to wake her, while Teresa inwardly grumbles at whoever is hitting her face. Clyde angrily lectures her on the dangers of mana depletion, while a dazed Teresa begs him to lower his voice. Clyde grinds his teeth in sheer annoyance, highly frustrated by her reckless behavior. Clyde pinches Teresa's cheek as she groans in pain, lecturing her for nearly dying. Clyde holds Teresa's mouth shut, complaining she pisses people off whenever she speaks. Clyde demands Teresa get up now that she is awake, helping her to her feet. Teresa wonders if Clyde's affection increased as a system notification displays 3 out of 5 hearts. Clyde notes Teresa definitely did not have enough mana to pull off such a feat. Clyde questions how she purified the entire area, leading Teresa to lie about her potion. Clyde questions her forgetfulness, but Teresa quickly retorts that he also forgot his own potion. Teresa guesses in surprise as the small purified baby whale floats gently right in front of her. Teresa happily advises the baby whale to listen to its mother, but the creature suddenly requests a contract. Teresa looks down in confusion, questioning what the glowing baby whale wants from her. Following the baby whale's prompt, Teresa hesitantly holds out her hand as a glowing magic circle ignites. Teresa wonders if a contract was just formed as an amazed voice nearby shouts to look over. Astounded servants watch the whales fly overhead as the dead plants around Teresa miraculously bloom back to life. The majestic whales bid Teresa a warm farewell before dissolving into the sunset sky. Teresa smiles warmly and bids farewell to the giant beasts, wishing them a safe journey. The onlookers whisper in absolute shock, wondering if Teresa just successfully tamed a ghost-type mana beast. An onlooker probably remarks that their young master truly has an incredibly talented and wonderful disciple. A sudden choke sounds as a red-haired man violently holds a pleading man off the ground. The red-haired man calls him trash, reminding him he warned not to over-cultivate the ghost-attracting plants. Trembling in absolute terror, the man bows on the floor, pleading for forgiveness from Lord Ablo. Lord Ablo coldly states that contracting with someone so unqualified was nothing more than mere entertainment. Lord Ablo recalls playing the role of the dead second son, extending his wife's life and erasing mistakes. The terrified man begs on his knees, desperately promising that this mistake will never happen again. Lord Ablo thinks to himself how tiresome it is, having heard those exact words endlessly as an archangel. Lord Ablo thinks humans are a pathetic species, never expecting the man to succeed anyway. Lord Ablo admits to feeling unusually angry today, unlike his normal self, as he watches Clyde and Teresa. The bowing man cries out in profound gratitude as Lord Ablo quietly spares his life. Lord Ablo finds his dull entertainment suddenly interesting as Clyde and Teresa board their carriage below. The carriage speeds away into the dark forest under a starry night sky. An awkward and heavy silence once again fills the carriage as they ride together. Teresa moves to sit next to Clyde due to motion sickness, prompting him to call her unpredictable. Clyde silently observes her hot and cold behavior, noting how she avoids him, then suddenly approaches. Clyde continues to ponder her confusing mixed signals, recalling her contradictory declarations of love. Clyde freezes in surprise as the exhausted Teresa suddenly falls asleep on his shoulder. Clyde stares down at Teresa, silently noting how carefree she looks while sleeping. Clyde softly smiles, teasingly whispering that she seems more foolish the more he looks. Clyde reflects on how Teresa's expressions have changed, yet she remains fundamentally the same. Clyde realizes he feels unusually relaxed around her, wondering if he's becoming ordinary. Clyde questions his own peaceful thoughts, doubting if he could ever truly be ordinary. Clyde's dark alter ego mockingly warns him to stop playing human and expecting friendship. A dark, suffocating aura begins to emanate from Clyde as Teresa sleeps peacefully beside him. Clyde struggles with his inner demons, recalling how her purification magic nearly made him lose control. His inner voice tempts him to yield to the nightmare's pheromones and fall asleep together forever. A sudden drip sounds as a single line of blood trickles down Clyde's lip. Clyde bites back his dark urges, commanding the voice to get lost as it sighs in boredom. The narration explains that Duke Bernstein canceled his birthday party, unable to avoid blame for the attack. Despite the Duke's silence, dazzling rumors of the glowing whales had already spread everywhere. Teresa holds a mysterious letter covered in elegant, indecipherable fantasy script. The system screen reveals that Joseph is highly curious about Teresa being the legendary Dawn Mage. Teresa stands completely flabbergasted by the letter, deeply confused by the ridiculous new rumor. Servants whisper that Teresa must belong to the Celestial clan for taming a ghost-type mana-beast. Flustered by Mimosa calling her a wingless angel, Teresa quickly flees toward the library. Walking down the path, Teresa internally cringes at her ridiculous new angelic nickname. Teresa frets as a system quest warns of expulsion if she fails her midterm exams. Staring at her disastrous report card with a D- average, Teresa despairs over her chances. The constellations debate her high score in evil extermination as Damien watches her closely. Teresa realizes her extermination score is high only because of her student council volunteer work. Constellations express severe doubt over Teresa's survival, fearing a sudden tragic expulsion ending. Regaining her composure, Teresa confidently tells herself in her chat to remain calm. Teresa summons her status window, revealing her impressive new A-rank magic stats. Teresa recalls how drinking the legendary enhancement potion permanently boosted her immense mana capacity. Constellation donates coins, marveling at how overpowered Teresa's hidden Easter egg potion is. Smug about her developer perks and increased intelligence, Teresa looks forward to taking her rank test soon. Quick, rhythmic footsteps echo as Teresa walks confidently toward her destination. Teresa is suddenly stopped by an annoyed Mimosa complaining about her morning mood. As Teresa and Mimosa bicker in the courtyard, Damien silently approaches from behind. Damien steps directly between the two bickering girls, greeting them with a pleasant smile. Mimosa's annoyance instantly melts away as she swoons over Damien's sudden arrival. Mimosa cheerfully greets Damien with hearts in her eyes while Teresa watches dryly. Damien returns the greeting, prompting Teresa to internally judge Mimosa's dramatic attitude shift. Other students invite Damien to the gym later, confirming his massive popularity at school. Teresa notes Damien's popularity, fully aware of his hidden dark assassin identity. Teresa suggests they head to the library to focus on their studies. Teresa assumes her ordinary status protects her from dealing with high school popularity. Teresa returns to her library desk to find it absolutely covered in unsolicited gifts. Nearby male students panic in embarrassment when they realize Teresa has spotted their offerings. Teresa wonders if the boys left the gifts, while the constellations scream at her dense nature. Teresa starts writing a reply, assuming this is just a standard exchange of notes. Teresa leaves a polite note telling them to retrieve their misplaced belongings. Constellations laugh in agony as Teresa completely crushes the boys' hopes with her dense reply. Teresa stubbornly concludes that the boys simply left their gifts on the wrong desk. Over the following days, mysterious gifts and lockers stuffed with presents follow Teresa everywhere. Even at restaurants, waiters continuously deliver elaborate, unordered desserts to their table. Teresa immediately orders the waiter to return the unsolicited treats, much to the sender's shock. Rainy Rose warns Teresa that a fan club is forming, but Teresa dismisses the idea. Teresa widens her eyes as Rainy Rose asks if she knows who won the popularity poll. Narration explains the prestigious monthly voting system for the most charming student in school. Teresa guesses the school's top popular figures, but Rainy Rose quickly shuts her down. Teresa sits completely frozen as the shocking truth of the student's advances finally dawns on her. Blushing furiously, Teresa coughs and desperately refutes the rumors of the Emperor's interest in her. Damien walks up to their table just as Teresa frantically tries to clear up the misunderstanding. Damien hovers over Teresa's seat, casting a calm and comforting shadow over her. Welcoming him to the empty seat, Teresa silently notes how frequently she runs into Damien. Damien politely introduces himself to a highly flustered Rainy Rose, maintaining his perfect prince persona. Shrugging off the drama, Teresa turns her focus back to enjoying her meal. As Teresa plans how to improve her exam scores, Damien watches her with fond amusement. Teresa freezes in shock as Damien leans in close to gently wipe her lip. With a playful smile, Damien casually brushes off the intimate gesture, leaving Teresa utterly stunned. Teresa warns Damien that his overly friendly actions are attracting dangerous glares from his fan club. When Damien playfully claims they are closest, Teresa quickly flees the scene to escape his fans' wrath. Teresa walks down the hallway, finding the atmosphere hostile and deciding to study somewhere safe. Teresa pauses at a wall displaying numerous framed portraits of Clyde in a special exhibition. Several art club girls eagerly explain how they created the portraits out of longing for Clyde. Teresa sweat drops but politely humors their excessive passion, realizing she cannot esquit the school's madness. Teresa walks away to find a quiet place to study, noting that midterms are approaching fast. Spotting an empty reading room, Teresa cautiously peers inside to check if anyone is there. Teresa pauses in surprise as she overhears someone asking Clyde if he intends to skip an event. Inside the library, several noble students confronted Clyde over his family duties. Reading a book, Clyde calmly reminds the intrusive visitors that they must remain quiet in the library. Quietly observing from the doorway, Teresa watches the tense conversation unfold inside. A polite knock on the door interrupts the group's conversation, causing everyone to look back. Teresa steps inside, casually calling out to Clyde that she needs to speak with him. The brown-haired boy introduces himself as Anthony from the Count Harris family, but Teresa instantly cuts him off. Teresa haughtily demands how a mere count's son dares to greet her first without her permission. Teresa stands tall with her arms crossed, completely shocking the onlookers with her arrogant demeanor. Teresa continues to look down on Anthony, demanding how someone from Count Harris's family dares to speak to her. Teresa folds her arms and sighs, remembering that her persona only recognizes two types of people. She visualizes the first category of people her character remembers, which consists of high-status nobility. She visualizes the second category of people her character remembers, which consists of exceptionally good-looking individuals. Anthony desperately tries to assert his noble blood, but Teresa quickly silences him with a simple shush. Teresa's magical blue butterflies fly around Anthony, completely sealing his lips and preventing him from speaking. Smiling warmly amid the butterflies, Teresa receives a coin donation from a constellation amused by her psychopathic behavior. Standing up from his desk, Clyde coldly asks Teresa if she feels proud of bullying a first-year student. As Clyde demands to know what she wants, Teresa notes that he is pricklier than usual. Determined not to show any weakness, Teresa firmly blocks the doorway with a loud slap of her hand. Leaning close to Clyde, Teresa boldly suggests they find a private place to have a conversation. A system notification announces a constellation's coin donation, amused by Teresa's blunt and harsh attitude. Clyde groans in exasperation at Teresa's confusing choice of words, while another constellation donates coins. Grabbing the door handle, Clyde commands the boys to leave as they stumble away with sealed mouths. Clyde casts a bright blue magic circle that binds the door with chains, sealing it shut. As they walk away, Teresa is shocked to learn that only professor-level mages can unlock the door. Nearby, Delve stands quietly in front of Clyde's portrait, unaware that Damien is approaching him. Damien friendly greets Delve, asking if he stepped out because the library is too crowded. Delve flinches and looks down nervously as Damien continues to speak with him in the hallway. Delve admits that unlike Damien, he lacks any talent for magic despite his parents' private tutors. Standing under Damien's giant portrait, Delve wonders if his father would have been happier with Damien instead. Damien kindly changes the subject, asking Delve what other things he enjoys doing besides magic. Delve admits that he has recently found enjoyment in crafting handmade toys on his own. Damien holds up a beautifully detailed wooden drummer boy toy, praising Delve's talent for toy making. Delve smiles sadly, explaining that his father would never allow him to pursue any career besides magic. Damien softly encourages Delve, stating that pursuing his own desires is the only thing that truly matters. Damien continues his philosophical advice, noting that there is no single correct way to live life. Handing the toy back to Delve, Damien declares his determination to live life on his own terms. Staring intensely into Delve's eyes, Damien advises him that only he has the power to define himself. Delve clutches the toy tightly as dark thorns manifest around him, whispering his agreement with Damien's words. The scene shifts to a beautifully decorated, quiet hallway filled with sunlight. Clyde and Teresa walk down the empty hallway, discussing where they should go to find privacy. A small wooden toy dog suddenly comes to life and runs across the marble floor. The wooden dog runs past Clyde and Teresa, pursued by three calling girls running close behind. Three girls, led by a cheerful blonde student, run toward them with bright and excited expressions. Clyde silently ignores Rivy's cheerful greeting, prompting Teresa to internally judge his complete lack of social skills. Clyde curtly announces his departure, but Teresa quickly grabs his coat and excuses his awkwardness to the younger student. Rivy eagerly shows off a wooden dog toy, explaining that it moves on its own when infused with mana. Rivy reveals that Damien gifted her the toy, leaving Teresa utterly shocked that his creations are already circulating among students. Internal narration explains that Damien's wooden toys are actually cursed dolls designed to amplify people's darkest negative thoughts. A dark, chained vision reveals how these cursed dolls are distributed during the school festival to trigger a demon summoning. Staring grimly at the wooden dog, Teresa grows increasingly anxious about the premature appearance of Damien's toys. Teresa warns Rivy that Mimosa will react aggressively if she discovers Rivy received a gift from Damien. Clyde, coolly chiming in, advises Rivy to be extremely cautious of the ubiquitous and fanatic Damien Love Club. Rivy admits she always felt hostile glares whenever Damien spoke to her, wondering why Clyde is smiling. A green-haired girl suddenly rushes up and urgently whispers to Rivy to step away with her. The green-haired girl whispers that Clyde wants Teresa all to himself, leaving Rivy flustered and Teresa highly defensive. Clyde casually asks if the rumor is true, leaving Teresa frozen in shock and complete disbelief. The younger girls run off cheerfully, wishing the two seniors a wonderful time together. A system notification alerts Teresa that a thrilled constellation has donated 10,000 coins over the romantic misunderstanding. Teresa fumes about impending rumors, but Clyde dryly reminds her of the rumors she once spread about them dating. A sudden, powerful tremor violently shakes the corridor, startling Clyde and Teresa as debris falls from above. Teresa nervously questions the noise, while Clyde dryly assumes someone is destroying school property. Teresa gasps as the wooden toy dog dropped on the floor suddenly spins and runs away on its own. Realizing the magic toy is moving by itself, Teresa and Clyde quickly chase it down the empty hallway. The wooden toy leads them straight to the grand locked door of the professor-only library. Clyde and Teresa throw open the heavy doors, only to find the interior overrun with twisted, dark branches. Peering into the dim, corrupted room, Teresa instantly senses the overwhelming danger of their discovery. A swirling vortex of red energy reveals Delve trapped in the center of an emerging demon realm. Clyde identifies Delve as a fourth-year student, while noting he has never spoken to him before. Delve clutches his toy drummer tight as a heavy clattering sound echoes through the menacing red energy. Massive, dark, thorny roots suddenly burst from the floor, shattering the library's foundation. Clyde screams Teresa's name in desperation as she is pulled backward into the rapidly expanding demon dungeon.